right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Group Up Podcast. We are here for the great September debate, and the time has flown by. The Juno debate maybe it was in June. No, it wasn't. It was probably like July. Maybe August. I don't even remember now. Time
So
is
she
a
had June in
construct.
the name, you know?
I think it was
Wait,
August.
it was August.
Oh, debate.
Popping off.
Is Juno. What a great start. I mean, surely Juno. There's some history there
Yeah.
of June. But anyways, we're here. I've got my guests, and we're going to discuss all things mid-season Overwatch. Let me introduce the cast who need no introduction, and I will ask them to explain their backgrounds as we go. I'll start with the relatively tame background of Samito in the top left. Samito, how you doing?
It's good. I just had some good food. I was telling SVB about the Southern style chicken, man, or I guess in general, when they've got the name on the front, like Josanna's, I think this one was called, it's gonna be good. But you know, you're gonna be in food timeout for about an hour. So I've got my strawberry banana smoothie over here, Greek yogurt. The diet change has been good, gentlemen. But yeah, it's the classic Lee Jane background. You know, I haven't busted out the Lee Jane background. I think I've just been bland, and I don't have an entire wall of cool stuff like both AVRL and SVB do. I can't.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, actually, clearly AVRL instead. Maybe we can have him explain in the bottom left. AVRL, what is your background, and welcome to the podcast.
I just thought, you know, it's me and my girl is getting ready for the Group Up podcast again. So I just felt it would be, you know, kind of ideal for this September debate. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm, you know, something's changed around here. I'm using a different camera angle, and it might be time to retire the green screen backgrounds. I know this has been my thing for like forever. This has been not even on purpose, it just was because well, I didn't really have much to show in the background until I got a different room. Everyone's been asking me, is like, did you move somewhere? Did you go somewhere? And it's like, well, let me show where I went. So I might as well show the audience now. This is for the Group Up viewers. This is why you got to be a video viewer as well. If you're an audio only viewer, you don't know what's happening right now. You're gonna have to get this play-by-play described by someone else as I physically move things.
No, I'll take over. So yeah, you're missing out
man.
on the action as AVRL steps away
Apple
from the chair,
butt
just rips a hole in his background,
Whoa!
and it reveals
Space-time continuum ruined.
a beautifully decorated room with some somber blue lighting, a shelf full of knickknacks and paddywhacks, and a.
Wait, hang on.
Oh yeah, he's got more. He steps away.
Please
He's
tell me
wearing
that's
shorts.
a Chengdu flag. Is that a Chengdu flag?
He's got.
On the.
I'm not sure what he just did there. I'm not sure what he changed.
I
what
just
he
turned on the
tweaked.
Twitch light. I got that like
Oh.
2 years ago. It had nothing to do with it.
So the Twitch light burns bright in his background, and is that like a Hangzhou Spark
There's
shelf?
a Hangzhou Spark and an Element
And
Mystic banner.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he's broken tradition of his meme backgrounds, but someone who's still got his in the bottom right. Spilo, what are we seeing here? Welcome to the podcast.
All right. Quick story. So last night, it's 2:30 a.m. Everyone knows 2:30 a.m. You know, stuff just hits differently. I'm with my friend Stefano. We're chilling, and he's spectating me playing quick play with the buddies. And I'm playing Sombra, and the Winston's chasing me around the map. He's like, dude, watch out. He's getting you with his vacuum. He's like his little zap gun, you know. Something that was funny. And we're just giggling, and I'm like, man, what if Winston was, what if his name was Hoover? And so we found, I don't know.
I'm so confused.
So we just made Hoover Overwatch, and we were like, you know, everyone's favorite heroes, Genji, Tracer, and Hoover. And you know, we got the brave little toaster, vacuum here, and I don't know. It's just one of those things you had to be there. But Hoover Overwatch is we're rolling with Hoover Overwatch for today.
Hoover
For
Overwatch.
literally no reason at all. Yeah, Hoover Overwatch.
This is an interesting one because you have picked one who's already memed, which is the Winton. The Winton meme already. Yes. Now we got a new one. We got Hoover.
It's Hoover. Yeah, it's Hoover. So
feels very.
We're also thinking about what if Bastion was named like Ambassador or something? We were just coming up with like completely different names but Hoover Overwatch was still the best.
Feels very Jeff
Yeah,
from Marvel Rivals, like, you know, like just a completely
Yes.
oddball character compared to the rest of the cast. Just a Hoover.
Never saw that one coming.
Just Hoover.
Never
No,
saw that one coming. Brilliant.
No, nobody ever does.
Well, speaking of, fellas, I know Sam is probably excited for December and Rivals to appear, but for now, Overwatch is the name of the game. And I am curious as to you guys' thoughts. So we'll get into, obviously, the mid-season patches come out. So there's been some changes and, you know, cosmetic stuff coming out. But for the time being, we'll start, as we always do, with just your general feelings on Overwatch at the moment. So Sam, summarize for us your general Overwatch feelings.
I'll start with, I guess, season 12. The cosmetics were so good. Like, so good. I think this is probably, like, from a art standpoint, my favorite season ever, I would say. Like, I think I know some people were, like, a little annoyed on Twitter about, like, the Egyptian, like, the Reaper mythic being, like, I forget, like, the lore accurate, but I think it just fits so well, just, like, in like, the Overwatch verse, you know? So I loved season 12's, like, art style. I think he was really, really good. I just kind of more of the same, to be honest. I like Juno a lot. I wish they had not buffed. I think the only thing that I wish they hadn't done was give that little change to like the torpedoes to make them a bit stronger, but that's not that
For
big
heal
of a
is the
deal.
same though. The
Yeah.
heal
Oh,
output is the exact
is it the
same.
same?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the same math. It's just shifted away from the heal over time, which I think actually makes it weaker.
Okay, fair. I think in general I would summarize my feelings with, it's just kind of more of the same. The art was great. It was really cool. Like, this is the first battle pass I felt like I wanted to grind. Then mid-season patch, I guess I'll wait until we get. I'm sure we'll get to it, but I would say the feelings in general, kind of just more of the same. Not like amazing, but not terrible either. I grinded the season, so.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty fair. AVRL, how about you? It's been a while, I think, since we've heard from you on the podcast. How have you been feeling about Overwatch?
I feel when we get to the mid-season patch, I think the direction where they're starting to move tanks back towards is better. But I'm always going to be that guy that's like, okay, what's going on with tanks? Are we just in this infinite pendulum seesaw of like tanks overpowered, tanks now nerfed, now it's not good. Now you got to make tanks overpowered again. We're just going to keep going back and forth between that. So I'd like to see how things settle down and if tanks are finally in a good place. I got a lot of thoughts on Juno as well. I think Juno is an interesting character, but she's, I think, dominating a lot of high rank meta and definitely pro meta right now. I don't know if she's like super rampant in lower ranks or anything like that, but she's super popular hero. She's super fun. Actually, probably my favorite support to play. So it's like I can't even hate. Honestly, a fun hero. Season 12 generally, I think has been fine. I don't like Clash though. I have a lot of thoughts about Clash. I'm probably going to spend the majority of the podcast complaining about Clash, or just like basically that's like the one huge negative for me. It's like Clash is the one major thing that has made me kind of like if I had to pick one thing that I was like, man, this is the thing that is I'm not happy about at all. But everything else is generally fine.
I am going to want to ask you guys your thoughts on wave respawn. Can we get to those at some point today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
sure. I was
perfect,
thinking about bringing it up too, so we'll get to that.
I'm also responsible for that. There's a fun story behind that one too.
Oh yeah, okay. You
So,
can share the story
yeah.
if you want to right now.
Oh, we got basically I don't know if I actually am responsible, but it's just fun. It's good. It's
Just say
good
you
for
are.
my
Just say you are.
yeah, it's good for
story,
the
good
it's just
story.
it's just
Good
fun
story.
lore. It's just fun lore. It's fun headcanon if I pretend that I am, because I asked Aaron Keller like a couple years ago when the alpha of Overwatch 2 was there, and I was like, dude, are we ever going to get something like a group respawn or a wave respawn? Because I came from TF2, and that was a standard mechanic that was in TF2, and I'm like, I think this would improve games a lot. Like, it would allow people to group up easier, and actually, I was mainly looking at it from the perspective of like, how do you make games that are in quick play or like lower level games just a general more pleasant experience for everybody, and group respawns or wave respawns is going to be a good way of doing that. So I was like, are we ever going to see something like this in the game? And he's like, we'll see. Well, I don't know. We'll put it on the radar, I guess. And then a couple years later, we're finally here. But I don't know. I don't know. They probably had that one cooking for a while. I don't know how long. Apparently, at least 2 years. But I feel like I brought it up. I might have just incepted that idea in there, a couple years back. So just fun headcanon if I imagine that I'm responsible in some way.
Why possibly? And
I
if
like that.
people dislike it, then they know who to blame. It's gonna be like, fucking AVRL, man. Why do you have to keep
Yeah,
bringing
well,
that shit
I'll
up?
defend it. They can come at me. I'll defend it. I'm happy to defend it.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that, and I think Gavin's in chat, but we also had, in fact, last time I wanted to bring up Gavin's tweets on group respawn, but we didn't get the time to get to it. So
Gavin's like, no, actually, I came up with that 5 years ago. So shut the fuck.
Gavin's like, I came up with it in TF2. I predate all of this. All right, so let's move on then. Spilo, we haven't heard from you. How are you feeling about Overwatch in general?
It's fine. That's fine. I was talking with Sam with it on yesterday. Shout out the Locker Room podcast with Samito. first episode yesterday. It was fun. But
Nice.
no, we talked a little bit about the midseason, and we'll talk about. I'm sure we'll go more in detail about Clash and Wave, because I've got some thoughts on that. But overall, I mean, it's fine. I think meta right now, from what I can tell, is okay. Obviously, things haven't quite settled down. I think the only real egregious example of just like bleh, especially in high ranks, is the Ramatra, which Sam and I have talked about. But besides that, I think it's all right. I think it's all right. I mean, having Juno being meta right now, it's like she's one of the more honest and interesting supports to play versus and play as. So I think like support lineup is pretty healthy right now. No BAP, not as much Mercy. Well, not no BAP, but not all BAP, not all Mercy, not all Moira. I think the Moira buff will probably bump her in, which kind of sucks. But I think overall it's been okay. It's been all right.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, largely sounds like most of you guys are like, yeah, it's about the same. It's things trucking along. A few nice things, a few maybe things you're not happy with, but status quo is kind of keeping on trucking, which is interesting for me to hear as someone who to round out. I mean, I won't be expressing many feelings on the current state of Overwatch in this podcast because I have not played. So I have not played in like 2 months now. So I will not be chiming in on like what's good or what's bad. I will try and give my perspective where it's relevant, especially as perhaps like an outsider or someone who like is like I'm not like forsaking Overwatch. Like I'll never play Overwatch again, but like it's more like a hey, I hope something interesting comes along that makes me want to play. So I'll be bringing that perspective, I think, to any personal feedback that I give. So let's then run through the patch notes. I think that'll be probably the easiest way to structure this. Hello guys, SCB here, and the Group Up podcast is back, and I'd like to take just 30 seconds of your time to talk to you about 2 quick things. Firstly, Patreon. If you enjoy the content, then please do consider supporting directly, because Patreon takes only about 10% of the money you give, where YouTube and Twitch take 40 and 50% respectively. So if you'd like to support the podcast, then that is the best way to do so. Secondly, if you're someone who enjoys video essays or detailed analysis of movies, TV, or anime, then please do check out my second channel, The Soak, where I'll be making videos about those kind of topics much more frequently, and where a lot of my attention will go beyond just Overwatch. It would mean the absolute world to me if you guys would check it out, but that's it for now. Let's head back to the discussion. We'll kind of look at everything that's mentioned in the patch notes, and if something isn't mentioned, like I think Wave Respawn might not be mentioned, we will specifically talk about it. So the first thing that the patch notes retail September 17th, 2024 is the World of Warcraft collaboration. So let's talk about this just as a little warm-up. Join the celebration as Overwatch and World of Warcraft unite the realms for legendary crossover. Dive into the glory with Sylvanas, Windrunner, Widowmaker, Lich King Reinhardt, Thrall Zenyatta, and Diamond, Magni, Torbjorn legendary skins. So, Sam, you said the cosmetics were killing it recently. Is this another example of people? How are you feeling about the World of Warcraft stuff?
I mean, it's good when you're starting to see Torb in your games, and every single one of them has the diamond skin on. The Torb players, listen, don't let them fool you. Those guys will get skins too. They're like sleeper character for the there's always the bikini Torb running around. Like those Torb players are dedicated. I think they're great. I was never a huge WoW player. I for whatever reason, like I was more of a Pokemon kid than like a WoW kid. I don't know how that ended up happening because I actually didn't really have a PC when I was younger. All I had was like a Game Boy. And I never got a PC until I didn't get a PC until I had to go bag groceries at Kroger and buy my own. So that's the best bag boy Kroger ever saw, by the way. I stand on that. But no, I think they're good. I think there's no surprise there with the art team at Blizzard. They always have just been so damn good, and I think they should be really thrilled. I think this is probably the best sequence of skins and cosmetics and back to back nailed it. Because the Transformer one was good. I think that was good, but the Egyptian themes and WoW being an in-house title, I think just allowed them to really. It had the Blizzard polish to it. You know what I mean? I feel like it's more it's better fan service. Not that the other ones were bad fan service, but that Overwatch players and Blizzard players probably played WoW, right? So that's just a really on brand, nail it type of thing. And the skin was great. There were people when I was streaming in my chat saying some sus things about the skins. That's how people like them, and they're on Twitter talking about how good Widowmaker looks or something. You just know it's gonna come up. So that was good. I think they should be really happy with it. And yeah, I thought they were great.
Nice. So you're satisfied. How about you, Spilo?
Yeah.
You happy with the cosmetics? Care? Don't care?
I've never played WoW. So they were new skins. They will make money. That's my stance. Also,
likely.
Widowmaker belly and Torbjorn armor, Rhine armor equal good. Much cash.
Much money. AVRL, is that? Have you played WoW? We got a whole panel of people who've never played WoW.
I played up to level 10 of WoW when I was back in the day. It was like I think it was a World of Warcraft Hearthstone collaboration at the time, and you needed to play like 10 levels, which is like the free trial of World of Warcraft, to get like this in-game cosmetic for Hearthstone. And I was hardcore enough as a Hearthstone player. I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna play these 10 levels, and then that's the only WoW I've ever played is those 10 levels. So played those 10 levels, and I unfortunately never looked back. I never got back in. People keep trying to drag me in though. Like I got friends who play WoW for sure, but I don't know if I can dive into an MMO. I think it would suck my whole life away. But cosmetics, generally for season 12 look good. Even though the 12 skin is pretty sure it's a recolor, but it's a reasonable recolor. I think the diamond texture look is actually pretty good. But aside from that, the Sylvanas is really, really sick as a skin, and the Lich King skin is really good. I think the Thrall skin is maybe a little bit hit or miss. Just a weird choice.
If it's a big miss, it honestly, it's still a hit though. That's the funny thing is like people are like, "What the freaking ugly skin that is for Zen?" Let's play it.
Yeah, it's just a weird skin. I don't even know if it's ugly. It's just strange. It's like that just wouldn't have been the case.
That was the one I saw too, where I was kind of like, I wasn't weirded out by it, but it doesn't fit Zen's personality, but I still thought it was funny.
Doesn't fit Thrall either. It doesn't fit either of them. It's just like they just decided, well, we have Thrall available, we have Zen available. Just shove it together. Let's just make it happen. So that was that. So, but generally, I think the WoW collab looks fine, looks good. The skins look pretty sick, and the season 12 like kind of theme and cosmetic look in general is pretty good. Although this would have been a really good season. I know other people on like socials have already talked about this, but this would have been a really good season to introduce a nice Egyptian themed skin for Venture, given that's like the kind of Venture's kind of attached to the lore of Egypt in a way. I feel like it would have been a good time for it. Did Farah get a skin? I don't think Farah got a skin.
I don't think Echo actually did. Echo got the raw skin, I believe.
Which looks good, but it's just like as far as the other characters, like has the lore attached to Egypt.
Yeah,
it's like
or Anna as well, right? Well, did Anna get one? Anna might have got one.
She's getting her mythic. She's getting her mythic weapon.
She got a gun. Okay, fair enough. She gets a gun. She gets a mythic gun. Fair enough. We'll take those. And what else? I think there was some discussion around like maybe Ram should have been the recipient of the mythic instead, the Anubis skin, which I thought would have really sick as well. But honestly, the Reaper mythic might be my favorite mythic now. It was the Mercy one before. As much as I dislike the character, I thought the quality of the skin was super high. And now the quality of this Reaper mythic is super high. Like that to me, now this is a new bar that's been set in terms of like the standard for mythic. It's like, dude, this is how good mythic should be now. Because this is an insane level of like skin quality for me. I think the best mythic ever released.
It's kind of pay to win too. Do you want to know how? I was doing this. This is so funny. You ready for this, guys? So because the teleport animation is gold on some like gold maps, it's harder to see. So if you fake TP and you look straight at your feet really quick and TP at your feet, like people just are lost. They have no idea. Don't nerf it. It's hilarious. Okay, please don't nerf it. It's so funny. It's not that good. It's not that good, but it does happen sometimes. So it's pretty damn funny. But I seriously, like, easily, I think the best skin ever in Overwatch. Sorry, K-pop fans, get over it.
Yeah, I mean,
quality's super high. Like all the animations, the general theme of it, like even the leveling up. Because now with the Mythic Shop, it's not about you get the whole skin at the end of the season or whatever. It's like you use the Mythic Prisms, you unlock the skin, and you level up. And you can see the progression, the leveling up, and the progression makes a lot of sense. And the full level 4 mythic is like, damn, so insane. My favorite part about the skin is actually the shooting animation. We see a little sand pellets. That is absolutely the best. For some reason, it makes it feel like Reaper's doing more damage.
Yes,
like,
it does. It actually does.
It's like, dude, like shots are doing more. Like it's just what it feels like.
It's like the stupid Porsche Diva collab where you swear you're moving faster with boosters. Like it just feels.
Well, this is just a psychology thing, right? It's like the whole I can't remember which game it was, but the game development thing where it's like, if you have a horse and the horse can be moving at the same speed as the character running, but if you add motion lines to the horse, people think that the horse goes faster, like the horse is faster than you travel. So like this is like another one of these instances probably where if you like add motion lines or a sound effect or something, people are like, oh, I swear it's going faster or it's doing more damage or whatever. So there you go. That's good to hear, and I'm glad you guys are so happy about the mythics. I can actually chime in as someone who has played a good amount of WoW. In fact, I have a lot of history with these characters in terms of I was an OG Warcraft 3 player, so like all these characters are like straight up in the RTS lore. You know, the thralls, the Sylvanuses. You get to play you get to see how they develop in the campaign. So it's really cool as like a throwback because like Sylvanus is like introduced in the campaign of Warcraft 3 and like how she becomes like this dark elf or whatever. I forget what the exact term for her is. Or she's just a corrupted undead elf, I think. But yeah, and I think basically WoW players are eating good. I think this is a really great nod to anyone who's played WoW. Like these are just really iconic characters in the game. So yeah, Banshee. There you go. That's the one. She's a Banshee. Yeah. So yeah. No, I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really great. The Thrall one, yes, absolutely bizarre collaboration with Zenyatta. But hey, you know, not all the swings are gonna hit. To co-op some sort of Samito metaphor. Not every swing is going to be a home run, probably, right? Am I right, Americans?
Hey, we're playing Moneyball out here. Get on base, okay?
Okay. So, okay, Mythics, therefore, you guys largely very happy with, very successful. I have seen a lot of... I think most of the time there's hype about Overwatch these days. It is because of the cosmetics. Like, it feels like that has become the main talking point, almost, outside of, you know, balance complaints.
Especially post-Conquered. That really blew up. It was like the best, like as bad as that whole situation was for the developers working on that game, the fact that that game failed, it felt like we needed to kick some other game in the face for Overwatch, people to feel better about Overwatch. It's kind of depressing, but it's true. I saw so many nice things being said about Overwatch post-Conquered release or post-Conquered failure, but maybe we can get to that later.
Yeah, no, actually, rarely, for once, I saw a video on YouTube come on my home feed that was praising Overwatch, and it was like comparing its character design to Concord.
Yep, so it was all the same video.
It was like,
video.
This
I think
is
everybody
like, it's
did.
like an arrow that was like, this is shit and this is good, and it was like, okay. at least, you know, Overwatch stays winning in some way. Although I'm sure the developers aren't happy about downing others.
Compared to industry leaders like Overwatch, like that's right. You better admit it. You better admit it. Like
yeah.
All right. Well, let's see what other innovations industry leader Overwatch has got for us in these patch notes. So we have general updates, Role Queue Mystery Heroes. Role Queue Mystery Heroes is a new variation of the popular Mystery Heroes game mode, but using the Role Queue rules. Once you select your role, your heroes will be played randomly selected. Heroes you play will randomly be selected among the heroes in that role and will not change throughout the match. How do we feel? I doubt we have any Role Queue Mystery Hero grinders, but Mystery Heroes has always been a really popular arcade mode, so... Is this a dub for the Mystery Hero warriors? I'll go to...
I saw a lot more people playing Mystery Heroes.
Go ahead, Spilo.
I saw a lot more people playing Mystery Heroes. I played several games. It was fun. I mean, people are definitely going to complain about it, and I think that there is going to be a certain population, and maybe it is a bad change long term. I don't know. But I enjoyed the games that I played more than I usually do, because it's usually like, all right, let's play Mystery Heroes. This sounds fun. Oh, all right, we have like a support. Okay. Oh no, we lost a support. Oh no, they have 3 supports. And then I lose. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna go back and play competitive. That was fun while it lasted. This one felt like I was able to I was more fun for a longer period of time. I know I don't think there's like you could really have a stance. I think for them it'll be more about like what's the player percentage over like a long period of time, and then seeing how that shifts.
Because I imagine
it was definitely better in some ways, you know.
Because I imagine part of the appeal of Mystery Heroes is the like, well, I can get any hero, right? So it's like, it's kind of like just another classic Overwatch moment of like open queue versus roll queue, right? It's like, well, on the one hand, it's more balanced and more sane, and you know people can expect that they won't get rolled by the lack of a second tank or a second support or whatever. But at the same time, people are not gonna always get to have that like, whoa, I'm suddenly this hero now. AVRL, how about you? How do you feel about this?
I mean, I'm not a big Mystery Heroes guy, but I don't know. Maybe the Mystery Heroes players, like, I mean, Blizzard surely would have gotten some sort of feedback somewhere where it's like, this is something that people wanted, I guess. I kind of thought the whole point of playing Mystery Heroes, though, was to just, like, get any random hero. Like, maybe in the interest of making Mystery Hero games more balanced, which sounds like a strange thing, because, like, again, I thought the appeal of Mystery Heroes is just to have the most chaotic game possible. But whenever I play Mystery Heroes, it is like if the other team ends up on like an actual composition, it's like, oh, okay, well, I just kind of lose, right? The other team's got a real composition now. So maybe this makes mystery heroes more fun if you just want to play random heroes within your own role. You don't want to like flex across every role. But I don't know that many people that are into mystery heroes, so I don't even know what like the feedback is on this. But it sounds fine. I'm probably not really going to engage with it personally, but for the people that want this, I'm interested to hear what they think about it. To be honest,
thinking about it, how different is this to current Overwatch? Because it's like, do people not just flex around a bunch in current Overwatch anyways? And like, especially like, you know, not to meme on it, but like the tank role. It's like, are you not already doing this? It's like you just swap after every death. So there's an element of it does feel. I mean, again, this is just outside looking in. Maybe I would be much more curious to hear what the actual Mr. Hero community feels about this. Whether they're like, yeah, no, actually, this is good. This is like a good middle ground, and we get to kind of have a bit of crazy fun, but it's more sane and balanced and contained. But yeah, Sam, how about you? Have you ever flirted with the mystery heroes?
Not really. So I won't talk on it. I'm glad they're trying things for it. I actually have an interesting segue in the arcade genre. I had some guy donate to me, I think it was a week or two ago, and he was complaining to, he's apparently like big in the FFA community or something like that. And he said that he asked me to bring up on the next Group Up podcast. And I'm glad you brought up arcade because I would have forgotten otherwise. He said that like in Overwatch 1, when someone would pick a tank in deathmatch, that everyone in the lobby would focus the tank because it was considered like the cheese corny pick. But apparently now every tank in there like has all the tank passes and stuff. So they're so strong in the FFA that like it's just become like a bunch of tanks playing and not DPS. So he told me to ask the devs to like look at FFA and maybe take the tank passes off or something in there. So I don't know. I'm not an arcade player. But I that reminded me of that, to where I guess there you go, buddy. I fulfilled my end of the bargain, I suppose, where apparently FFA has gotten too tanky, I guess. But no, I think roll queue, and I sure try it. You know, I'm not a huge arcade guy, but I did see more people on my friends list playing arcade, so that's off. You know.
And there you go, people. Confirmation that if you want something brought up on the Group Up podcast, just pay someone enough to do it. And
yeah, I'm just gonna like let my chat know that is an open offer for you guys too. So
in fact,
the minimum threshold being $5.
You can. I'll undercut $4 and I'll make it a whole segment. Come on, guys, come through.
No, SB, you know what you got to do? You got to turn on text to speech donos.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always turn those off because then sometimes they're just randomly long, and someone's really mid deep passionate rant, and then it'll just be like Keck W, you know, just like random shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I guess it's always hard when we talk about like arcade stuff amongst the podcast, because usually most streamers are like hardcore competitive players, so we don't really have a frame of reference for the arcade warriors. But again, hopefully this is one of those things that will hopefully explain itself over time, where if it's good and it's popular, the devs will keep it. If it's not, they will presumably change it or scrap it entirely. So let's see what happens with it. We'll look at the last competitive updates thing. I think after this it goes into the patch, but we'll talk about other stuff before we talk about the patch. But
please get the Genji nerf. Please get the Genji nerf. It's so funny. It's so funny.
Competitive updates, competitive drives. Now, this is something I was like, what? Competitive drives are limited time events that take place near the end of seasons in competitive play role queue. As you complete a drive, you'll earn bonus competitive points and a new reward called signatures. Signatures are a cosmetic reward that appears on your name in most locations where your name is displayed, including your name card, play the game highlights, scoreboard, and hero select. Signatures are upgraded as you reach checkpoints in a drive. When you win a match, you'll earn drive score and progress towards the next checkpoint. Losing subtracts drive score, but generally less than winning. And checkpoints prevent you from losing score once you reach them. There are 6 checkpoints, and they grant the following rewards in order of completion: 500 competitive points, signature, 1,000 competitive points, advanced signature, 1,500 competitive points, elite signature. So, signatures are removed after a rank reset. So how do we feel about this signature competitive drive thing? Like, what is going on here? I'll go to AVRL
They're
first.
removing them after rank. Sorry, I'm just, that's the one
No,
thing,
go for it,
right?
go for it. Yeah, so it says they're removed after a rank reset.
Right. Why? Like, imagine if YouTube was like, oh, nice job on the 100,000 subscribers. We're going to send you your plaque, but you have to send it back after like 6 months. Like, this isn't like the Stanley Cup or whatever, you know? Like, you get it, you get to keep it. Like, that's what people like. Imagine if like, oh, you got the cultists in for Zenyatta, or you got the achievement. No, like, let people like show off and flaunt it. Like I get having like the diamond role challenger title could be misleading for people, right? That's a season reset thing. But like, I don't know. I think like cool and flashy stuff, you get it, you earn it. I think the idea of drives, like encouraging people to play late in the season, is really cool. I think I mean, everyone in this podcast has probably at some point complained about competitive rewards at some point in time. They're doing this, so great job. But let people keep it. Let me have it.
My guess would be that the reason the devs have added this is that it might result in the thing that's happened before, where it's like everyone has the certain reward by a certain amount of time. So like everyone has the top 500 icon earned in Lucio Ball, and then you can just have it on your portrait icon.
Have
to like
season
top
by
500.
season ones, right? Like you know, like this is the season one where it's red and it's sparkles and explosions, and then you can only get it in season 1. And season 2 we'll recolor the same freaking thing and make it blue, or like you don't have to have like completely brand new things, but having something unique I think would be fun.
AVRL, how about you? You kind of agree with that sentiment?
I mean, I can see where Spilo's coming from, but I also understand, like, I guess I kind of have a feeling why Blizzard are doing this kind of like removed after a rank reset, where I almost see it kind of similar to a ranked border that we used to get, where it's just like it's not a permanent thing. It's not like you hit GM one time, you're gonna rank border forever. That's GM. Maybe that's not like the perfect analogy, but I mean, I see it both ways. I'm like, yeah, it's meant to be something you strive for every single season. Otherwise, you could see a situation where you get to future seasons. It's like, I don't really need a new signature. I'm gonna just keep holding my signature, and you don't feel any sort of motivation to keep playing a drive. Whereas doing it this way, it's kind of like gets you to maybe participate in the late season drive every single season, which is probably what I think it's there to do. I don't hate it. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that you don't get to keep the signature. Although I do think that, like, generally as far as cosmetics goes, it makes more sense that like when you earn a cosmetic you get to keep it. But this doesn't seem as like important or as big as, for example, like a golden whip or anything. Now that if that was something that you only got to keep for a season or for a rank reset, that would be super weird. But just some signature thing, like, I don't know. I don't think it's a huge deal.
Maybe part of it as well is that it gives the rank reset more meaning too, because it's like it changes more things. So like it feels more of a like a liminal moment where like, hey, at this point now things are different.
Yes, but I want to be angry.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, same, plenty of reasons.
Also, like I said earlier before we started, it's like people in the comments like there's not enough debate in these debates. So I'm gonna pick fights just randomly.
Yeah, I'm down with it.
Like, oh, okay, let's disagree. Devil's advocate.
You know what? I don't like your T-shirt. Fuck you, man.
Yeah. Okay, buddy.
Sam,
just be careful. As long as you have real arguments, so otherwise people like they'll accuse you being contrarian, which is really annoying for me because when
I'm not contrarian, idiots. What's wrong with you?
Which is when I do it, I actually have real arguments, but people assume that I do it just to like just to argue. It's like no, I genuinely stand by what I'm saying. It's just, I don't know, super strange.
Sam, how about you? You kind of on the drive.
I'm just happy to have something. It's cool. I'll take it. That's fine. I'm glad they're trying stuff on the competitive rewards front. I think it's definitely been really underwhelming thus far. But hopefully it'll make people try a little bit harder in rank, because Lord knows I need that with the backlines I've been getting, man. Please just start picking Brig, guys. Please. I pray. If they go Diva, just pick Brig. Please. I'll take it, though. I'll take it. I'm getting gray hairs over here. I've been waiting so long. You know what I mean? Like, look, I got a couple right here. Not even kidding. Right here. So we need these rank rewards, and we need more. And we need encourage competitiveness, please. Reward people for being in voice chat, too. I'd like that one. That'd be sick.
So we've actually got but Gavin is here, and usually Gavin is in the chat, but he's not necessarily directly involved with the stuff that we're talking about. In this case, he actually is. He says he is the systems designer behind this, and he says thinking behind removing them on the rank reset was that when you log into the game, if you see someone with a signature, they've been more serious about competitive recently. So I guess that's, and rank resets are like once every 6 months that they say that they're gonna rank reset.
Half
so
a year, 1 year.
So I was it 6 months, guys? Who maybe Gavin will confirm, but how often is a rank reset?
I think it was 6 months. I think.
Yeah.
Every 3 seasons,
so it's not the shortest amount. Like it's a fair amount of time to keep it. And it does make sense because after 6 months, if you've had the thing, I can maybe Spilo's idea is the better compromise. Is like you can just change what the signature looks like. So, you get to
You could have like a shiny one, but it dulls. Like it goes from like it's red if it's the current season, but if it's not the current season, it's still like a white or like but the updated season has like a specific color signature.
like the
I don't know
yeah.
jack all about this stuff. I'm talking completely out of thin air here, but
Make blue be the cool color because blue's the best color.
yeah.
Zero bias there.
This guy's the Kentucky guy.
See,
man,
now are the real
Good color,
arguments.
man.
Now the real arguments begin. I think it's actually purple.
It's
that's the best
objectively the wrong color.
That's
is
just
all
so.
I'm saying.
I cannot believe
Art
you'd
is
be so
subjective.
wrong.
Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Cannot believe that you would say such. I do want to touch on Sam's point real quick about the competitive system. Like, how do you guys feel about the general incentives? Because what this is targeting is like generally incentivizing people to play comp at the end season. How do you feel about like just the general incentives of playing ladder Overwatch? Like, does it still feel this is something they've been wrestling with for quite a while? I feel like since Overwatch 2's launch, one of the things they've said is, hey, we don't necessarily have enough reasons for people to play. Have we gotten to that point? Are there enough things now? Sam, you're kind of eager to talk about this topic, I think.
Look, I'm gonna get called a doomer for this. I apologize, but I'm just gonna say it. I think the Jade weapons were a big miss. I think
I agree.
I just think. Look, I get some people like the color. I get we want to be different, but like I think somebody showed. I think it was Craggy that tweeted out like the Jade in like the finals was like more marbled. Like this one, it just kind of looks tacky. And I have not. I bought like I went out of my way to like try to get every gold skin back in the day. And I get it. Look, if it's up to somebody, it might just be a taste thing for me personally. That's totally cool. I just don't think it fits the character models of a lot of my favorite skins on like a lot of characters. Like green is a really hard color to like fit in to a lot of these skins, and like you could do obsidian, you could do diamond, and I like the reason why I say I'm kind of excited for diamond is like I thought that Torb skin looked sick, and it was all diamond, right? So I hope in the future when they decide to do like I think if they had, I just don't think Jade panned out to be what I had hoped for, and I think a lot of other people hope for too. So that's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong on that. Some people might love the Jade, be like, yo, that's sick, awesome. I just don't think it really fit into a lot of skins, and it kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. Like it didn't really fit. I just don't think it looked that great. I thought the gold weapons looked a lot better. I think even diamond, obsidian could be sick. Sapphire could be awesome, right? They've got a lot of options, and I think when we move off Jade from a personal note, that'll have me a lot more excited. But I just don't feel like there were any, just for my personal taste, I suppose. If you liked it, I know a lot of people who like green, all you, just wasn't for me personally.
That sounded like a political thing where you're like, I know a lot of people who like green. I don't have a problem with people who like green.
Sam is being so sweet, man. Like,
It's like, well, who am I to tell you that you can't like your favorite color unless it's not
I don't
blue?
give a rip, dude. Tell him. Speak your truth, man. Speak your facts.
I do think anecdotally people have said that the Jade like is not working, and even I've found like it's just not hitting right with a lot of the like. It kind of sticks out a little bit too much. And yeah, there is like a colorblind thing. So, some people might not even be able to tell the differences between some of these. But beyond Jade as well, beyond having or not having a problem with Jade, AVRL, how do you feel about just the competitive systems in general?
I mean, I'll comment about the Jade thing first though. Like, isn't the whole idea that they're going to like cycle through colors?
Yes.
So Jade just happened to be the color that we're on now, and then we're going to move to. I will say that like they could have, if we're going to talk about like actual Jade, I think the real Jade color is a lot more like matte looking. It's more stony looking. Maybe this is getting too in the weeds because like actually Jade looks like this, but it does look more like stony, like. But I get like Jade. I get like they're meant to like make the weapons shiny. I think they should. I don't know. This sounds. Maybe they should have just called it Emerald instead of Jade, because I feel like if you're gonna call it Jade, then I look at them like, bro, that doesn't look Jade enough. That looks too shiny for me. That doesn't look stony enough. But no, I don't. It's like colors. Like,
you're just such a contrarian. You're such a contrarian, AVRL. You just like being
I knew
contrarian.
it.
No, I'm just saying people like different colors. So like, yeah, we're gonna cycle through a bunch of colors, and people aren't gonna like, oh, we're gonna hit the blue, we're gonna hit the sapphire skin, and then everyone's like, oh, I really don't like blue. Some people's like, oh, I love blue. It's my favorite color. We're just gonna get that. Every new color that comes out, you're gonna get the same deal. It's like this is everyone like a lot of people like this, a lot of people don't like it, and that's gonna be every single new weapon skin. So it is. What
Am
it
I
is.
am I hallucinating, or were they not originally called Emerald weapons and then they changed the name to Jade? Is this a Mandela
true?
effect? Did I hallucinate this, or is this like? I feel like
To
this,
me,
they
to me, it
were.
was
They
always
were.
Jade.
Okay, Gavin confirms
Were they?
they were. They were.
Why'd
there you
why'd
go.
you guys change it to Jade then, Gavin? I think
Was it
Emerald would have made more sense.
Why are you asking the guy who's colorblind why they changed the color? He literally just said he couldn't see the color. Come on,
Why Jade? Why call it Jade? I don't know.
man.
Was it a cultural thing? Like,
I'll tell you what happened. They asked Gavin for final approval, and Gavin, like, they showed him 2 pictures, and they were like, Gavin is either Jade or it's Emerald, and Gavin was like, send it, I love it, go.
Are we? Is it hashtag blame Gavin now? Is that the thing? Poor guy.
this is what happens when you speak up as a developer. We need to just dogpile you in every
Exactly.
single
Blame
thing, whether it's your
everything.
responsibility or not. Gavin, what the frick was with the Diva Matrix? You went from 3 to 3.5 seconds.
What's up with
You should
that?
be ashamed of yourself, Gavin. Come on.
So yeah, carry on, Avril. You said you had some other things you were gonna
Yeah.
potentially talk about, right?
What were the other competitive
Just-
things we were talking about?
Just
Yeah.
anything. How do you feel about
Yeah,
the
anything.
general incentives for playing comp?
I mean, as long as there's more incentives, I think that's why I think drives are a good thing. Like, there's much more incentive play, especially in the season. But like, I don't know, like, what other incentives from other games maybe that we could port over? Do we need more cosmetic? Actually, one thing that we don't have anymore. I don't know what happened to this, but like, you guys remember how we used to get animated sprays? What happened to animated sprays?
Those were good, man.
Those
good.
were the
Yeah,
end
like
of
those
season
were-
rewards, right? Right?
Yeah.
Competitive end of
Yeah.
season rewards. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Those we're gonna bring those back. They don't even have to be competitive end of season rewards. Like, let's say you're not digging the Jade weapons. Give an alternative to spend your comp points on. Like, I don't know, maybe throw some like, animated
Charge for the
sprays in
player
there or
icon.
something else.
A comp shop.
Yeah. Make a competitive shop where you can buy different things with your comp points. If you're not feeling the specific color of the skin for the weapon that season or that competitive year, whatever, then have something alternative that you can buy.
I have
That's
a
my
take.
thoughts on that.
What if they had like end of season competitive rewards for any rank, but they were like more, I don't know how silly you want to get, but more memey player icons? Like, can you imagine? Like, Avril's inspired me with this. Actually, can you imagine a nerd emoji Winston as a player icon?
Or Hoover Winston. Hoover Watch.
Or Hoover Winston.
Yeah.
Huge opportunity here for a great collab with one of our great foundations of corporate America. And like really though, like there's so many like fun player icons that I think they could do. But like stuff like that. Like I think you have to be really careful about like
Animated icons. Animated banners and
oh,
icons.
Dude,
How
can you
huge would
imagine
that
the
be?
bank they would
Didn't they
make?
do that already? Or am I crazy? Wasn't there like 1 or 2 that
I
might
don't
have
think
been?
so. Maybe.
And sell all of these in the comp store, and then people will play rank to grind for these.
Right.
You know? And like, because here's the other thing is like, here's a reason to play ranked more. It's like, well, if you want to clean out the rank store, the comp store, you got to play more rank to get more points, so you can actually buy everything. If you want to be a completionist,
Yeah.
We're
there's some
so
incentives
we're
to
so
play for.
capitalist, Bill, that the only way we can think to make people play more is like buy more things. Like
What?
if they aren't buying more
Here's the
shit,
thing.
there's no reason for them to play shit.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. You will inevitably get the quick play, like hardcores. Like, well, I don't want to have to play rank to get this animated thing. It's like, oh, dude.
Yeah, well.
You
Well,
wanna
I don't know what
choose
to
it?
tell you, buddy. I don't know what to tell you.
Spilo,
Oh,
how about
man.
you? Where's your kind of where do you land
No,
on
that-
this state?
Nothing that I haven't already interrupted on already, so yeah.
Because
More
it's just
better.
like more better. Because it feels
Yeah,
like a
cosmetic
holistic
stuff is
thing.
fun.
For,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think cosmetics are fun and titles are fun and player icons. And I think the one thing they've done really well with Overwatch 2 is like they've opened up the floodgates of like what they can monetize. I mean, you have player icons, you have signatures now, you have your player backgrounds, you have skins, you have, I mean, weapons now, like as well. Like weapons have always been a thing, but they have actually started to expand, and not just from a cynical, like not just monetization. That's maybe a little bit cynical, but like there are just more cool things now, right? It used to be, what was it? Player icon, skin, and gold weapon, but now we have Jade weapons. Now we have more player icons. Now we have signatures, and now we also have the player backgrounds, which you can customize. Which some of them are really, really cool. I've been rocking the new Ana one, which I think is super sick. But yeah, that kind of stuff is just fun. It's like people love customization. I know I'm not a super cosmetic-y guy, but man, I can't help like go through those player cards and like, ooh, that one's cool. That one's cool. Like customization's fun. Customization is fun. People love customization. It's why people like stuff like like a lot of the stuff in like MMOs, like the fact that you can make your character look like this or look like that or do this and do that. Like I think it's good. I think it's good. It's not something that you get a lot of flexibility with in like the more competitive first-person shooter environment either. So it's always fun to have like a little bit of your cake and eat it too. You get your competitive gaming and you get your cosmetic customization stuff too. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, I think those are like, I think all of these are really good for the vast majority of the player base, which is where which is what really is important, right? Like getting people in diamond and plat and gold to kind of feel like they're getting rewards is, I think, cool. But I will take it to the absolute upper end as well, and not to bring up a boomer complaint, because I feel like this is something I've heard complaints about for years in the Overwatch scene of like high end Overwatch. Sam, I think you kind of alluded to earlier, where it's like, oh, I wish people were incentivized to be in voice chat. And I bring this up just because, not to almost be too much of a parody of myself, but Dota. I was watching the TI. Like I've been watching the TI, and it kind of just struck me. It was like reminded me of Overwatch, because during one of the casts they were talking about one of the players, and he's playing support, and they were like, this guy actually, he was like rank 1, 2, and 3, but on carry, which is like crazy. Like that's how good, how good and flexible he is that he's still playing support. And I was like, man, it's funny that like in this esports game where like they actually have merit and worth in their ladder system. Like if you're like in the top X in the Dota ladder, like that's actually meaningful. Whereas like I can't remember the days in Overwatch that have long gone since it was actually meaningful. Like, can you imagine the meme it would be if like AVRL, you're on a cast and you're like, yeah, this guy's rank 1, 2, 3, and 10 on the EU Overwatch ladder. Like it would just be kind of like a laughing stock, or like it wouldn't be like a worthwhile metric to gauge someone's ability on. And I think the last
rank 1 right now on EU.
No, I actually don't.
Dirkmeister on one tricking Junkrat. Carry on.
Let's go.
Ew, Junkrat. We gotta talk about Junkrat later.
I feel like just to round out my point, then I want to get your guys' thought. I feel like the last time this happened is like the last time I can significantly think of this was like Jonak being picked up as like just a rank 1 Korea player, and then like being like a relative unknown in OWL, and then ending up the MVP that season. Is that like a realistic expectation for Overwatch, that like their ladder system could be meaningful, or is it always going to be that like it just doesn't matter whatever your like the ladder rank is?
I think the maturation of the competitive scene means that it's a lot harder. Like the reason why that happened more often back in the days, because like the scouting and general knowledge of like who was good and who wasn't good and who's getting better was like a lot more like unprofessional, for lack of a better term. But like as the competitive scene becomes better, you are going to get scouted, or you're going to know like I need to start joining T3, T2 teams like way sooner. So it's like, is there like a system where you could get to like rank 1 without even people knowing a lot about you? Like possibly, but it's just less likely to happen because I think the scene's just much more developed. I don't think it's necessarily a commentary on the ranked system, to be honest with you.
Well, it's less about being using it. Like, I mean, I get what you're mentioning about like using it as a vehicle to get noticed for pro play, but what I'm asking more about is like, it has no correlation with pro play. Like the rank 1 is not in any way a demonstration of like this is one of the best players in the world.
You can't, I don't know how you would integrate it so that the ranked actually is a correlation. I don't even know that it's necessarily that correlated in other games. Like, I don't think the rank 1 Radiant player in whatever server playing Valorant is considered like one of the, best pros in the world, or the best players in the world compared to whatever pro. You could win Valorant champs and be on EDG, but not necessarily be a rank 1 player. I don't think that in any game it's ever going to be that level 1-to-1. Like, you can look back in League of Legends, like, whoever's the best League of Legends player in the world might not necessarily be rank 1. So I
think one thing to point out One thing to point out is that we're all have been or are involved in professional Overwatch. The problem I think is just that like pro players just don't have time to grind the ranked as much. It's not that they couldn't; it's just that they just don't. Like we were talking about this yesterday, Sam. Like where like your priority is scrims, so like you're scrimming 4 hours a day. You're not only going to have less time to grind up the ranks, but you're not going to be playing as well. I actually had this whole segment on stream a few weeks ago where like a player. A student of mine was like, dude, why is Sugar Free playing Tracer differently than you coached me? And he sends me like this clip, and I'm like, he's feeding. He's just feeding. Like Sugar Free is feeding and ranked. He's trolling. He's just grinded his cheeks off for 4 hours in scrims. He's not try-harding and ranked. He's not playing at his best. And maybe this is a bit of a hot take as well, but I also still think if you're reaching rank 1 in the competitive ladder, Gurkmeister is not playing in the top level OWCS. But if you put Gurkmeister in like a high level scrim, he's gonna slap. He's gonna slap. You guys have heard Sam, Kaya, like an like that. Like I know it's kind of a meme, Yazan, kind of a meme, both as a person as a player. But like they're gonna do well. Like they're gonna require a team to play around them. Maybe people are gonna counterpick and strategize on them. But like if you're a rank 1 player, you are a really really good player. You just might not be the best because because the best players aren't grinding all day long. And I think if anything, that's the one weird thing about competitive is especially at really only at the highest ranks, there are ways that you can kind of gimmick the system. Like I'm gonna duo queue at 3 a.m. And stack this, and like you do kind of have to game the system a little bit to get to rank 1, and I think that's the one downside maybe.
To add on to that too, like I'll just be blunt about like kind of my experience going from scrims to try-harding and ranked and like really trying to win was one of the absolute worst things for my mental when I was still playing, because like the nature of ladder is like you're not like the nature of scrims and the nature of ladder are so different in that like when you're in a scrim environment, you're with, at least like in my time, you're with like I was with 5 other guys who like I knew were as committed to winning as like I was. And we were there to make each other better. And that expectation goes so far because that's how you create an environment where like you can be critical of each other, but also understand that you're trying to make each other better. Like on ladder, you're never going to get that. For example, last night I died laughing. SVB, this is going to crack you up. And I'm not, you brought up Dota. So I'm going to, you know exactly how I'm going to end this conversation. Okay. I'm going to wait. I'm going to let you think about it. Okay. Cause you better watch that damn show. All right. But there was a game yesterday where we came out on Ilios Well on Monkey Reaper Cass, like Ana Juno or something, right? And they came out on Lucio Juno Ram, and they ran across well right away with double speed and ran my Cass over. He died 3 times in a minute and a half, okay? He immediately gets on the mic and goes, "We can't play Reaper and Winston into that comp." And like I was just on an alt, like this is like low GM. And I go, "Hey man, like actually like, you probably can't play Cass in that comp because they'll just run you over. You don't have sustain. Like can you play something else like or do whatever?" Immediately goes, "Okay, I'm AFK throwing the game." Like picks Sombra and just runs in a circle like the rest of the game. And I died laughing. Like I don't know, but like, you're gonna run into that, right? So like if you're Sugar Free or you're a player, you're trying to grind to rank 1 ladder where you might develop bad habits because the people in ranked is just more troll. Like you're not gonna be playing against people who play the same way in scrims. Like I play way better in scrims than when I play in rank because like I have an understanding of like where my team needs to be. Like I had a game where I went like 22 and 14 on Pharah on King's Row, and my backline's blaming me. I'm like, no guys, like I need like we have a Doomfist. Like we need to hit the rotate. Like we're not playing counter dive. But my poor Masters 4 support player in that lobby just like is not going to understand that. But like, so I'm going to continue to hold like where I know I need to hold. Like you guys need to walk forward. And so they're just like ranked is just not designed to be that kind of environment. That doesn't mean that can't happen. Sorry for the random rant, but there definitely is a big difference between like the actual scrim environment and ranked environment. Like you can prove yourself in ranked to show that you're capable of doing it in scrims, but you're going to have to learn. And like the way that you play is just totally different. So I would say ranked is great for streaming for pro players, but like taking the ladder uber seriously, I haven't seen that really happen too often.
Yeah, that's very interesting insight all of you guys have given. Like, so would you guys say that there's not really any need for trying to make it or like more serious, or is it like we could, but there's no, it's not
If
a
you did
pressing
weekend
concern.
5-stack tournaments, you could, but you can't
Yeah,
do it
yeah.
in like the current ladder. Like you would need like a separate tournament ladder on weekends where there could be their own rewards that would incentivize pro players to play. Other than that, I don't think you're going to get that. And you don't
I
need
think the
to.
goal
Not
needs
if
to
you
be
should.
like motivate people to like. I hate to beat this dead horse, and I know that that's probably something they're looking into, and but like having something like the clans or guilds or the group finders, like that's where Overwatch is really really good for a lot, right? Like now I know not a lot of people use that, and they've had given good reasons why they haven't, but having the solution to people using voice chat, the solution to people tryharding, is having social consequences with the group of people that you actually care. It's not giving people higher endorsement level if they're in voice and just like perma-muting everybody else. It's making it like, oh, I have fun playing with my friends, or I met this guy through this and I'm gonna play with them or whatever. Like you can't like it starts from the ground up. You know, it's great to have like really cool systems that like motivate people to reach the number one, but that's just like not feasible for 99.9% of the player base. So it's like finding something that like in not forces a social dynamic, but makes the social dynamic very attractive, makes it fun, makes it interesting. People will always be toxic. Overwatch is not different or unique from any other game. In fact, from what I think I know, I think it's probably better than a lot of other games in terms of the toxicity. But we could still learn a lot of like what systems can we make to where voice chat is a more productive, more useful, more interesting thing, you know, and people are more, and like I don't know exactly how that's done. Like I'm just kind of pointing out a problem without really.
I can tell you one.
Solutions.
If the game depended, this is not a suggestion. This is just me kind of just spitballing. But like, if the game depended on you being in voice comms to win, to rapidly, like to significantly improve your win rate, people would do it, because this is why you basically have to do it in a game like Valorant. If you played Valorant without voice comms, you just lose, because it's such a
But how do you do that?
information.
How do you do that? Because
Again,
I coach
this
the
is-
game. I coach the game, and the
Well,
vast majority of communication is just
if
using
I
your
had an
stupid
answer,
eyeballs.
if I had an answer, I would have already sent it to Gavin or whoever, and they would have
Right,
implemented it
right,
now,
right,
possibly.
right.
But like, no, that's the problem, isn't it? Like, there's
Right.
no real answer, because the what it comes down to is Overwatch is pretty winnable even if you're not in comms. You can just kind of like no comm and play through it and still win, and it's like fine. It's like it's
Yeah.
somehow just it's just winnable without it. Now, in an ideal world, you would calm and your win rate would be high. I think actually, you know, if your team actually calms, the comms are good, your win rate should be higher. But there's just the
It's
It's
culture
hard
just
mechanically. It's hard mechanically. That's the thing is like like I don't know if Sam, if you've noticed this, but like especially if I'm like a little out of practice, I'll like hard shot call. Like when we were doing the 66 pugs, like I was like hard shot calling fight planning as on Ana, and I wasn't playing mechanically very well because I'm so focused on my communication. And I feel like with Overwatch, the mechanical ceiling, especially compared to something like Valorant, it's like it's so challenging to perform perfectly, like to perform at a high level, and like it takes up so much brain power. And like I think like what you're saying, Avril, like just simply knowing where is my team, what do I need to be doing, that's like half the battle right there. I don't know if there is a solution, man.
I think it also is,
I
is
mean,
relevant. Go ahead, Carol. You go.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a solution either. I just think like it's part of the culture, and if the culture was that everyone calmed and that was the requirement, like that was the social contract you entered by playing competitive or like ranked queue to win, then everyone would probably do it. But as soon as some people don't do it because, you know, and not even for like any nefarious reason, the reason could literally be, oh, they have a really shitty mic, or the reason could be, I'm just like I'm a DPS player and it's just too hard to calm and frag at the same time because I'm concentrated so hard on doing what I'm doing on Tracer or Genji or whatever. It's just too hard to calm and do that. So yeah, as soon as like some people stop calming, then the less people you have calming, you know, the less of the culture calming becomes a thing, and then those people get jaded as well because they're calming and it feels like people are not listening, and then you know, then it's like, why do I even bother calming? And then suddenly no one calms. You just don't have a requirement in a game like Overwatch to calm simply because the game doesn't demand it. Because when you compare it to games like Valorant, which do, and the reason why the culture exists in Valorant. To be fair, Valorant also players probably also wouldn't calm if they didn't have to. But if you want to rank up, you actually do have to calm, and that's why they all calm. I don't think they all want to calm. They don't love calming. The amount of like toxicity reports you hear about the game and how toxic that game is in general. I'm sure people would love to not comment that game, but if you don't comment, you literally lose.
I think it's like a confluence of many factors that kind of make Overwatch what it is, which is like, as you guys have pointed out, it is a game that is very much something you can handle by yourself. Like, and this is part of the push and pull of Overwatch 2, right? It's like the drive towards making it a game where you can do more yourself is that, and you guys know this because if any of you who've coached anyone will be like, just focus on yourself, just do your own thing, forget about what your teammates are doing, just do you. Like, that's kind of like the attitude you have to take towards climbing in Overwatch. So like on that front, it's like not very conducive, or it doesn't demand, as AVRL said, requiring comms. And on the other end, it's like there's not that many occasions to like game plan in Overwatch. It's like such a frantic game that there's like, you very rarely have these chances to be like, okay guys, let's just take a second, chill out. What are we gonna do? Like, what are we actually doing in this game? Because you're just like in a fight. Whereas like again in Valorant, you probably have more time to like, okay, we're gonna go here, we're gonna smoke this, blah 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 blah. Other games, you know, Dota, whatever, you have lots of time sometimes when like people are dead or whatever to just be like, okay. And also within.
Even...
Go ahead.
Just a comment about Valorant. So I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to jump in there real quick about Valorant. They're not even planning in Valorant. Like if you play ranked in Valorant, the comms you get, it's just comms about what the other team is doing and what's been used where and where like presence is being shown, just to like give info to you or to your teammates so that they can make informed decisions. No one's like shocking. It's like, oh, let's do this and let's plan to do that. It's just like you just need to know. People need to know because you're watching an angle at all this time.
Right.
You can't like divert your attention elsewhere. You rely on your teammates to tell you, oh, I saw this guy here. I saw these two players making a move here. That means they're doing this. And then that then gives you important information. If you didn't have that information, you'd be playing literally in the blind because info is such an important factor in that game. That's all it is. No one's even like planning. I think it's quite rare, like for any game where people are sitting there like just randoms queuing together like a solo queue and hardcore planning anything. So I don't think that happens.
Right. Well, that goes back to the first point of like the information is necessary in Valorant, but not necessary in Overwatch. Sam, I'll get to you in a sec as well, real quick. But also like within the game systems as well, it's harder in Overwatch compared to other games to like actually communicate certain things. So like the ping system is great, but it doesn't necessarily have the capabilities to ping like Tracer, no like recall or something, right? Like that's not a ping you can just throw out. Whereas in Valorant, again, like maybe you can, the in-game systems allow you as well better to kind of be able to indicate someone was here. Like you can ping on the map, someone was here, like this guy came from this, but like beep 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 from whatever I remember in Valorant, like you can like ping the spot, right, and be like this guy's here on this point, and then obviously your kind of the follow-up is to communicate that in voice chat. Similarly, like in Deadlock and in Dota, you can kind of annotate on the map to be like, oh, this guy's here, they've gone there, or like we need to be here. So like that's I think another factor. But yeah, Sam, go ahead. What was it that you wanted to add to this?
I think one more factor that we haven't talked about as to why we've seen less calming is how easy it is to get comm banned nowadays. Like you have a lot more kids getting comm banned like consistently with the new system with automated reports or whatever it is that's going on. I think it's a lot of little things contributing to it. I think the gameplay in particular where it's not as necessary to be calming is the biggest thing. But I think I told you the story, SUV, I'm not sure, where I had a guy who's generally he's not a toxic dude at all. Like I know toxic gamers, I can be one of them. He's like a really like laid back Rhine player, and he said he texted me and he goes, yeah, like I got on and I played for like the first time like in a long time, and some guy yelled at me because he's a Rhine player, he just wanted to play Rhine, and some guy like yelled at him and was like, yo, like get off Reinhardt, and he replied like fuck yourself, but he typed it like FK yourself, and then he was like, dude, then I just got chat banned for 2 weeks, so now I'm just like not in voice chat. So I wonder how many people just aren't joining voice because of the new ban system. On top of that, I couldn't give you an accurate number. I think it's a lot of little things that are contributing to that.
And vice versa, also like the level of toxicity in that communication. You know, I'm seeing somebody even in my chat, like especially as a girl, like how difficult it is to be even just open up your mic and like
especially in like Diamond. For whatever reason, it's Diamond always where that I've always heard that happen. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I mean it's just there's just like it's there's people just suck sometimes, so it's just like it's tough.
Yeah, I mean there's two like adjacent points there. One is that toxicity exists in online gaming like just as rampantly, right? Like people you're kind of disincentivized to calm because people will flame you, and again, people who are of like minority background are doubly afraid of this because of like their voice may be used to target them, etc., etc. And then there's like what the other part of it is like, which is the game systems don't really require you to calm, as we've kind of alluded to. They don't really mandate you to calm. They're not necessarily calm friendly either. So I guess it's like, again, like as I said, it's like a confluence of things that make Overwatch what it is. And it's not necessarily a good or bad thing, where it's like it has to be one way. But it's a complaint I've seen for a long time. People being like, man, people don't really talk in comps, and like no one is really playing that team coordinated way. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing, which is a bit of a shame. I'll just actually read out what Gavin has said here, which he says, that's something I'd push back on. There's a narrative that comp bans happen to non-toxic people, but that's not something that I've been able to prove is a real problem after investigating it thoroughly. It's not accidents. It's not that accidents don't happen, but we have a significant group of people lying about their bans. Yeah, I think I largely agree with Gavin's statement. I didn't want to interject because I don't think Sam was really maintaining this as a huge factor of why people don't comp, but I do think by and large the claims of, oh, I got banned for saying nothing are like, they're just like these minor things that are overblown like nuts, because they're great for social media traction, is to be like, oh, I got banned and the email said I got banned for saying GG. And it's like, well, that's maybe probably just a fault of like the email system was a bit stupid, but actually you were, before you said GG, you said, these 10 slurs, by the way. So I really don't think that's neither here or there, because this is a complaint that's been happening since Overwatch 1. So whether the new system of banning has been in effect or not, I think this is a thing. Any other things you guys want to mention on the sort of whole comp systems, voice chat, coordination, what the game could or couldn't do before we move on?
I think there's also just a general. Mine was quick. I'll just finish this.
Sure.
There's also just a general idea that I don't think for the majority of players there's too many like aligned, fully agreed upon ways to play the game. Especially because metas shift all the time as well. So especially if you're in a new patch or a new season or whatever, like what is the agreed upon correct way to play the game might shift as well. And there's not like maybe if you're in a professional team or you're playing with the same people all the time, you can agree to something like that. But when you're in solo queue and you're playing with the randoms, there's not an agreed upon way to play the game. So how does that play into comms? Well, you could be trying to comm and someone listening would be like, no, fuck that. That sounds stupid. I'm not going to do that. Because they just have a different idea of how they should play the game. I mean, hell, even on teams, a source of a huge amounts of team drama and teammates disagreeing comes down to like they just have disagreements on how to play the game. You hear about it all the time. But the people that know about this kind of stuff in terms of like where infighting in teams comes from, a lot of it just comes from like players disagreeing and people just disagree on how they play the game. So if people on professional teams that are paid to play together can't agree, sometimes you're not going to get people in solo queue in a ranked environment to necessarily agree to how to play the game. So yeah, people can calm and people can like try and like, let's do this. And people can just disagree because they just don't think that's how you play the game. And Overwatch is the type of game where like ideally everyone is on the same page and doing the same thing. So yeah.
Two things. One is just part of the problem with the CS is just because so much of it is automated. I've known several people that have been suspended or banned wrongly and had it overturned as a result. My wife, 4 years ago, was suspended for being mass reported in gold for one-tricking Widowmaker. Even though she literally never used voice, never used team chat, and she just was mass reported because people hate two heroes, Wrecking Ball and Widowmaker, and Bronze, Silver, and Gold. They don't want to see it played, and so you can and will be banned falsely for that kind of stuff because so much of it is automated. And then the last thing, I guess, more like what do we do with the future? I think there would need to be a consolidated effort on the end of Overwatch to find out when people communicate in Overwatch, why, like what are the circumstances around that provide, like I don't know how you track that, but like obviously there needs to be find out like what motivated people to do that. Was it the social dynamic? Was it the pressure of trying to win? And more importantly, I would be more, I'm not very familiar with other games, but what other games out there have much stronger social dynamics and communicational dynamics, and what about and why? Like, why is that? Because I am a strong believer that the community is a reflection of the game's structure, the game system. Obviously, both feed into both, and things tend to snowball. But I don't think blaming the community is the way to go. I think we need to find out like what those other games do, and then how can we replicate that.
Yeah. I agree as well. And I think, again, some like AVRL pointed out a good example of like what Valorant the game, again, that's where the game mandates. So there's like some system things, some the gameplay itself, and then some is like, yeah, community sentiment, I guess, which is also hard to stop the snowball. If the community starts to snowball in a direction of like, oh, like calming is stupid, calming is like bad. And I haven't like try hard calmed in a long time for the reasons of just like many of the things that you guys pointed out. Being like, obviously the exception for me is like as a streamer you sometimes get harassed, and then also it's just like trying to explain to people like some like the strategies of just like the game are just like insufferable in the minute that you can't tell people how to play this comp when they're doing it wrong. So it's something I'm sure it's something the devs are thinking about. Basically, I hope it's something they're thinking about. And I don't know what the solution. I don't know if there is like a solution. It's probably one of those things that could maybe get better, could maybe get worse. But it would be nice for Overwatch to be in an environment where team play was more common. Let's just put it that way. It just feels like a lot of the time the attitude is you gotta go into a match to wrestle with your teammates. Like you gotta kind of win despite them. It would be nice to kind of have a change in emphasis there. Okay. On that note, let's move on then to group/wave respawns. So this is somewhat turning into the great Gavin debate actually, because we have another thread now from Gavin Winter. I will read his thread just because I can show the first tweet on screen, but then the almighty Elon has made Twitter in such a way that I can't show you the entire thread without just on this app. So I will just read what he said about wave respawn, and I'm curious to hear you guys' opinion. So Gavin says, I'm happy to report that wave respawn has reduced the number of one-sided matches even more than group respawn did. Short thread for full explanation. The number of one-sided matches in quick play has seen another 7 to 8% reduction in total rate since the data we showed in our last director's take. Just as before in quick play, this is affected by rank. For competitive play, the news is even better because a rank reset would normally cause one-sided matches to increase for a couple of weeks, but wave respawn's effect was so significant that we had 4 to 5% fewer one-sided matches in competitive at the beginning of Season 10 than we had at the end of Season 11, meaning the wave respawn makes a bigger difference than a rank reset. I'm excited to see how big of a total difference we've made in competitive play once the uncertainty we see with a rank reset has cleared. We're so thankful to all for your thoughtful feedback, if you say so, Gavin. We got that helped us improve the systems over time. I don't know if Gavin has an update on this actually right now, if he's still listening, and if that number has changed now that rank reset has settled. But TLDR, even though rank reset normally causes wide matchmaking, or not wide matchmaking, but like more one-sided games, it's actually been better post wave respawn. So that brings us to wave respawn. I think Sam, you said you really wanted to talk about it, so I'll let you go first. How do you feel about wave respawns?
They're not aging as well as I'd like in competitive, because there's a couple things that I've noticed, right? I think in quick play, they're fine. I think in quick play, you should try to make the most consistent matches as possible. I think when you're looking at the issue of one-sided matches, right? You have to ask like how you're solving them. And like, for example, this is where there was one
actually,
game
can I
where,
really quickly interject you, Sam? Because I think what Gavin has just said is actually going to be helpful to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So he says, we've seen wave respawns help the lower ranks the most. It's weaker than group respawn for Masters Plus, which is, where you play, basically, it's actually not as good. So this might be what you're feeling. So carry on.
Yeah. So it definitely, I can absolutely see how it helps like the lower ranked players the most, because they're the most all over the place, right? And they're the people who like really do like kind of need the hands to be held. There's been a couple times throughout games, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that if you catch someone's wave, it resets everyone's spawn timer back by 2 seconds, correct? If somebody gets in that wave, I think it does something like that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not sure. I'll check.
If one person respawns solo, it's like 12 seconds, and if another person respawns in the same wave, then that new person catches the same wave as the first person, whose respawn is now 10 seconds. Gavin can correct me if I'm wrong.
Gavin says, no, that's not how it works. If you catch someone's wave, you have whatever their respawn time is.
Okay, yeah. I think that might be the part that's a little too good.
But a solo respawner does take longer than it used to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's been a couple times where, like, for example, there was one fight on Busan, okay, Mecha Base. It's 1-1. We're killing them at 80%, right? And we go out of our way to stagger them. Because the ball ended up getting the first touch, but because even though like we staggered a lot of spawns like by 3 or 4 seconds, that created a fight, and you guys know this too, where it's like taking a lot of separate like 5v3s to a 5v2 or like so on and so forth. Like you create a massive advantage that way, because your percentage chance to win a 5v3 followed by a 5v2 is significantly higher than taking a straight up 5v5 fight. And if you actually chase staggers properly and punish people, then that you create a big advantage, especially towards like the end of a game, right? And I had a couple times where, like, coming around that 70 to 75% mark, where people just got a free, like, touch, a free group up touch that they wouldn't have gotten previously because of that. There's also a couple times where, for example, when playing against Widow, and, like, I always go Sombra, okay? It's almost better for me to not have their team die because I can't actually go spawn camp or, like, for example, like, the main thing that I need to do against a Widow, especially, like, high level play, and this is super niche. So, like, I know this is something that, like, most players probably are not gonna have to deal with, and this is definitely, like, a very, very, very minor thing for, like, the top level players. Where, like, the best play for me, especially on a map like Midtown first offense, is to actually, if I get a kill on the Widow, is to go spawn camper so she doesn't get her hold, because that helps my team in the choke, and I'm waiting for my team to set up in the choke anyway. But if somebody else dies, no matter when I killed that Widow, they're always going to be together out of spawn, meaning I don't have the option to go spawn camp and try to get that early kill. Like, I found it limiting a lot of my options, and it's doing so by removing the punishability of players who have made a mistake. I'm not sold on it. I'm not saying you're saying it's a bad idea that it shouldn't be done yet. I'm not 100%, just to be totally clear. But as time's gone on, I'm starting to notice, like, more examples where, like, a team has been bailed out by a group respawn where, like, they haven't actually made a correct decision. In competitive specifically, I think it should be a more nerfed version. I think that Overwatch 2 has done a lot of hand-holding for a lot of players in terms of features it's added, whether it be, like, hero design, whatever it may be. I would like to see that just walked down a little bit in the competitive space. I think it's great for quick play. I think it absolutely should be there in quick play because, again, like, it's not fun to load into. We'll get to Clash, AVRL, I promise. I'll let you go on Clash. I read your tweet about it. I woke up in bed one morning and I see AVRL's long tweet and I was cackling. It was like the first thing I read when I woke up.
He gets direct notifications for when I do tweets. Only the long ones. So if it's a meme tweet under 120 characters, no notification. Anything longer than that, it's like, AVRL tweeted.
It's like the Amber Alert. He's got, like, rigged up on his phone.
Wait,
so, like, AVRL tweet.
It's literally the meme of, like, wake up, babe, new AVRL tweet just dropped. That's literally what Sam is doing.
Legit.
So
yeah.
Actually, just real quick as well. Again, the Gavin says, to be completely honest, we knew it would cause less spawn camping, and we are very okay with that.
My opinion is that, like, I think the concept is really good. I just think they're going to need a couple of tweaks with, like, the extremes, like how quickly you can respawn. And like for example, like 6 seconds, I feel like is a little too much.
I think it's a lot. I think try and tune that down a little bit, and I
like
think I'd
7
be
or 8 a lot more sense, and I think the concept, I understand what people say about, like, it reduces the skill ceiling. If you make a mistake, you kind of get punished, but, like, it's fun. I like it. I think it's good for the vast majority of the player base. I think there's a happy medium to be found there, and I think, like, that's where, like, I'm sure
I do too.
I just find the happy medium to where you can spawn camp if you set it up properly, but it's not quite as easy. Because I do think the other thing as well that's pretty important is it is having some potentially unintended, maybe not unintended is not the right word, but, like, it is having some significant ramifications in certain game modes as well. Like Sam was saying in King of the Hill, right? Big deal. Those extra 2 or 3 seconds are a big deal in King of the Hill. Not so much in Escort and Hybrid, maybe. People are getting extra fights. People are able to reposition appropriately. Just little things like that. And so I think, like, you just have to keep a careful eye on it and how because it does change the game pretty fundamentally. So I'm a fan of the system. I think it's just something that they will need to tweak.
So two thoughts I'll throw out before I take it to AVRL. One, is spawn camping a thing that could just go? Like, if it's the case that certain heroes need to spawn camp to be viable, maybe we just adjust those heroes.
Problem.
Yeah, essentially Sombra is, like, probably the biggest beneficiary of spawn camping. Is like, well, maybe it's just a fundamental, like, yes, it's been a part of Overwatch for a long time, but maybe it's a part of Overwatch that the devs are like, we don't really like this, and kind of that's what Gavin is alluding to. Not directly, he hasn't said that, so I won't put words in his mouth. But maybe it's like actually just no one really likes this. Yeah, maybe it's a way for Sombra to get value, but this is not a fun mechanic. And so maybe that can go, A. B, is this a case where you can actually have different balances for different ranks? And usually I'm against that.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, actually.
Is this a place where actually you can have a different system for, like, Masters Plus, if that's where it's actually starting to cause problems?
I'm down.
You kind of
really
and
interesting subject.
I don't any discussion about balancing for different ranks and different ranks having their own balancing. I'm just like,
Is
Nope,
it balanced
I'm not
though?
about it.
Is it balanced
Not
though? Can
about
we
it.
clarify that? Is
It's
that
a game
technically
system.
a
It's a game
balanced thing, or is
system,
it
I
like a
think.
system?
It's a
Okay.
game system.
Even a
Does
game
that change your
system,
mind
it's
at all,
like
AVRL?
even a game system, it's like if we're starting to get to the stage where like what you go from diamond to master, like oh the game's just like now this has changed, like huh, like it just seems.
Yeah.
Obviously I understand the argument of why this is being discussed about,
Yeah.
but as a player it seems arbitrary. It's just like okay, so the game's now different when I
We
go
have
from diamond to
survivorship
master. Like,
bias
what?
though. Is the problem is that we may not love Overwatch perfectly exactly where it is, but we're not thinking about it from the perspective of players that don't play the game anymore because of spawn camping or because of staggering.
Also,
You know what I'm
I just
saying?
don't care about spawn camping. I was like, oh, we're gonna have less spawn
Like-
camping. Okay, womp
Well,
womp.
no, I
Like,
agree.
I
Like,
do.
I'm not-
I do. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's
Right,
so
but
much fun.
but you're a psychopath, so like we don't really care what you have to say.
I'll do it
Sam.
on
But-
Junkrat too. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Sandra.
but my point is like just because it's what we have now doesn't mean that it's good. You know, like it I don't know. Like I know, and by the way, I'm talking about like balancing for different ranks specifically. Actually, here, like, oh, that's weird. We don't want to do that because that's new. And I mean, yeah, maybe. And
not
I
because
do
it's
think
new.
like
It's not the novelty of it being new. I just fundamentally think it's the wrong way to approach designing or balancing.
I
the game.
understand, but you got to pick your poison. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Like, well, the poison I'm picking is not balancing for different ranks. It's the poison I'm picking.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of sometimes just wish someone else in this call would play Dota, so I wouldn't just be a meme of myself. But Dota does this.
I play Dota. I play.
Yeah,
Dota.
like at the highest end, basically of Dota. For those who are not aware, the systems in where you play the game changes. So normally you have the competitive system is all pick, so you get into the game and you all get turns to pick. At the highest rank, that becomes captain's draft. I think partly this is just because of a lack of players, but partly this is also how the pros play. So the pros have a captain's draft essentially, where it's like you kind of take turns banning and picking, whereas in the normal, for the most majority of players, you just start the game, X number of heroes have been banned, and then you just pick in turns. So like there is actually precedent for other games having an entirely different system once you reach like the highest rank, for example.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't played Dota in a long time, but my response to that would just be like, you should make all a ranked captain's draft, or you should make all a ranked this then. Or like, they do it better in League of Legends where like the way the pros play it is you have your banning phase, but obviously instead of like one guy controlling all the bans, your team just goes through the different ban phases, and that's how it's reflected in ranked. But anyway, I'm just not for design that goes in that direction where
Would
you're suddenly
you-
doing different stuff at different ranks.
Would you be okay with it, like if it was different from like the same for all ranks and competitive, but the rule set for respawns was different and competitive compared to quick play? Is it so? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, would you be okay with that? Or?
They already did
That's
that.
still-
They already did that. Like it's already been in the game for a long time.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to get the outline here.
I prefer the game to, generally speaking, be aligned 1-to-1 across how the game's like. And here we go. This is where I'm going to get into it. I even dislike the fact that quick play, you don't get to play both sides of a map. Now, I understand why in quick play that's not a thing, because in quick play, I guess it's quick play for a reason. You just want to get in, get out. And maybe the people who play quick play are generally not sweaty. I say this, but yet I find all the sweaty quick players in my game somehow. But they're generally not sweaty enough to care about playing both sides. But I would even prefer it if quick play you played both sides of the map. I think that's
Remember
like
that
the
early
better
in
way to
Overwatch
play
2?
Overwatch.
They had that.
Well,
Was it
that's
Babel?
That was I think
fun.
that was because we had no ranked, and so like they kind of made a
Yeah.
compromise.
There
So
is
that's
different
that.
rules though. There are like like the times are different, and like at different times that they've added like the wave respawn in quick play, but not in comp. So it is a thing that we do in this game. I mean, I get that you're saying that you're just against that. I get that you're saying that like I just don't want that. in the
However, that is between quick play and ranked. There's two different modes, and not
Right.
between
Right, a
you
certain
hit an
threshold.
arbitrary MMR in quick
Yeah.
play, then the game changes or you hit a certain ranked and then the game changes. Like that's still different. Like we're talking about two different modes now, right? Which is why I can swallow that pill and be like, okay, whatever. Quick players are gonna play one side and not both sides of the map. Fine, it's a different
Yeah.
mode. I'll just accept it, right? But wave respawns, I'd be interested to hear like what middle ground you guys think we should hit in wave respawns, because I generally I don't know if we want any more back and forth, or should I go into like a longer thing here? Because I'm also gonna, since we talked
you've got a
about
I
big-
would just say, can I give one closing point and then toss it right back to him?
Sure,
I,
yeah,
I would
no,
say
absolutely.
my last request. I think the group timer to catch the wave should be like half of what it is now, but it can stay in that regard. You can
3
find out,
seconds.
3 to 4, yeah, to start. I would like to see that. Go ahead.
So So if you die within, let's say, 4 seconds of a teammate, then you catch a wave. Otherwise, you start a new wave.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. I do think like that is a. I'm not fully against 4 seconds, but we're getting pretty tight in the windows here because now it's like it's so easy to miss a wave that it kind of defeats the purpose of it being wave respawn. It's just like, are we even wave respawning anymore if the wave is going to be that, short? Especially if we're looking at 3 seconds. Like 4 seconds, I'm like kind of debating. It's like, maybe 3 is like shit, man. 3 seconds is
Three's
very,
bad,
very
three's bad.
short.
Yeah.
Like, dude,
Well,
you gotta die
are you
right
not
next to your
already?
buddy.
Are you not already grouped up by that? Like, if you died within 3 seconds of each other, how far are you gonna be from spawn? Like when you spawn,
That's
how far
true.
away from each
You're
other are you gonna
basically
be?
already grouped. You're basically already grouped. So yeah, again, that kind of defeats the purpose of wave respawns. So again, like as I'm sure, I mean, it's a meme. I do say it as a meme that I created wave respawn. I obviously didn't, but like it's something that I brought up years back and something I've wanted in the game. I think from day one, like even from day one of Overwatch 1, coming straight from TF2, was like, dude, why are there no wave respawns? Like, what's going on here? Like, did Blizzard just not play Team Fortress 2? Like, what, they copied a bunch of the other design things from TF2, but they just forgot this one? They just left this one behind? Like, what, you stole the payload, but not these other things? Come on, fellas. You might as well take everything from TF2 if you're going to do that. So they finally did bring it in. And I've always thought, in Overwatch, just like, dude, people getting staggered. You see this in low-level play all the time. People die and just run into fights and they don't regroup. One of the biggest things that separates, I think, low-level lobbies and low-level players from high-level lobbies and players is that people don't know how to reset. Genuinely, they don't know how to reset. And I don't know how the game is meant to teach you how to reset because it seems like losing games and dying on repeat and staggering somehow doesn't teach them because 8 years after the fact, people still don't know how to fucking reset. It's just true. They don't know how to reset. So I guess the game's gonna have to do it for them. And people can say like, oh, it's dumbing down the game. I think it's more of a quality of life thing. It's like, in a way, it does dumb down the game. But guys, we got 8 years of evidence to prove that unfortunately, the player base just doesn't know how to reset. So it is what it is, fellas. We can either just allow them to be dumb, or we can like give them a helping hand and improve people's gameplay experience. And I'd rather improve the gameplay experience. I don't think it dumbs down the game that much. I think that's an overreaction from some of the critics out there. I don't think it really removes that much of a skill ceiling. It's like it's one of those arbitrary skill ceilings. It's this, dude. Skill ceiling is such an interesting discussion because there's so many ways.
It's a heal passive.
It's like, yeah, it's
just a quality of life thing, really.
Exactly. It's like I see it as way more like this is a spectrum, but like how close is the quality of life versus real skill ceiling? And I think it's way more on the side of quality of life than skill ceiling, like by a significant margin. Let's be clear. So I don't see it as a skill ceiling thing at all. I see it as a quality of life thing. And I think a lot of people like initially misunderstood what the how wave respawns even worked because I guess there was a lot of text in the patch notes. It was like here's a giant bullet point list of all the things that have to do with wave respawns, and then I guess I didn't help any things by writing out an even longer tweet. I turned this 12 bullet point thing into like a gigantic, I don't even know how many words and characters tweet. So we're talking about those big AVRL tweets that my guy Samito gets Amber Alerts on. This is one of them where, like staggering is a thing that you can still do because, and potentially even more punishing now, because if one guy gets left alive and they get staggered, they now respawn even slower than it was previously. So they get a solo 12-second respawn, which is 2 seconds longer than default. So that's actually pretty significant. I think the 6-second window is easy to stagger through as well. Like 6 seconds is, you can definitely finish a team fight within 6 seconds. But I actually think a lot of team fights exceed over 6 seconds. Like you get an initial couple of guys dying and a few people dying, and then you have sort of a cleanup phase. And I think the cleanup phase is something that's pretty common in team fights where like 1 or 2 people kind of just get left alive and then they'll just get cleaned up sometime after the fact. And so, yeah, staggers still happen all the time and people still get punished for that. Samito brought up people being bailed out by wave respawns, and I think that's partially true. I mean, I guess that can happen. But I don't see the huge negative behind that. I don't see like a giant negative behind that. I think the opposite becomes true as well, where people dying solo become way more punished, and it evens out like what the advantages of wave respawn together versus people dying solo and getting longer respawns. I mean, that should to me balances itself out. in terms of advantages and disadvantages. I just think of it from the perspective of like what will generally improve the gameplay experience for the majority of players that won't necessarily be a massive detriment to the hardcore players by any large amount. And I think this is a fine way to do it. I think they did a really good job of way respawns. Honestly, this is one of the better features that Blizzard have put out for Overwatch in a while, in my opinion.
He's only saying because he's Papa Waves respawn. That's why his idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Chill.
I would say this
I wouldn't have
group
put it-
response.
I wouldn't have suggested if I didn't think it was a good idea. So
He's big wave respawn pilled. He's compromised.
He's like
You
the
guys have
Kale
a-
guys. He's
Big
like the
Pharma,
Kale
Big
guys.
He's
Kale.
compromised. He's
Yeah.
compromised.
He's compromised. I knew it.
I do think though this reminds me of like because the similar discussions happening Deadlock actually. Someone asked me, I was playing Deadlock the other day, and in Deadlock you can see everyone's ult, like in the top UI you can see what their like ult status is, whether they have it or not. And someone was like, do you think this is dumbing down the game? And I was like, on the scale of like things that you have to do, like this is so minor. And like I kind of actually wish Overwatch had it, because it's like I guess for everyone it's like a tipping point, right? There's like you have certain skills that you want to track, and this goes back to what AVRL said about skill ceiling and measuring people's skill. There are like certain things that you want people to pay attention to, and where you land on this is, you know, fine and quality of life versus this is like you're just babying the game now.
Mhm.
But I think like there's like a million things in Overwatch that you need to track, and even if like you told people what other people's ult charge was, like it really wouldn't be like all of a sudden gold players are in Overwatch League now, right? Like they're going pro because like now they don't have the burden of ult tracking anymore. They're free. It's just like, is this just makes life a little bit simpler so that the majority of people can do more of the actual gameplay rather than being like, we need a guy on Lucio who's like tracking within 5% what their ult charge is so we can actually like function in the team fight. So like, yeah,
The problem is.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just to finish my point. Like, I think everyone has the different place where they land, but I see this discussion in almost every video game when anytime they add. I remember Valorant had it, and Avril, I'm sure you know, when they like the smoke started having visible like timers of when they're about to run out. And I remember seeing this then when people were like, "This is dumbing down the skill of like tracking that the smoke is about to run." I was like, bro, who gives a shit? Just go play the game and shoot the guy when the smoke runs out. Like how fucking.
I mean,
hard, like-
dropping smokes via an iPad compared to throwing them like Counter-Strike is dumbing down as well. But it's like, dude, who cares? It's just a game. I'm gonna make a before Spilo goes. I'm gonna make a really quick correction. I got one detail wrong. This is my bad. This is just the proof that there's just like a long list of features on the way of respawns that I even get it wrong sometimes. But no, if you solo respawn, it is 10 seconds, but it's 12 seconds if there's more than one person together. So that's how that works. So yeah, I got that one detail
Okay.
wrong. I think Gavin corrected me on that as well. So yeah, if you are alone, it's 10. But if you're wave respawning, the first guy respawns at 12, and everyone catches the 12-second wave.
Okay. Yeah, very complex. And again, strangely, just sorry, Apsalo, we keep
No, no, it's fine.
edging you, but
No, it's fine,
it's
fine.
another situation
It's all-
where it's kind of like odd how like the Overwatch draws the line between what complicated systems it will add and what complicated systems it won't add. Where it's like so often in the past it's been like, I'm not sure we want to do that. That's too complicated. And then we get fucking wave respawns. It's like you need a fucking physics degree to understand when you're gonna respawn. Like it's just a funny thing to point.
One other thing to tap on
To keep edging Spilo. to
Edge
keep-
him more.
Yeah,
Edge him more.
yeah.
Let's keep edging him.
I will say-
Sam, finish your
they-
thought. Finish your thought.
Yeah, so I was gonna say the one thing they also did that I liked a lot was those like speed boost things on Flashpoint. But
Yeah.
I'll give it back to Spilo real quick before
It dumbs
I
down the game, though, right? Like, the thing that people forget, which is really ticks me off about competitive games, is that skill's relative. Like, is chess a simple game? Yes, it is. Is chess extremely high skill ceiling game? Yes, it is. Is chess easier than Overwatch? Like, how do you even have that conversation? Does wave respawn dumb down Overwatch? Or does it take some of the emphasis on the respawn mechanic and put it elsewhere? Like, we as humans only have so much brain power. So, like, does it just shift? Like I think your analogy about Deadlock was great, because Deadlock has a lot of those. Doesn't it even also have health? Or is it just the ult? Like, on the top of
if your
screen?
teammates can see them, it'll show you it'll show you their health.
Yeah. It shows the health. You could even look at their freaking builds for
Yeah.
crying out loud. You could see what heroes they're playing literally before you even leave the spawn room. So Deadlock is a noob friendly game, right, guys? Like it's just a stupid argument to make. Like, it's like the idea that like certain things, because they're given for free, should have to be earned, is like the equivalent of like my 95-year-old grandfather saying, back in my day, we walked uphill both ways. No, grandpa, we just have functional electric cars now, or functional car. Like, it's just a stupid analogy to make. Working like harder on like the dumber, lower quality of life stuff, I think when we introduce wave respawns, what you're saying is we don't want strategy about respawns or spawn camping. We want strategy elsewhere. It doesn't say where's no strategy at all. It just means that we're shifting our strategic focus elsewhere. Now, as Sam has pointed out, in higher level play, the strategy around respawning and staggering is actually pretty cool. Like there's some like interesting strategic depth. Same thing with ult tracking in higher level Overwatch. But that's not as interesting, and it just isn't done in lower rank Overwatch, and so what ends up happening is it's just cancerous staggering. So again, this whole concept, like if we give you free this or free that now the game is just easier for everybody, is just a simply illogical, like the crock of crap. The question is just, is that a satisfying or interesting expression of strategy? And lower and mid ranks, the answer is no, and higher ranks, the answer is yes. So that's kind of like where we have to figure out where we stand.
I also think, and not that there isn't a valid complaint to say they're dumbing the game down, but I also think it's funny because a lot of the times people are making this argument of like, oh, I want to play a really hyper complex game. And it's like, bro, you're like diamond. What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I want to max skill. Like, you're not even maxing the skill out now, bro. You need this more than anyone else. Like, you're not even maxing the skill ceiling now that you're complaining about it.
Sam's the only one that should be complaining about this because he's playing at the rank where it's an actual legitimate strategy. Anybody else, they're just hate watchers. They just love to complain about everything and anything that Overwatch 2 does differently. So,
SVB, please, I need you to like say that to somebody.
Yeah,
like,
true.
So genuinely, please. I'm gonna be looking for that on Twitter. I want an MP4 style format response to some kid who's got like diamond in his mouth.
Yeah, SCB is a savage when he wants to be.
Wave respawns generally being like this like hidden thing though is why it can be complicated when you write it down into words.
Yes.
Which is why like when I made my twin, when you looked at the Overwatch patch, I was like, damn, this thing's like long. It's like, yeah, when you write into words, it looks long and complicated, and it's like, even for me, it's like, I didn't correctly memorize every single detail about it, but that's the thing. You don't have to, because when you actually just play the game, it's automatic. It works in the background. You don't even think about it. It's just a thing that works on its own behind the scenes, and it just works. And you don't really, you don't have to give two thoughts.
Gavin, really quick. Gavin, do we still have the system where there's like a additional longer respawn depending on like objective pressure? I know that was a thing not too long ago where you could get like an 11-second spawn if you had like more.
That's in overtime. That's in overtime, right?
No, that's a 2 CP thing. I remember.
No. It was an escort. I remember specifically in Eichenwald, I got 11-second. I got an 11-second respawn in Eichenwald attack. I have a screenshot of me getting 11-second respawn.
He says yes, the anti-stall system is still in the game. Overtime spawns are also longer.
Yeah, there's weird like systems that you don't even know about that are actually in the game and have been for a long time.
I still don't know how the anti-stall system really works, like fundamentally. Like, it's never been written down on paper for anyone to read. I don't know if Blizzard would ever want to write it down on paper for people to read, but I mean, I'd be interested because I'm still curious. Like, I still don't fully understand it, to be honest with you, because it's never been
around for a while.
Ever laid out. It's never laid out. I appreciate
Gavin says he could write it down.
Yeah, I actually would appreciate it.
Can you do it like? Can you do it with like have like a puppet show, like, and explain it in like 3-year-old terms for us as well? Like,
make sure you
explain it in a
PDF
YouTube Kids video.
Too.
Yeah, and crayons. And can you use can you do it in like under 10 seconds for my attention span?
And so
so
question
short,
here for you guys. So, do we want to take this chance of respawns to segue to the debate between Clash and 2CP, or do you want to go into patch notes deeper?
Oh,
you know what? While we're here, why not? Let's talk about Clash. Go ahead. What are you feeling about Clash?
Listen, AVRL's on a roll. I just want to toss it to him. I just want to talk. Listen, this I already got my Amber Alert.
It might be long. It might be long. I don't know.
The best way to listen. You got to start out with a big thesis and a big opening paragraph to your paper. So go ahead and get it started. We'll just be the filler.
I'm just warning. I might make guttural noises like halfway, occasional points like yeah, just emphasize.
I live for the reactions, the live reactions.
All right,
the ad libs. Yeah, tell them.
Yeah.
We'll be like
First of all, the person in chat who said Clash is fun is lying. No one thinks Clash is fun.
Paid actor.
People know me. People know me as the push hater, and like there are still many problems with the push. But I had to really think about this the other day, and I was like having a bit of back and forth on Twitter, as you do, of course. And the back and forth actually led me to this is how you know I'm a genuine good faith actor, because bad faith actors would not do what I just did. Bad faith actors were just like they would hard zone in on a point and they won't budge no matter what new evidence comes out, no matter what new argument comes out. They're gonna double, triple, quadruple down no matter what. But I'm capable of having my mind change, and my mind did actually change on my opinion about push and Clash. And we can get into 2CP if you like as well, but push and Clash, I still am a pretty big push hater, but I made a statement that was like, you know what? I think even though Clash is not very good, it's better designed than push. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, that's actually wrong. That's an incorrect take. I don't walk back that. I'm going to admit I was wrong. I'm going to fully admit, as a good faith, genuine actor who actually cares about the game and isn't just like disagreeing or being argumentative for the sake of it. Now, these are my true thoughts, is that, no, I think Clash is actually fundamentally even worse designed than push. And I already dislike push a lot. And what it really comes down to is they both share one thing they both share one thing that I kind of disagree with in design fundamentally, and that is that the game disincentivizes you from winning through one of its objectives of winning. So if you look at how both push and Clash work, there are two ways of winning these game modes. Number one is on both maps, you can just finish the map. If you simply go to the end of the map and you fully cap out, you finish the map, you win, right? Whoever does that wins. The other way to win, the way the game mode actually wants you to win, is on Clash, you score a certain number of points by going back and forth between the map, and then you win based on points. Or on push, you push the push bot back and forth, and whoever gets more meters wins. Right? That's the two ways that you can win in these game modes. The problem is these two ways are not equal, and not only are they not equal, and maybe they don't need to be like purely equal, but they're so unequal that I wonder why being able to finish the map even exists in the first place. Because the game mode, both of them, fundamentally prevent you from actually finishing the map. They don't want you to finish the map. They want you to actively win via do the things in the middle of the game mode to win, like objective, win condition. And it's like, if you get too close to finishing the map, we're gonna make you back off. Well, the game is gonna simply say no. What if you wanted to push to the end of the map, guys, and the game said no? That's how push and Clash work. And I think it's just like that is actually real anti-competitive design. That is like design that is antithetical to what makes sense in the game. It's like you're used to playing Overwatch as a game, especially in Overwatch 1, where it's like you push to the end of Hybrid, you push to the end of Escort, you push to the end of even Assault 2CP, right? And then you maybe win the map, or you at least get to go to the time bank, you reset and you do it all over again. Like, the game itself fundamentally has a built-in design function such that if you do finish the map, you just reset and play it again. That's part of the game play of the map. And now suddenly we get into Overwatch 2, and two of these new game modes that are not called Flashpoint, you got Clash and Push, where the game just like suddenly says, no, we're not going to let you finish the map anymore. It's not going to happen anymore. You're going to get to near the end of the map, and then the further along the map you get, the more difficult it is for you to win, to the point where trying to finish the map is actually pretty damn pointless. And this is like exacerbated even further than Clash. It wasn't Push. I feel like this is even worse than Clash, and certainly more talked about in Clash, where it's like, why even bother pushing last? This is the genuine conversation that people have now, like across all skill levels. Why do you push last? It's not rewarding enough. It's extremely like imbalanced for you as the attacking team to go into, because you're like designed to lose. The game is designed in a way such that if you make that last push, you just lose. Like, the game is so stacked against you to help the other team win, you simply lose. But the other problem is, unlike in Push, in Clash, not only do you lose that fight, but the other team then gets rewarded as well. They get a free point for capping what is essentially a free capture point. It's just the game is given it. It's given to them for free. They get it for free. They do nothing. They come out of spawn. They win the easiest fight in the world, and they get a free point for that. So the losing team is like rewarded for losing. It's like ridiculous. Like, this is the kind of thing we're talking about. So, and I've had a conversation with Gavin about this as well, and I can see his point, which is like, if you don't give the losing team a point there, then it just feels like they're stuck there forever and they never get a point, and then they're just like forever losing or something. And I can sort of see that as well, and now it just makes it a really weird situation all around. But I just think the way you solve game modes like this is like, well, you just look at how hybrid and escort were designed, or maybe you look at control as a game mode, and it's like, dude, if you finish the map, maybe you just reset. Maybe we go back to how 5 CP is in TF2, which is where this game mode kind of comes from in a way. You finish the game mode, you just reset and you play it again. Maybe you score points that way or something like that. But just to could be completely disincentivized from finishing the map just feels so weird. It doesn't feel Overwatch. It just feels like the game should never step in and just say you lose because the game said so. Like that just doesn't feel good, no matter how much you want the game to work that way.
It's Defender's advantage. All three game modes that are unpopular have the same problem with Defender's advantage: push, 2CP, and clash. And it leads to this like really negative feedback loop with where we'll talk about 2CP later, but like my 2 cents in 2CP is that even without Choker Watch with 5v5, it's still a fundamentally flawed game mode, because the idea is that defenders have such a strong, because it's only 2 points, defenders need to have a compensation by having a very strong defender's advantage, which means as an attacker, you can lose, win, and win the game mode, or lose, win, win, and then you can potentially win the game mode. And defenders, you could do everything right for 3-4 minutes and still lose the game mode. It's just that the one fight kicks you right in the cheeks. And that's the really big problem with 2CP. And I've played it, at least probably 20 times in pugs and other groups in like the last 2.5 years. And it has the same problem where it feels like, come on, man, like we did so well. Like we lost focus for like half a second. We got destroyed. Clash, has the same problem, where defender's advantage is overwhelmingly powerful, so there's not a lot of motivation to push the last one. It's a different kind of a thing, but it's like the defender's advantage. You don't want to motivate to push the last point because it takes too long to cap or doesn't reward you enough. And then also just like on both maps, like walking up those stairs or walking into those chokes is 2CP, is what it is. It's just 2CP all over again. And then obviously there's the reward system for capping points in enemy territory versus your own territory. Like I really think Clash's problems are pretty obvious, pretty simple. And to Gavin's point that they are putting work into iterating on it and improving it, I think in the next season. But I think push, AVRL, you make a great point about push because it's the same exact problem. If you think about Colosseo, if you think about East Bronze, if you think about New Queen Street, what's a consistent theme between all those maps? I think especially something like a Colosseo is that the defender's advantage gets stronger and stronger and stronger the further you push along. So you're really disincentivize it from actually finishing. Do you guys remember the mathematical breakdown about why push is flawed? Do you remember that video that was initial in Overwatch 2? It blew up. It was a really bad video because it totally missed the mark about what was wrong with push. And I actually responded to the video and actually fact-checked a lot of its stuff, like winning first fight's too valuable. Bogus. Actually, King of the Hill is way, way, way worse in that regard. In fact, the problem with push is the opposite. The problem with push is that it is, I might need to be fact-checked on numbers here, but in my experience, it's actually defenders, you can really start push on a really bad note, and get basically almost full capped. You get saved by your defender's advantage, which becomes more and more and more and more overwhelming the further you go on. And then OT kicks in. And that's where stuff starts to get messy, where the defender's advantage, like let's say you're almost about to cap, it's the last fight, defenders win it. They've pushed zero progress on the robot. And they have done nothing but lose 2 fights, win fight in their spawn. Lose 2 fights, win a fight in their spawn. But they win that last fight. And now you're slapped with OT response. So now they walk the robot all the way to 0. They win that fight. Wow, guys, congratulations. Well, now instead of getting, like, let's say a 25, 30 meter push, they get a 35, 40, 45 meter push. And what ends up happening is that you can actually lose significantly more fights than you win and push and still win the game mode. Because if you were winning in overtime, the robot will cap. And the defender's advantage is a lot less for the later team, right? The team that was dominating, because they're dealing with the OT response. And this was my experience in coaching this mode in Overwatch League, and then also outside of it, where it's actually winning first fight. It's not that important. It's actually the OT response. It's actually really easy to reverse sweep that map. Which is like, bro, we've been hammering our head against this defender's advantage this entire map. What do you mean? What distance? Like,
well, the distance matters. You're not going to tell me a team that is down 0 meters to 140 is going to hit O2 and be like, oh, it's our time, guys.
But
push 140 in OT.
It's happened.
You'll tell me it's happened. You'll tell me it's happened, and it'll be the 1 or 2 times it's happened out of 10,000 games.
That's true. That's true. But my point being is that
So
it's
that's just a
more
moot point.
Well, I mean, compared to other game modes, is my point. It's like the OT respawns. I'm backing up your point that the defender's advantage is so strong in push that you can maintain an advantage for an entire game and still lose it because you're not taking advantage of your defender's advantage because the enemy team has OT respawns. Like regardless of what it is, its defender's advantage is a major problem. And I'm not saying revamp push, but my point being is that I like push too. I think push is okay too. Like I don't have any major problems with push, but like what ends up happening is Go ahead.
I don't want to hijack into the push discussion, so I'll just keep it about Clash today. Otherwise, we're gonna get into like a whole.
And this does happen a lot
of discussion instead.
This happens a lot in pro play. This happens a lot in pro play. Like even like 67. Like the big one is especially when it's not quite full cap, but like 67 meters. Like, how many times have you seen AVRL Colosseo stall at like 60 meters? Right, they get the cap, but the high ground advantage is too strong. So we see shuffling back and forth, and then one team wins that neutral fight, and they only have to win one fight to get it underneath the bridge and basically cap from on the neutral. Like that happens, and like it doesn't necessarily need to be full cap, but like that, it's like it brings in like awkward dynamics. I think
if the game is within like a 60 or 70 meter like threshold of either side, I think that's push is fine. I think the game of push gets into a really bad place once it exceeds like 90 meters, and definitely when it exceeds 100 meters. When it exceeds 100 meters, the game gets really silly.
Sure.
Yeah.
When it's not OT, you have to win 3 or 4 fights to get to 100 meters. When it is OT, you only have to win 2 or 3. And to me, that's just a significant advantage.
And you build a defender's advantage, but assuming you're the winning team, you build a defender's advantage by obviously getting that lead in the first place in the regulation time, and then when OT hits, I mean, yeah, you have respawn, you have OT respawns you have to contend with, but you also have then the attacking side also has OT respawns if they lose any members. So, I mean, I think ultimately push is like the most uncomebackable game mode of all time, whereas Clash is the most comebackable game mode of all time. So actually, in some of kind of a weird way, they actually have opposite problems in my mind. They have similar.
I would love stats. I would love stats on that, Gavin. I don't know if that's something you know, but I feel like push is very comebackable. And there's also
depending on the meterage. If we're within 70 meters, I agree with you. If we're beyond that, it's not.
All right, fair enough. I also have a conspiracy theory. I think Christopher has talked about this, where like the team with a smaller time bank on hybrid often wins. But that's another story.
Only if they're, I think that's the Hardy theory, and only if they're like the time banks are close enough. Obviously, a team with a 1 minute time bank versus a team with 4 is not going to win unless the team with 4 just like monumentally fumbles.
Yeah.
But like if it's like 1 minute to 1:30, then the team with 1 actually has a good chance of winning. The reason why I can explain Hardy theory, it's because the team with less time attacks first, and the attacking team gets to set the standard or like the boundary of where the payload sits, and then once you defend and you swap sides, then you have the location where the other team needs to push to, and then you can formulate a defensive game plan, understanding what is the maximum amount of distance that we have to work with here. Whereas when you just attack blindly, it's an infinite distance in theory, right? So it's easy to work with the defense when you have like a stand, like a very hard line of the sand, like this is where the distance is, and that's what we have to work with.
Actually,
did you have okay. I was just gonna say that like I think in early AVRL you were like here's how I'm showing that I'm a good faith argument. That was a hilarious one because it was like you started off being like I fucking hate push, hate Clash, and then Spilo's like, you know what, yeah, here's a reason to hate push, and then AVRL was like, nah, you know what, fuck you, Spilo, you're wrong, shut the fuck up, and then Spilo was like, yo dude, I'm backing you up, chill. And then, so there you go. If you need evidence that Spilo or that AVRL was good faith arguing, he like in the middle of that he started to turn to defend push, to be like, actually, you know, push ain't that bad, Spilo.
No, I never do. I never defend push. You won't catch me defending push. The only way I'll defend push is to say that Clash is better than push. Sorry, that push is better than Clash. Other way around.
Dude, he can't even contradict himself. Oh my gosh.
I'll say that push is better design than Clash. That's the only time I defend push.
I think to round my feelings, and then Sam, I'll take yours, and then we can move discussion. I think to round my feelings, I think what you guys are alluding to is like, yes, there's like, we could go back and forth about what is the likelihood of winning. I think the fundamental point remains, which I agree with AVRL, which is that the game mode is incentivizing the player to do the wrong things. Even if I think so, for example, in some of the chat discussion, Gavin was saying that like actually potentially control is worse for like comebacks than pushes. But it's like, well, in control though, the thing remains the same. Though the objective of the game remains the same. You run on the point and you fight. The point with push is that it's actually telling the player to do the wrong thing. It's telling the player like stop fighting and just camp the point. Don't actually keep trying to push it.
Did you mean clash? Did you mean clash or push there?
Both. Like in push as well. Like the better thing to do is like let the bot go. Like once you like rather than push the bot constantly, it's like actually stop pushing the bot, take the high ground, and wait for them to come back. So I think that's the fundamental thing. When that's happening in a game mode, then you need to. You've kind of done something a bit off there. Like you're just incentivizing the wrong things. So do you have anything?
I'm so tempted to have AVRL defend his Koth take, but I'm not. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
I can easily defend it. It's extremely easy to defend.
All right, do it in 241 characters.
All right.
Okay. Sure. I'll do it in 241 characters. Let me paint it this way. What happens in control? Let's say you go down 0 to 99. Well, it doesn't really matter, but let's use 0 to 99 as the comparison here. You go down 0 to 99, and you are the team on 0. What happens when you cap? What happens when you cap the point, guys? You're at 0. What happens when you cap the point? You get 1%, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You are some number of meters down. Let's say you're 0 meters to 100 meters. You're 0 to 100 meters down. The bot is within your territory. The enemy team just pushed 100 meters. You just defeated them in a team fight. You won the fight. So similar to control. In control, you won the fight. You cap. You got 1%. In push, you cap. What happens?
Oh no, I know this argument. You reset the bot. Yeah, but
you reset the bot for 100 meters before you even get one. You don't even get to play for the objective for the entire distance of however far they pushed into your territory.
But that doesn't matter. That's just the visual expression. That's the visual expression.
It does matter. It's not visual.
Matter.
What do you mean visual?
But push your immediate. You might be like when you're it depends on when it happens. It depends on when are the OT respawns are happening, and also like it depends.
If it happens in OT, you lose. What do you don't push 100.
Well, okay. So then based off that argument,
if it's 40 meters, then yes, maybe you do that.
So, but we're having different. You're defining a snowball based off of when we have a significant competitive or objective advantage. My definition of a snowball would be who wins the game mode, who wins first fight. You know what I'm saying? So like which version of the
first fight, to be honest.
Well, I know that's what I'm saying. So like in push, if you're saying that like you have a sizable advantage in push, it's harder to come back on. Sure. I mean, I don't know the math on that, but okay, sure. But I will say that and winning first fight in King of the Hill is significantly more important than push. Right. And I agree. It's sure. But see, like we're both right. So like which one is which? Like so that by what metric are we saying?
But what you're saying doesn't. I mean, that doesn't refute what I just said. Not necessarily. Let me finish. Said the one-to-one comparison would be imagine you play a Koth. Imagine you play control. You are 0 to 99. You cap. You are the 0. You cap. But instead of getting 1%. You now have to decrease your opponent's 99 all the way down to 0, and then you can get your 1%. That is how push plays. That is why push is
it's a lot faster. It's a lot faster than that, but I think a lot of this is how
but it's not instant. But it's not instant.
To me, this is more. To me, yes, but to me, this is more about optics and balance. That's my thought.
How is that optics, dude? It's not. Dude, do you know how you could do like another 2 fights in between, depending on the distance and push. If you're down 100 meters, that's like 2 fights potentially just to reset the payload.
It's usually like one.
You're talking about one. The first fight. Let's count them. The first fight.
They will
you actually have to win. You have to actually win in your own spawn first at the 100-meter mark. You have to win. That's fight number 1. Then you push, and then at some point you start getting towards the middle. They have forward respawns, and you will have another fight before you hit the midpoint. Before you can even hit your 1 meter. That's
I agree with you. I agree. You're objectively correct.
1 meter.
You're objectively correct.
You win a fight, you get a percentage. That's it.
You're objectively correct.
Is there a way to mitigate that, AVRL? Is there a way to mitigate that where you have like a
wait a second. Wait a second.
You have like a longer respawn or something? Because I do see what you're saying.
You're objectively correct. My point being is that push also comes with its own set of baggages for having a disadvantage or having an advantage. So my point, the only thing that matters from a balance standpoint is winning first fight or coming back from a disadvantage. What are the win rates compared to other game modes? When you have numbers on that, then we can talk.
Why
Now,
are
if you
so
look at it,
stun-locked on first fight? Why is that? Why is that the thing? Like,
because that matters a lot
cares
in
what
King
fight
of the
you
Hill. That cares a lot
Yeah,
in King of the
okay.
Hill.
Sure.
And so,
Well,
so my
I've
point being
I
is that, like,
I think I
if
can
it
solve
feels
this a little bit.
bad, if it's unintuitive and it feels bad to be like, man, we want to fight and we're only walking the robot back, that sucks, then that is an important design decision. It might not just be a big balance problem.
That's only one problem. Yeah, we can get into my other list
Sure,
of problems.
sure,
Like,
sure,
that's
sure.
only one.
Yeah, I think
again,
to
I'm not
summarize this, rather than turning into the great push debate, which we can have, but we got other things to discuss. I think
Sure.
again, you're kind of disagreeing on outcome versus philosophy, and I think this has been a thread of like a lot of
Yes,
AVRL's
that's it.
complaints. Are like AVRL's like, I have a philosophical objection to this. Like as you said with the
And I
balancing
agree
for
with that.
with different ranks.
I
it's
agree
like,
with that.
I don't think a game should do that. Even if you could say on net, maybe the outcome would be fine. It's like you're saying, no, I want the players to have a consistent learning journey. And it's the same with this example now, where it's like, Spilo, you're saying there needs to be an outcome difference, and then I'll be convinced that this is bad or good. But AVRL's saying, well, actually,
not necessarily. Not necessarily. I'm okay. If it is unintuitive and it doesn't feel good, or if it doesn't feel right to do that, then I'm okay with that. It would be like, let's say that like people are like, let's say it would be like Clash is balanced. You are actually rewarded for capping the final point. It just feels like it isn't. Like maybe that would be a stat. Like I don't think that's actually the case, but I would still agree that it doesn't feel good, right? And for what Avril is saying, I agree. Like if the design doesn't feel intuitive, doesn't feel rewarding, then that is a problem with the game mode. It's not like it gets passed because it's balanced. I agree.
Yes.
The problem I have is you spend so much time simply, if you're losing that, is you spend so much time resetting the bot back to the middle point, back to where you can actually get a meter. You spend more time doing that than actually pushing the fucking payload to get a meter at all. It would be like if you played escort as an attacking team, and every team fight you lost, the payload went back to your spawn. It's like, are you what? That would be ridiculous, right? Even saying it sounds ridiculous. Explaining the control to push analogy, it sounds ridiculous that if you played a Koth game, that you would have to reset your opponent's percentage down to 0 before you can get 1%. That sounds ridiculous, and yet that is exactly how push is played. Exactly what you do in push. Like,
so
that's
to kind of
a really bad problem.
To kind of wrap it in this section, do you have like a quick solution you want to bring up, Avril? Like this, I'm presuming you have something in your mind.
So the solution initially that I brought up was that the payload needs to go, the push bot needs to go faster. It needs to go. If you guys remember Alpha, it was actually pretty slow. Then after feedback, they made it run faster, and I was like, guys, it's not fast enough. Can you make it run faster? And they said like, no, we can't make the bot go fast. Gavin, correct me if I'm wrong. We can't make the bot go faster because if the bot goes faster than the player can move, the bot's going to do this like weird jittery movement where like every time you catch up, the bot's going to move a little. You catch up again, it's going to move a little. It doesn't look good. They made the bot move so fast in the alpha, hilariously, if you guys remember, the bot looked like it was moonwalking because the animation didn't match the speed that the bot was moving at. So I thought that was pretty funny, but they did implement that feedback. I think the only way you can like fix the issue that I'm talking about is you either have 2 push bots on the map that like that are individual, so that you don't have to worry about the one in your base. You just go to, you win a fight, you just go to the one on the other side of the map, or you go to the one that you need to push, or you capture your own bot. So let's say you are down whatever meterage. Maybe this only applies if you're down deep. I still think the push game mode is fine within the confines of like 60 to 70 meters. If we're within that threshold, push is fine. I got no problems with this game mode, typically speaking. There's still issues, but whatever, it's fine. Outside of that, it gets silly. And so once you get above 70 meters, maybe you this sounds dumb now, but I'm spitballing here. You capture the payload like it's a control point, and the payload like flies up like the Iron Giant in the movie and fucking
Just
lands.
despawn. Yeah.
It just despawns, flies off and lands in the middle, and you just get to go straight there.
Couldn't you do something with a longer spawn time? Like, so say that you're the attacking team, and like you've got the big advantage, but you're gonna get forward spawn. Couldn't you do something but like with their spawn timers by potentially increasing it a little bit if you're already gonna get the forward spawn? Like, is there a way where like if the bot has not crossed a certain point, go ahead.
The problem is whatever you do in that regard also fucks the other team or the opposite side of the map trying to do the same. Let's imagine that we do what you say. Now the team, great. So you can easier defend your own spawn. Now what happens when you want to try and match the 100 meters on the other side? Well, now you get fucked by the same rule, don't you? You get fucked by the same respawns, don't?
What? No,
So
'cause
that's why
it would only be if your team
only for the
had
losing team.
one spawn at a time. No, for the winning. So for the team that's winning, right? Like say
Yeah.
you. 'Cause I think your main issue with it is that like when you're the losing team, you can't get back into it because you have to push the bot all the way to net zero, right, to even start to get the game.
Correct.
And there's two
Correct.
fights in between. Is there
What
a
I'm
way
saying
that
is-
you can make that like second fight harder to like get to, or perhaps maybe I'm crazy here, but
Yes, but then the problem is it gets reflected when you're trying to make the comeback. So now you are then pushing into their territory, trying to, as the losing team, you are now trying to get the 100 meters correct, and now you have the forward spawn, and now they get the same advantage as you, which is to say, if they win a fight, you also then get the longer respawns, and then you get reset back and whatever. So the point ends up being, if you are the losing team, your capability of like making the comeback happen once you reach a certain threshold as a meterage, again, I have to stress, it becomes extremely hard because whatever advantage or disadvantage you impose on either your own team or against the other team to help you as a losing team then screws you over once you become the attacking team pushing into the other side, because you have to make the same ruling on both sides, right? Otherwise you can't just favor the losing team and award them for losing. And that then goes back to Clash, why I dislike awarding the losing team for losing because they get a free point for recapping last. I don't like that as a concept, just awarding the losing team for no reason. And then the problem also then becomes, you know, you have to then push into the winning team then sets whatever meters they have. That becomes a defending meterage. 1 meter of push that you push aggressively into the enemy spawn equals 2 meters they have to push backwards. Why? Because you push in 1 meter, they have to unpush the 1 meter and then push 1 meter to catch up to you, correct? So every meter you push into the enemy base actually equals 2 meters of pushing for the enemy team once you mathematically look at it. Obviously, that's not perfect maths because, yes, people will say, but the bot walks back quicker. Correct, it does, but you still have to walk it back, and it's not instant. Because it's not instant, there is time involved, and it's not a quick walk back as well. Like if you have to walk all the way from one side of the map all the way to the other side of the map, it's really bad, which is why between like 60-ish meters, it's not that bad to walk back between back and forth. But once it gets to triple digits, it's ridiculous.
We have to be really careful though, because like you were saying, is like exactly the same problems potentially with Clash here, where you're rewarding people for just winning fights in their own territory. I will also say like the respawn mechanic of like having it like respawn only really saves you like 5 or 6 seconds. Because if you think about where the fight is won in 100+ meter territory, walking all the way back to where you need to push the robot, you're not really getting there any slower escorting the robot, only a few seconds slow. Like even on a map like Coliseum where you got to walk the robot around, it's only like an additional 5, 6, 7, maybe 7 seconds, depending on the character. So you have the, even if you did respawn again, it's not completely changing the mechanic where you have to retake the fight on neutral ground. So, you know, I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate with this.
What you need is teleporters to appear. When the bot gets control of 2 teleporters spawn, the bot takes
everybody
one and you take the
teleports
other.
to the neutral location.
And you're like, bang, you're in the center.
Let's
Now
say-
you go.
You know the flashpoint speed boosting thing? They should apply that. They should.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The bot should move. The speed that the bot moves should be based on how far it is away from the midpoint. So it should move really fucking fast if it's extremely far away from the midpoint. And you should get a speed boost out of spawn for that as well to help you get back. Because the argument was always you can't make the bot faster because once it exceeds a player's move speed, funny things happen. I get great. So what if we increase the player's move speed then? Would that fix
Can you
it?
imagine?
Well,
I'm
also,
gonna go back
it
to my
wasn't.
final point.
Sorry, just to quickly
No,
add,
I
it
was
wasn't
gonna say-
just that funny
go ahead.
things happen. It's that if the bot moved faster, then in overtime it would move past you and you'd lose. Because like it's
Well,
like those.
That is true. Actually true. That is also true.
Well,
Yep.
then you
Not
could
gonna lie.
change how overtime works and push.
Yeah. Can you imagine like the overtime spawn with a faster robot?
Yeah,
Can you
exactly.
imagine
Like
the
the
overtime?
push-ups.
Like you win, like, oh guys, we've lost. Overtime respawns, we win 2 fights, we win the push game mode. That's it. Like, oh yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Anyway, back
Yeah,
to Clash.
Yeah.
guys.
I gotta
Anyway,
talk about
guys.
Clash yet.
The great push debate. The great push
Yeah,
debate.
exactly.
Yeah, there we go. We got
Yeah.
push in there too. So here's what I'll say about Clash. Okay, listen, I was never a 2CP abolitionist. Okay, I'm not at the point where I'm saying I would take.
Brand is
2CP back.
Overwatch 1, buddy. You and I
Yeah,
are.
listen. I love the Anubis and I love Volskaya. I could play. You know. Listen,
Well,
you
Sky
saw
was,
what I
was good.
you saw what I did in the scrims on that first point high ground on Hanzo. You saw what I was doing. I can send you the clips of those little VOD stealing Legion players.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Projectile DPS build.
I know, literally yes, and that's like full transparency. I think 2CP was probably the best game type
Temple
for
of Projectile.
DPS, Temple of Projectile. So like that's just for my hero pool, like that's totally why I liked it so much. Like you put Junkrat, Doomfist, like it was a ton of fun for me just because like my heroes were good there. But to also give 2CP credit, well, like I would say, is it fair to say that both 2CP and Clash are ballpark equally as flawed in terms of like design right now? Do you think that's a relative thing to say? Or do you think that's an okay thing to say? Like they have their issues. I think they're the same.
Should have had AVRL here for this, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had an idea for 2CP. Remind me later.
Sure.
He stepped away, audio listeners. If you're wondering, AVRL just stepped away. He's come back. He's come back with a vengeance.
No! Quick, Sam, finish your thought.
I was listening the whole time. You can't believe I jumped out of the bathroom damn quick when I was like, I wonder what Avril's thoughts on this. I was like,
there's a trail of pee from Avril's bathroom back to here.
Like, we're like Hansel and Gretel out here for
fuck this shit. I gotta get back and talk to Samito. Samito, you're so fucking wrong.
Okay. So, Avril, would you say that? Just curious, before I go to my point, which one would you say is more flawed, 2CP or Clash in your mind?
I still think Clash is more flawed, and the reason why is 2CP at least had within the design of the game mode the capability for you to finish the map such that you would replay, and that is within the time bank system itself. Like the game didn't punish you. Was there a heavy defender's advantage? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, at least I feel like you were capable of. I mean, this is getting into weird anecdotal territory, and I don't like using anecdotes as like a source for like statistics, but it's all we got here to work with, so I'm gonna do it. But I always felt like 2CP was more finishable than Clash in terms of like how many 2CP games did you play where at least you could potentially snowball, and you see those ridiculous like 7 to 8 point rounds.
It happens.
There's fucking 10 to 12 point rounds of 2CP. There's ridiculousness. You could finish the map.
Yeah.
How many games of Clash do you guys see finish? Fuck all. Like none. Like basically none.
I think when the other team hard tilts and gives up is when it happens.
It's almost impossible. So I think even anecdotally, 2CP was more finishable than Clash. Correct? I think Clash is more is worse.
And to give 2CP credit, to give it credit despite its flaws, I think it was one of the most, if not the most strategic game type in Overwatch. To give it
high
credit,
rank versus low rank. And yes, you're right, though. We were 100% correct, though. It was objectively the most strategic game.
Yeah. So, like, there was a lot of strategy. You had different setups, and, like, it brought a unique, different play style to the game that some loved and some hated, sure. At what point are we willing to entertain a conversation that 2CP should come back? Is my question. I'm not waiting off Flash.
I have a solution.
Go ahead. Spilo.
You need to address the map, the choker watch, because even with 5v5, Volskaya is probably fine, but like Paris is Paris, guys. Like it just is Paris.
Fuck Horizon.
It's a
fuck
joke.
Paris. Don't do that.
I was thinking, what if we took an idea from Clash where like they have the much slower ticks on the final point, and then reduce defender's advantage. So like let's say Volskaya or Anubis, right? It was easier to attack second point. It was way less congested, a little bit more. There's more options for attack, but it took a lot longer to cap. So you address the attacker's advantage, which is all about snowballing, but also address the defender's advantage at the same point.
And you could potentially lower the time bank as well to like 7 minutes instead of 8 or was it
right? I don't remember, but basically it just allows attackers to like actually get to point easier, but doesn't allow them to cap as easy.
Even better, you take the speed boosters out of spawn from Flashpoint and you put it in 2CP as well, and you allow
defense.
And you allow attackers
to recontest first. To recontest first. Yeah.
Go ahead, Avril.
You know what would really fix everything is if you just added a payload to everything. Okay, first of all, yes, there's a payload, technically speaking, in push, but I'm going to move past that now. The reason why I advocate, so if for anyone that knows me, I'm a big escort guy. Escort my favorite game mode for a good reason. I think payloads are super
Widow
important in
Watch.
Overwatch because payload is I don't care about Widow. The payload is what will give you like the best control for pacing in the game. I think a lot of the issues in game modes like Clash and also in 2CP is it comes down to pacing. Is when you have unmitigated pacing and the players can simply just rush to the next point as fast as they want to. Players move pretty damn quick in this game, and you just fly past the terrain and just ignore most of it. And like one of the key like pieces of evidence is like when you look at Nimbani A, no one cares about the first 3/4 of the A point. You just run straight to the end. You set it for the A push.
That
Right
is
at the
true.
end, you
Yeah.
only defend A. If you put an escort payload there, that entire A point becomes actually playable. You look at every single escort a good chunk of the A point is pretty playable. You got like 2 to 3 good defending points on every single A point on escort maps. On hybrid maps, not normally. You just kind of play the point. You have that one defendable point. Everyone pushes that same A point, and that's it. To move it back into 2CP and everything like that and Clash, it's like, well, yeah, you just play the point. Everything in between doesn't matter. Flashpoint, you wonder why, guys, why do we have a speed boost out of spawn? Why? Because 90% of the map, like, I appreciate all the work the design team went to because these are beautiful maps,
matter.
guys. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, no one can tell you what the alleyways look like on any of these Flashpoint maps. Why?
I will
Because
say one
people
thing.
just run straight to the point and play the point.
Mm.
These alleyways don't matter at all, unfortunately, as a gameplay mechanic. Because when there's unmitigated pacing, you just run for the point. That's why you need payloads, because payloads are there to dictate your pacing in the game, and they actually like force you to play different areas of the map and force you to like move at a certain speed, so you just don't run to the end of the map.
Yes and no. I agree. You make some good points, but I think one of the things that is worth pointing out is the difference between the reason why people rush to the point in Numbani is because people defend on the point in Numbani, and the reason people defend on
That's
the
the only
point in
place you
Numbani
can.
is because it's the only place that you can defend. Whereas
Yep.
a position like even in a 2CP, to use something we're talking about, why does nobody defend Anubis point? Because the choke is better. Right. And so you actually hold in front of the point, which I think that is one thing that's like, why did people skip the transition from Anubis point A and Anubis point B is because that open space isn't really defender's advantage. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like that point on
Yeah,
Temple of Anubis,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I do agree with AVRL though. Like there
I
is
can
points
challenge
like
you a
where
little bit though.
Okay.
And the challenge would be that the defending point you're talking about, Anubis, I know the one, it's like kind of on the high ground with the bridge and everything. You can still see the point and you can still defend the point acceptably. The problem
Sure.
with holding forward on these positions is that you could just get seen. You can get back capped quite easily.
Yeah,
There's
that
Sombra,
is
there's
true.
Tracer, whatever.
Yep,
It turns
that's
your
true.
attention. Even if you're not getting back capped, even just one player appearing behind you changes everything. Now you have to deal with two positions at the same time.
That's true.
It really screws you over. So that's another reason why you can't push forward, because the point's there. If you're too far away from the point, nowhere else on Nimbani A is defendable, not just because there's no chokes, but it's like if you get too far away, you're just going to get back capped. That's just
true.
reality.
That's true. In the interest of like directing this conversation though,
Right.
as I step on SVB's toes, there's thoughts on my suggestion with 2CP. Less defender's advantage, but takes longer to cap points, or the speed boost that Samito suggested.
Is it feasible for it to even come back though? Is kind of my
Well,
question when
here's
they're already doing Clash.
here's my
Go ahead,
feedback.
Spilo.
It's not a direct feedback to Spilo, but I was sat here. The reason I was quiet was I was like, you guys really sat here for like an hour-long discussion on how terrible push is and how terrible Clash is, and you're like, you know what we need as a solution, guys? Bring back a third shit game mode. Let's bring back another really bad game mode.
I liked playing Junkrat.
You may, yeah, but maybe, bro. But like, we were there. We were there. Like 90% of people
I
were like,
know,
"This is
I
fucking
know.
shit. I hate 2CP. Makes me want to uninstall Overwatch." Guys, we don't. Here's a newsflash. We don't need other game modes. People like hybrid. People
Okay,
like
that's fair.
escort. People like control. Just make more of those. Why do we keep adding fucking game modes? This is such a stupid
Agreed.
enterprise that we go down on. We keep shuffling the pack to find another way to play the same game, but worse. We're just like, how do we make Overwatch shitter? Let's give a different objective that's worse to play on. Just make the maps on the game modes we already like. We don't need more.
I like
I agree,
Flashpoint.
I agree.
I have one complaint on Flashpoint though, and this happened to me the other day. I don't think that the point should be able to go diagonally across the map, because then when you attack and you cap and win, say you win the point on Flashpoint. This doesn't happen too often, but it did happen to me the other day. It's like I had to cross past their spawn and take a horrible fight. Like, and we didn't have a choice to get around it. I'd like it if they did not allow it to go. Like, do you guys know what I mean? Like, how
Yeah.
a point in the
I see
top
what you
left should not
Back
go to
right,
the bottom
front
right.
left.
Yeah, especially when
Um,
especially when it spawns away and like you can't get the speed boost out of your spawn and they have theirs. Like it forces a bad fight. Other than that, I think Flashpoint's actually really good.
So I do have solutions. If you talking about solutions, I do have solutions. First, number one, in terms of just responding to what you said, I agree. Like I think we have too many game modes. I would actually like less. So like fundamentally, I'm like, could we bring 2CV back and make it workable? The answer is yes. With all your suggestions are great, guys. But the problem is we're just adding more game modes, and I want there to be less game modes, not more, because I just think, bro, the water is so muddy right now, and like 2 out of the 3 new game modes in Overwatch 2, I don't even like, and I think a lot of people. Maybe there's more people that like push, but it seems like there's not a lot of people that like Clash. So at least that seems to be a popular opinion. But anyway, like a couple of things I want to mention. Just touch upon what you said about Flashpoint as well. It's only tangentially related. If Gavin is still here, I wonder what Gavin's thoughts are on revealing the next point on a Flashpoint before the current one is finished capping. That way, a team can strategically choose to stop attacking the point and just set up for the next point, or just remove some of the RNG factor. Maybe you could even do it like, I don't know, like as we head into OT on a point, or at a certain point of a point being alive, then the next available point is revealed, but it's obviously locked until you finish your current point. I just think that would make that would mitigate the RNG factor of Flashpoint a little bit. But on Clash, my suggestion and solution, I teased this in chat to Gavin, God knows how long ago now, is I think one of the ways to make it feel better is because he was saying that in their own play test internally, the reason why they like the idea of giving the losing team a point for recapping their last point, even though it's just like a free point for them, is because it feels really bad to be the team on the losing end, to not get anything, to have like no way to come. It feels like there's not a lot of ways to come back
Push.
because you can only if you can only get points past your own last point, you're just constantly never getting points. So the way I would mitigate that is like, okay, fine. The defending team that's losing can get 1 point for capping their last point, which is the easiest point to cap in the world. However, the attacking team should then be able to reliably, I would hope, be able to get 2 points. So if the losing team's going to get 1 point, because I was originally saying, well, what if instead of 1 point they got half a point? But I'm like, that doesn't feel good. So let's just do it 1 point and you get 2 points. Okay, won't that make the game mode too short? Fine. Let's increase the maximum amount of points. How many is it right now? Is it
5.
7?
5.
Is it 5? Make it 7.
5.
Make it 7. Make
Or
it
8 or
7.
9.
Whatever. Make it 2 more than it currently is. Make it 3 more. Whatever more. Make it more than it currently is. And make it reliably so that if you are attacking last, you probably can get at least 1, but you'll probably get 2 points. So even if the defending team who's losing gets their 1 point, you're still ahead by 1 because you got 2 points to their 1. Right? So I think that feels better and that like makes the game mode better. And how would you make it more reliable? Well, you can make it faster capping. You can increase the number of ticks on the last point from 3 to 5. And then the speed of which you get each tick can be quicker, such that you could potentially get 2 points on the last. You see what I mean? So
I don't think
that
the
would be my
Clash's problems are complicated. I think you're absolutely right. Just give more total points to cap. Give partial credit, like 1 point for capping in your territory, 2 points for capping in enemy territory, 1 point for capping truly neutral fights, and that's it.
yeah. Have we done it? Have we solved Clash, guys? Did we do it?
It's really not hard. I think that's it. I think the only tiny little detail
We
is
solved
maybe.
Clash.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Yeah. So.
And
That's it. I mean,
so to
Gavin,
to your-
where you at? We solved Clash.
well
We
to
did
your
it.
to your
We fixed it.
flashpoint thing feedback, AVRL, Gavin said it goes slightly against the design value we have, which is to only really have one objective. We do this to avoid arguments on teams about what the right course of action is.
Oh, they're gonna argue anyway. Don't worry. People
Yeah,
are gonna argue no matter
true.
what.
The problem is, if the game doesn't want, I even just think, guys, if you don't want the game to be able to like fully finish, just don't even allow that to be an objective. But then it obviously feels bad. What if you dominate the other team so hard, you're literally just sitting in their spawn and you can't even finish the game because they can't cap at all. So I understand why it's possible, feasibly, to cap out the map, but it's like it feels in reality so impossible that it's pointless. If you want to give real incentives for attacking last, just make sure the attacking team is more rewarded for pushing than the opposite team is rewarded for freely defending. I think
And
that
you'll
would
be-
actually just be it.
You'll be happy to hear that Gavin says we are heading in the direction AVRL is slaying slowly as we iterate. So
Bless.
He's slaying.
Bless.
they're
Avril's
already
slaying.
yeah.
Oh.
AVRL not only responsible for group respawns, he's basically a dev at this point. He's balancing Clash. he's all the ideas that come in, and he's gonna be blamed for all of them when they all go to shit. So that's good to know. Okay.
I mean, if it was me, Clash just wouldn't. We just wouldn't. We'd only be playing Escort if it was me, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are disgusted by that comment. But that's probably why I'm not on the game.
I mean, I do think on a fundamental level, we don't need 10 different game modes. Like, it's just like, it just feels weird to have different ways to win the game every time, because like we're teaching different things to our players. So, okay. Any other thoughts on actual game modes before we maybe try and run through the patch?
We're gonna
here
get to
real
the
quick?
patch.
Yeah,
We're gonna get to the patch.
We haven't actually even talked about the patch.
Listen, we SPB, we promised you a good episode. So
It's true. 2.5
I told Sam
hours in.
yesterday, it's like
and
we got to be spicy this one. No more.
no,
no
we
more agreeable
essentially
overlap.
we stayed away from any like balanced discussions or anything like that. Specifically, to save it for today. So we're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, 2.5 hours in, we haven't even talked about anything that's happened in the game, which is great. So let's
Clash
get
is pretty recent.
Clash is pretty recent. Clash
I guess so.
This is contrarian. It does nothing but contradict people, man. I tell you
Let's
what.
get nitty gritty here,
Tell you
boys.
what.
Let's get nitty gritty.
See that Spilo started by saying that we don't disagree enough. So there you go. We got a whole episode of us disagreeing. Okay, let me pull up the patch notes here. So we're gonna start with Diva. I'll read it out before I pull it up on screen. Actually, no. First is actually tank, roll, passive. And actually, before that, even I'm going in reverse order for some reason. Armor, flat damage reduction decreased from 10 to 7 per impact. Developers say the recent increase to armor's effectiveness improved the survivability of armored heroes more than we'd like. So we're tuning it down to milligram value. I'll actually read the knockback thing as well, because I think they're both just tank nerfs, which is knockback resistance reduced from 40 to 25%. Developer comments, this knockback resistance value has changed a few times as the environment of the game shifts. With Juno entering the roster and bringing more sources of speed boost to help rush down the enemy team, we'd like to make tanks more susceptible to displacement again. So, Sam, you want to go first?
I think that in general, this missed the mark, and here's why. I still think tanks are overkitted. Here's something I'd like to see happen. Armor is still insane. You know my stance on roll passives. I don't like them, but let's say they want to stay. There is no universe where a hero like Diva should have better armor as well as headshot reduction. I think the tanks that don't have armor should get the headshot reduction passive, because Queen doesn't benefit from that. Hog doesn't benefit from that, right? Tanks that do have armor should not get the headshot reduction passive. I think that they're still overkitted. Like, for example, okay, say I could knock a tank back more, right? What heroes does it actually help? It helps Brig with the flail, but like there's still a ton of the cast, especially in the DPS role, that are just useless against some of these tanks. This is why you've seen Mei's rise to fame, because she can sit there and ice block and just survive. While a lot of hit scan have fallen off because they just get bulldozed with absolutely no option. Like, cast does not have an ability to like do more knockback to a tank, right? But especially the tanks with armor. Like, you saw, like, Ram and Diva were super, super good last patch, right? Like, the tanks that have this better version of armor do not also need 25% headshot reduction. A hero like Queen might, quote, need, I don't think they need any of it, but a hero like Queen might, quote, need the headshot reduction, right? Because she doesn't have armor. The same goes for Hog. I think that's an easy change that would help at least playing DPS feel a lot better. That makes a lot more sense for a lot of these tanks. I still think a lot of them are overkitted. I'm glad armor got reverted a bit. I think it's a little bit better than it originally was, but I don't think the knockback thing is the issue for the tanks. I think it's just how tanky they are in base with all of these passives and damage mitigation buffs that many have received that just stack too much on the right characters and don't help the weaker ones at all.
Question, does that not just make two forms of armor, basically? One that's for headshots and one that's for not headshots?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like,
well, so you said the
sorry.
tanks that don't have armor should get the headshot reduction, and tanks that do have armor don't. But then essentially you just got two forms of armor, right? One, so Jungle Queen is taking less damage to headshots, and every other tank is taking less damage to everything.
I mean,
so
listen. I think the headshot passive shouldn't be in the game at all. So that's my take. I don't think it should be there at all. But like, if you're gonna insist on it being there, then in a way, yes, you're right. Which is why I just don't think it should be there, especially on a hero like Diva. Like, you're essentially double stacking that, right? Like, how am I supposed to you know? I think you're right. I think my answer is that you're right. But my stance would be to remove it altogether. But if you want to keep it,
another aspect of what I was saying earlier, which is like weirdly complex Overwatch metrics that aren't applied to other areas, like to trying to figure out how much damage a thing will do to a tank with the damage reduction and the headshot. It's like we need those. We literally have spreadsheets to figure it out. But it's like, as a player, how are you supposed to intuit this, which I think is a bit janky. But I'll take it to Spilo. Spilo, how do you feel about these tank overall changes?
I think the real question is just like, what do they want armor to do? Do they want it to be like a knob that they can insert on tanks as like just like a global damage reduction, or do they want to use it as like an anti-tank buster for pellet damage characters like Roadhog, Bastion, Reaper, and so on? Orisa is another one as well. Because if the answer is the latter, then I think you can kind of just leave it as is, maybe reduce it to 6 or 5 or whatever. Like you kind of just like leave it as is. But the thing that kind of confused me, if that was the case, then why was there ever an increase from 5 to 10? I didn't understand that. You get what I'm saying? Because like increasing it from 5 to 10 did not affect tank busters like at all. Because like they're already doing below the minimum threshold. It only affected soldiers, Genjis, Pharas, Hanzus, things like that, right? So then the problem is that if you want your armor actually affecting those higher damage sources, then you need to do something like I did a whole video on like having a minimum damage reduction and a maximum. It already has the maximum, but introducing a minimum damage threshold where it's like at worst armor reduces damage by 15%. Because as it is now, we've like kind of gone from 5, 10, and back to 7, but it's far rocket's still going to annihilate armor. It doesn't matter whether it does anything at all. Like it, so I think there needs to be like some clarity about like what their vision is.
You know what I think it
armor.
is? I think this is the hidden mechanic, the secret hidden mechanic behind armor that is not talked about at all, if ever, is that armor to me, partially is what I see it as, is its healing efficiency. It directly translates to healing efficiency because you heal armor as if it was 1 HP, friendly wise, but the amount of damage you take is less than that. So you heal for more than the damage it takes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you get better healing efficiency when you heal armor versus when you heal regular HP. So I translate armor as to healing efficiency the way I see it.
Right.
And it's not the only way I see it, but it's one of the ways I see it.
And that's a huge thing of playing armored characters is trying to maintain armor threshold so that it's easier on your supports and you don't snowball your HP quite as effectively. But that still doesn't answer the question of like who needs armor and what is armor supposed to be effective versus, because increasing it from 5 to 10 really only screwed over a couple of characters, like literally a couple, like Soldier, Genji, Lucio.
Unplayable. It was
Soldier, Genji,
unplayable.
like, there were not that many characters that were affected by it all.
I have another. This sounds really silly, guys, but I don't mean to say this in a way that makes the devs look bad. I truly mean it when I'm about to say this. But I think sometimes armor is applied and who it's given to purely based on lore. I'm not shitting you. Consider it. Which heroes get armor? The ones in the big ass mix with the big ass armor. They wear armor in the game. They get armor. Who doesn't get armor? Roadhog.
Sure.
Why? Because he's a big fat man that doesn't wear any armor. That's why he doesn't get any armor.
No, but I'm saying,
literally
like,
a lore reason. Like,
yeah, no, I agree with you, but I'm saying like who is the armor effective versus, not who has it. Is my point. So otherwise, why?
I guess, but it's in terms of like the reason why.
Right.
In terms of the reason why certain heroes get armor and certain don't.
Yeah,
I think partially it has to do with the lore. As silly as that sounds.
Would you say just throw that out the door then and apply it to like? And this is where we're just sorry, Spilo, you go ahead and finish, and I'm gonna ask a question.
No, I guess my point being is just that we just need clarification of not who needs armor or why people have armor necessarily, but like who is armor supposed to be effective versus? Because if it's supposed to be effective versus those pellet characters, those tank buster characters, right? Then it just needs to be 5 and just leave it as it was in Overwatch 1. If we want armor to be a largely applicable damage reduction to all sources of damage, then they're going to need to introduce a minimum threshold, because there's at no point can you increase 5 to 7 to 10 to 12. At no point will tweaking that number not break something. It's going to break something. It won't be enough versus Pharah. It will be too much versus Soldier, and so on.
Do you like current armor, or do you like the old armor, not the original, but the older armor with the flat percentage reduction?
I don't think the old armor was as effective versus tank busters. I think it made characters like Bastion, Reaper, Roadhog, Diva too strong in the tank mirror.
Could you have, sounds weird, but a combination of both, where like you have
that's what I'm
reduction.
saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like they have the
Maybe
maximum threshold is 50, and the minimum threshold is like 15 or 20. So it does exactly what it does right now. But versus the Pharah rocket, it will reduce it by like 18, 19, or 20. Now, that would be a nerf to projectile damage characters, because those are largely the burst damage characters like Junkrat, right? Armor would actually be somewhat useful versus a Junkrat, so you'd have to incorporate that.
How do we feel about this? How do we feel if we just deleted armor from the game and we just increased the tank HP who used to have armor by whatever amount we feel is necessary to mitigate
Well,
the loss
healing
of armor.
healing efficiency is a problem there because now you have a much larger health pool that just disappears like that, which means
Yeah,
it's
well,
awkward
some
for
tanks don't have Zarya and Hog don't have armor. That's just the world they live in. So it's like,
Well,
yeah, so-
Hog has a heal, Zarya has a hitbox and a bubble.
Well, this is why again, like I don't think they should remove armor, but like again, it's hard with role passives. But this is why again, those heroes should just be the ones that have the headshot reduction. Though I wish it wasn't in the game at all. Like this is the problem we've kind of cornered ourselves into, where it's like we're trying to make blanket changes to like a role that has characters that just play fundamentally differently, and it's borderline impossible to do that altogether. And they've tried like a lot of different things, but like I don't think there's a good solution no matter how much we try, unless we were to like start giving heroes specific passives, which we've talked about I think on this podcast SVB for about 2 years now. I forget where we were going with this conversation. Do you want to help us get back on course? SVB,
I mean, I feel like
before we
I feel like
the
I can
armor
apply
changes.
that. I feel like I
Yeah.
apply that to a lot of things in this call. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, just how you feel about the overall armor change. I've kind of gotten the sentiment from all you guys. I guess the better direction would be, what would you rather see? Like Spilo's kind of painted his picture. Like he's like, I'd rather this more dynamic version. Sam, you're just kind of like, I would want to take it all away from everyone.
Yeah, I think the tanks and the matchups they're in right now are just I think fundamentally in any PvP game, whether it's Overwatch, it could be Dead by Daylight, it could be anything. Having one role on the map that is significantly more powerful than everything else is just a fundamentally flawed idea that takes away from player agency, that just is not fun to play against, period. And as a DPS player, and this is me speaking from the DPS player side of things right now, like it's just not fun. It's just
boy.
not fun
Apple's
shooting
cooking.
into a
Last box.
matchup like that I cannot win, that I am objectively the weakest into, that even if I make all the right plays and I hit the headshots, I do all these things. There have been so many passive things that have been put on this role, armor, headshot reduction, all of it, that your ability to play make is just significantly reduced unless you play a hero that can just hard sustain it. I just don't think that's good for the game. And that's why I say I want kind of to see all of it walked back. Though I think I'm not going to get into the format discussion today because we have a lot of fun other stuff to talk about. But I think one thing that I talked to Spilo about is like I'm kind of coming to the realization that that's kind of just how it has to be. So I'm kind of torn on what I want to say about that. I just know that it's not fun. It's not fun to fight a Giga Tank.
I would be okay with armor just being gone from the game. I think it's just kind of confusing the first place in terms of like what it's like. Spider said, what is it actually meant to be for? Who is it meant to be countering? You know, we flip flop between different types of armor design and what the value should be, and it's just like at this point, like I don't even care about the healing efficiency anymore. Just like increase the HP if you have to Samito's demise. Although to be fair, I also do agree with this points in general. I don't really like the fact that you just have to deal with this one giant monstrosity in the battlefield that each team has, but I don't know.
I thought you were the 5v5 AVRL. You were the big 5v5 shill, AVRL. Everybody knows that.
You
never
might,
been true. That's never been true.
The big debate too, as well, is, and this is a question that I've kind of asked, and to give Frito credit, even though he's not here right now, SVB, like he also has agreed with this too. Like I don't think that 5v5 had to go this direction. I'm not sold that it had to be that way. I don't think giving tanks more power actually helps the tank role, because you haven't given them, like when you make them both stronger, they're just going to butt heads against each other more. Like you haven't actually necessarily given them options. And you've definitely taken them away from DPS in some regard. So I don't know. This is something that I'd have to think about a lot more before I can give an honest answer. But yeah, back to you, SVB.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just generally true. Like, I think these are all decisions that the developers make that were well within our rights to be like, I'm not even sure we had to do it this way. I know Spilo has given many solutions in the past. Frito's got his own opinions. So basically, we're all a bit confused about armor, what it does. Clearly, the devs are too, because they keep changing it. So I feel like this is something that it will continue to be iterated on, and I don't think there's been a more holistic solution. Like, this is clearly not a final solution. There's going to be another patch, another set of things. So they need to settle on something that's a more long-term solution, something that actually solves the problem that they're trying to address. So we'll see what they come up with. But it feels like for the time being, they're trying to stall for time. Now, let's move on then to the actual heroes. And we'll go with D.Va, which has been much the discussion for as long as I can remember, there has been a lot of community feedback surrounding D.Va lately, as attested by the developer comment. On average, she hasn't been overperforming. Should have seen that one coming, but she's quite difficult to take down. So we're shifting some of her armor to normal health and reducing her max combined health by 25 armor. With armor's effectiveness being hit in the same patch, we'll keep an eye on how this plays out and adjust as necessary. Mech armor health reduced from 375 to 325, and a mech base health increased from 200 to 225. I will just say that this is literally what we said in the, like, we talked about this in the last call, where I was like, if they're gonna give the reasoning for why they're not nerfing D.Va, it's gonna be that, like, well, guys, she's performing fine. I don't give a shit if you're seeing her in every game and it's annoying as fuck. The performance is fine, so that is exactly what we get. But are we happy with the net result of the reduction? I'll take it to Spilo first.
Semi-Vilo.
Well, I was like, there's two
yeah,
S's here I can go with.
Yeah. I think we've had this conversation about D.Va, but the character doesn't work in Overwatch 2 in her current iteration. She's not an initiator. She's too slow. Matrix is not something that she can do as well, both offensively and defensively. And she's too tanky for the damage that she outputs. And then obviously they just increase Matrix, and it's just a big giant mess. She's an enabler. She's an enabler that could do damage in proximity, and that doesn't work in Overwatch 2. Tanks have to be initiators, right? Zarya has to bubble herself, right? Kind of a thing, right? And I think like they will need to address that if they ever want D.Va to be a functional character. And I think this is, I want to point this out really quick, a little quick segue here, a little bit of a commentary on the community. I did a tier list. I'm going to sound like, again, flats here, like I told you so, but I did a tier list, I want to say probably 2 years ago, about like overtuned characters. And D.Va was at the top of that list along with, I think, Kiriko. And this is when D.Va was like not very popular, not very strong. And it wasn't because people were dumb and they just needed to learn that D.Va was OP. D.Va wasn't really OP. She was just overtuned. She had a lot going on for her, but it just didn't really work. It's like having like 1,000 tools in your toolbox that you never use, right? And that's kind of like where D.Va was. Like she had all the armor, she had all the HP, she had this crazy burst damage potential, but it just didn't work in the actual game. There's a lot of tools that just kind of went unused. And I think that's a really important design problem when you have these characters that are overtuned, but they don't have anything to do with them. You need to address not the strength of the character, but where those tools are being used. So what we have now is then what they do is they keep buffing D.Va. Man, she's not being played. I wonder why. It's not because she doesn't have enough in her kit. It's the kit doesn't work in the game. And so they keep buffing the kit until finally it breaks the game. She breaks through the door weighing 600 pounds, been juiced on steroids, and knocks people out like crazy. And we're like, D.Va's the worst. The community wildly overreacts, not realizing that she's basically been almost in this state for a long time. People just haven't figured it out. And then they nerf her. And to be your devil's advocate to what you're saying, SVB, I actually don't. I sympathize with the developers here because it's the same thing with Kiriko. Like Kiriko is overtuned, but it's always struggled with win rate. She's a little bit. We've had the conversation, right? Like, is she hard to play? Is she not hard to play? It's hard to win. Let's say with D.Va, even in the right now of current state, at least compared to a lot of the other tanks. But that doesn't mean that the character isn't overtuned. Right. And I think that that's where it's like really, really tricky. And that's where it's not that it means that it's honestly, you know what it is? Here's what it is. It's going back to push. Mine and AVRL's debate about push. Is D.Va balanced in terms of win rate now? Is push balanced in terms of win rate versus first fight, whatever? Maybe, maybe not. But the design is flawed. It feels awful. And that's the problem, right? That's kind of like what needs to be hammered out with D.Va right now, is that she is this really slow enabler dive tank that just doesn't work. Like, you need to be addressing her bomb and her matrix and her movement speed, and at the same time cutting down the armor. So there is no knob that you could just tweak with D.Va to make her a healthy character. You can't do it. You have to address some of the issues that haven't aged as well in Overwatch 2. I was talking about this with Sam yesterday. I wish they'd do that more aggressively, even if they over or under-tune D.Va. I hate the Matrix tweaks. I hate the HP tweaks. It's a good short-term fix to take an obnoxious character out of the meta right now. People are still freaking out over D.Va because community is very snowbally. They'll once something's in their brain, it's just fixated for like months. But I think that has to be. We talked about this yesterday. Again, like I think that there's just been a fundamental flaw with tanks in Overwatch 2, where the developers just haven't really done much aggressively to change hero kit designs Whereas the DPS and support role, characters like Lifeweaver, even kind of hit or miss things like they did with Sombra, Bastion, and so on, they're trying stuff out, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. Sojourn, right? Another one, right? Where things are actually like, hey, you know what? But with tank, they just don't do anything. Like, we just tweak knobs, and we've done so for 2.5 years. Or not 2.5 years, or passives for 2 years, excuse me. And they can't do that. Like, all the Roadhog rework changed nothing with the character, right? I mean, seriously, what tank has changed? Like, what tank has had, like, oh, this character has like, even Ball, I was talking about this with Sam, even Ball, like, the adaptive shield sharing and retract are, like, really cool changes. Like, I like it, but it doesn't change any of the pain points of Ball, which is he sucks versus CC. If you don't have CC, you literally cannot kill him because he has literally quadruple your health pool. Actually, 5 times your health pool as I'm spitting on my mic, right? These are the things that I think, like, while we're waiting for this whole 6v6 test, if that's what really we're doing,
Which will solve it.
Let's try some stuff, you know? Like, let's try some stuff. Let's make these characters kits more interesting, and, like, let's see what we can learn. Like, we got nothing to lose, right? So anyway,
Great tank debate. We always come back to it. It's
Yeah.
just, it's the classic one. I'm not gonna lie.
One thing that
It's
you
a
want to go
linchpin.
Avril? You want to go Avril?
The only thing, honest, because that was great for Spilo. There was, honestly, I don't have much to add except to say, what do you mean D.Va can't initiate? You just fly through the speed ring, bro. That's how you initiate. That's what you gotta do. That's what you gotta do.
My favorite part were all, like, the trash can hit scan players were like, what do you mean D.Va? It's impossible to stay away from D.Va. And I'm like, dude, like, without speed ring, she's actually so slow. I guess it's a map by map thing, but yeah, anyway.
You just turn on the NOS through the speed ring. It's like, yo, this guy's he's hitting the
Yeah,
quarter mile
true,
on the 10 for sure.
Yeah, true.
Damn.
So to add on to that, I'm shocked you didn't bring up micro missiles because her time to kill.
Yeah, true.
I have a clip last night where I'm on May and I wall myself up onto the window attacking King's Third when the D.Va's there. And she kills me as fast as a fucking Widowmaker. Like, she gets her and, like, you see my jaw drop, and I'm just like,
Yeah, it's
like,
those peaks. See, that will stick with you for
Yeah.
a week, and you'll think
Yeah.
that D.Va's damage is insane. But then I'll coach, like, some platinum D.Va player, and
He
she
just
can't
won't use
quite
them.
close the distance, and she just gets
Yeah.
destroyed. She does
Yeah.
0 damage. And, like,
Yeah.
again, that's like, it's like those extremes, but, like, we're not
There's
doing
no-
nothing to
it's-
address
it's
that.
impossible to do, and, like, that's what I think is genuinely unsolvable. Like, I think
For a hero like D.Va, maybe so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you cannot have a hero with that health pool have that kind of time to kill on a squishy, and you just can't. Like, especially a squishy hero, that, like, a hero like Soldier or a hero like Cass is a bit better because he can roll and his roll's been buffed quite a bit. But, like, something Yeatle talked about quite a bit was mobility creep, and granted, that's more so on Ball, but, like, it almost forces those type of characters to get played. And this is where I feel for the devs. Like, this is why, like, the past year I've been like, yo, I genuinely don't see a way where you can solve this. And they're gonna try. I think the first thing they're gonna try is that thing they talked about where it's like you have like damage mitigation abilities, like being better against beams, like DM, like mitigating beam damage. I just don't think that's also a healthy solution, but it's the kind of stuff that you have to do. So yeah,
as long as you tune down her HP as a result
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
thing.
it's hard, and this is why I really do feel for them. But this is the corner they chose, and I think SPB. I think we're at the end of that road now, where we're starting to realize, like, the reality of the situation. Where it's like, okay, some of these heroes just might need to stay, like, kind of on the farm. Like, it kind of sucks, but it is what it is. So I really wish that they had. What they could do is they could they need to revert the micro missile buff. Like, do y'all know how much that buff was? That was like a 25 to 30% damage increase on micro missiles. It went from about 40 to like 55, 58-ish. Like, it was a big damage buff. Maybe they could increase the flight speed but mitigate the damage. And this is where, Avril, you kind of talked about the tanks where they, like, when I think, was it July that we had this? We were last on.
Bomb's
together,
also a
guys?
huge problem too. I will
Yeah,
say.
bombs.
remember.
You can't really initiate. But the one thing you suggested is either make the tanks more squishy like DPS and let them keep their damage, or make them higher health with less damage. I think that you were right about the lower health with more damage. I think that makes every character more relative to each other, and that makes a PvP game more fun. But if they're gonna have this health pool with this level of armor and this much headshot reduction and this many passives, then they have to have less damage. But is that fun for a tank player? And now we're stuck.
No, and that's
So-
the problem. You can't make tanks, and Gavin said this, was like, yeah, we could just not make them, we can make them a lot weaker, but then no one's going to queue tank. And it's the reason why is because tank isn't fun unless tanks are doing damage. And in fact, I will say that unless you are either making a health bar increase or decrease, you're not having fun because you don't feel like your impact is felt. Most people who play tank, unless you're like a really good tank player who's just only interested in winning, you don't feel good about winning a game where you just sit there as a punching bag the whole time. You feel good about winning a game if you actually dealt damage and contributed to the kill feed and got the kills done. So yeah, you can't go down the pathway of make them tanky with no damage. You have to go down the pathway of make them do damage but not tanky, in which case they're not tanks anymore, in which case you kill the tanks, in which case I sledgehammer, break my glass again, and you just kill tank as well, which is what I said months ago.
Yeah.
Right.
All right,
Well,
that's the
let's
diva.
move
Here we
on
go.
from the diva section. I think those are all really great, points that you guys all brought up, and kind of big holistic problems that, in many ways, we've brought up time and time again. Right? Spilo talking about like, well, we need a more dynamic approach. Sam is like, well, I don't even know if we can do it with 5v5, and AVRL keen to break the glass as always. And I'll chime in on my stereotype classic thing, which is I just don't think they've done enough big changes. Like I think I agree with Spilo that like, what have we actually seen them do other than tweak these like big passive numbers? I still question where the actual changes to tanks have been, like the actual individual
One correction.
changes. Yeah.
One thing that they have tried, much to mine and Samito's chagrin, is that they have, I think, tried overtuned tanks. Just like flat out raid boss tanks, right? and honestly,
To everyone's
like,
chagrin.
well, maybe, but like they must have play numbers, not just in terms of the tank roll, obviously, because that's going to go up, but like the overall quality of life, how people enjoy it. And I know that like us purists over here are going to be tearing out our hair, but like, I mean, tank roll in a PvP shooter is just hard. So yeah, anyway, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard. This is so complex. And again, we kind of shoot in the dark. The developers have some data that they're balancing off. But again, even that is like, data is not objective as people like to think it is. Like it requires interpretation. And it's like, well,
Right.
let's say that, let's say you buff tanks and actually more people are playing. Well, is that because a lot of people are playing tank, queue times are shorter, and so people are actually just happier with shorter queue times? That's just an example off the top of my head where it's like
Yeah.
causation
Yeah.
and
Open queue,
causation
though,
and correlation isn't the same thing, right? It's like, well, people are just happier that they're shorter queue times, but in the long term, they're less satisfied with
Yep.
the fight against tanks. So it's like we don't.
Yep.
It's hard to really gauge these as an immediate impact. The best we can say is like potential analysts of the game is like, as AVRL and has done in particular, is like, I don't like the philosophy of this. Like, this doesn't feel right to me, and this isn't the direction of the game that I want to see. So the devs can, of course, have their own direction that they feel comfortable with. But again, even from the outside looking in, it doesn't feel to me like they've... Like, I don't think the developers could sit here and be like, yeah, this is the final version. This is what will work. Like, there's no shot
they're not
that
doing that either.
they
Yeah, they're
believe
not
that, right? So it's like, if that's not the case, then what is the solution? Where do you see the long-term logistical like balance where it's like, yeah, this will be a good equilibrium. Like at this point, tanks will feel good enough, but and I don't think this is even remotely there. So, okay, let's move on to Orisa. Not a huge one, but it says, developer comment: we still don't want Orisa to easily chase down enemies while fortified, since there's not much you can do to fight back during that time. So while we're not removing the movement speed penalty entirely, we are lowering it to a point where it will still feel much better for Orisa to use. And to that end, 4-5 movement speed penalty reduced from 20 to 10%. Sam.
Can we just remove the movement penalty and let us headshot her and fortify? She's got the headshot
Yes.
passive anyway. That was one of the
Speak your
worst changes they ever did in Overwatch 1, and it single-handedly cemented double shield because you could not run past the shield and brawl her and shoot her in the head as a Reaper or any of the brawl characters that should be able to get the kill on her. It would allow Orisa players to be way more versatile. Like, Orisa should be able to walk on kills. The problem is not that she can walk on kills. The problem is that they're fucking super tanks and that she has no risk for walking on half these kills against half the cast in the fucking game.
Yes.
So
It
like,
sucks for both the
allows
Orisa and the DPS.
it's just you're shackling yourselves here with some of this stuff. So I think that's an easy solution that they could do and make Orisa playing against Orisa feel a lot better. Now you might have to tweak some of her like armor values and stuff to make that happen, but that's an easy way to make her a lot healthier. And like in the low ranks, like they're they're going to be shooting at her anyway. So I think it gives opportunity to a lot more sides. And I think that there's one thing that I've learned from like playing the 6v6 code and 6v6 test, and one thing that they really nailed with 6v6 and Overwatch 1. I had to go back to this, but they really did have this part of the game right. Was that every matchup, I think, not only could swing either way, but like there was risk associated with it. And a guy that I know actually who plays a lot on Mindplex Clans, a guy named Ezra, had a video get like 100K views like of him talking about playing the 6v6 code. And he said like at first I was kind of feeding it tank, but I actually liked it more because everything I was doing had a risk and I could get reward from it, especially if the other tank is also more killable as well. Like this is where it's like, if you just buff both tanks, like I said, they're just going to butt heads with each other. You're not actually giving them playmaking opportunity, but you can give Orisa that playmaking opportunity. Just associate risk with it, and like allowing her to at least be crit when you've now given every tank the headshot passive, I think is an easy solution to. Hey, besides, what was it? Was it Jeff FCV that said that, like, yeah, like they tried a slow effect on Lucio or something like that, and then they took slow off of Doomslam. Like when you are slowed, like it's generally not received well by the player. And so, like, when you're using your sustainability, like being slowed probably just doesn't feel great. Like, listen, I know people hate on Orisa. I understand. I get it. But, you know, I don't have a problem with Orisa having playmaking potential if there's risk associated with it. So that's I think, an easy change that could go a long way for people who like to play Orisa.
Okay, in the interest of time, does anyone have any else more significant to add on Orisa? AVRL, you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Roadhog. Again, a lot of these changes are not massively drastic, so I don't think they will require too much discussion. So take a breather, resource regeneration rate increase from 8 to 10. Developer comments, this is a reversion to Roadhog's previous resource regeneration rate to improve his primary tanking abilities uptime. There were several adjustments to reduce the power disability, but they may not have been necessary as Roadhog has been underperforming for some time now. And who's got strong feelings on this one? AVRL, how about you? He's thinking.
I mean, Roadhog is weak. Roadhog is weak, but it's like, dude, I always just go back to thinking about what Spilo said about Roadhog. It's like the rework hasn't worked. I don't really know what to do with Roadhog at this stage. I guess this is another like Band-Aid situation. It's like, well, his win rate's pretty bad. Maybe we'll just give him a little bit more. We'll just give him a little something that won't annoy people playing against Roadhog that much, but maybe help Roadhog out a little bit. Make him a tanky without increasing his HP kind of deal. Or
is this not just such a fundamentally stupid enterprise, though? Is this not just such a fundamentally stupid enterprise, or we just do this over and over, where we're like, "Hey guys, I know we know you hate Roadhog, so we're nerfing him. Oh shit, he's not getting played a little bit for a month. Okay, guys, we're gonna buff him now. Oh no, guys, he's being played everywhere, and you're miserable again. Oh no, guys. Okay, we'll nerf him, bro. Just change the hero." Like, please.
No, but they don't know how to change. They either do know how to change the hero and it's taking a long time to implement because it's a complicated change, or they don't. And I honestly, I don't even blame them for not knowing, because it's a tough hero to what are you supposed to do?
Hero in the game to fix.
Maybe Spilo has it because he's put a lot of time into probably thinking about most heroes and how they got to change. But like, I don't know what you're supposed to do with this hero. Most people just want him deleted. He's just a He suffers from two things. He suffers from the tank problem that Samito and I have talked about, and then he suffers from his own individual design issue, what Spilo's talked at length about. So it's like a double-ended thing.
Yep.
Yeah, all I will say is this shit is ass. But does Sam or Spilo any sort of significant? I do think it's a sunk cost.
It is.
I do think it's a sunk cost. Yeah,
they put a lot of work in the They put a lot of work in the rework. They just removed counterplay ability without adding any sort of playmaking potential, which is the opposite of a rework. A rework should not introduce removing counterplay brainlessly. It should introduce skillful counterplay and or give the person more options. The only thing that Roadhog did is now he can do everything with no punishment, but it didn't actually make the gameplay experience of playing versus a Roadhog much more interesting. Like, look at the Sombra rework, right? I know a lot of people don't like it. I know it's far from perfect, but at least it also made the Sombra more punishable while giving the Sombra more interesting options as well. And like, the Roadhog is the reason why Roadhog is like the whole tank buster that he is now is because of the vape change. Because you can't punish him for utilizing the vape. So like, there is no like counterplay to that whatsoever. So there's no risk from the Roadhog. There's no risk from the Roadhog. So it's not as interesting to play the Roadhog. And it's just a mess. And like, when I cooked with the Roadhog changes before, I had to come up with like some pretty aggressive, weird stuff to make him work. I think he's just behind Widowmaker in terms of unfixable. And I think that the developers, I don't know what their dev time looks like, but you either need to leave him a little bit weak, pretty significantly weak, or you need to do something very, very aggressive with him. These number tweaks are totally a waste of time.
Do you know what a successful Roadhog rework looks like, guys? I can tell you right now.
What?
It's called Junker Queen.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
that's what a successful Roadhog rework looks like.
Because he can move. She can move. And the hook isn't a kill. It's an initiation.
Literally, Junker Queen is Roadhog reworked. So it was like, oh, they already did a rework. Unfortunately, it's a brand new character. So now you can't actually do the rework that would save Roadhog because it's already a brand new character. So what are you meant to do now? They've actually shot themselves in the foot. They could have just like remade him into Junker Queen and be like, oh, there you go. That's the rework. Successful rework done. But it's too late, They were too smart. They were ahead of themselves. You're 2 steps ahead. Unfortunately, too many steps ahead. Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason not to have a similar hero with just a different flavor, right? Like, I don't think just because they made Junker Queen successful, they're like, well, we can't do that again. Well, it's like, you can, guys. You kind of, you can definitely just make, you have fucking Soldier and McCree and Ash, or sorry, Cassidy and Ash, and like 5 hit scan who like kind of shoot and then have minorly different things. You can do the same with this, and you can have the hook function in a different way, and it's still a Roadhog hook.
I don't
And
think it's worth their time. I really do think. Sorry, SB, to cut you off. I would just wait till after 6v6. Please just wait.
I got an idea. I got an idea. You can make it like Nautilus in League of Legends, where he pulls himself to the target and they both hit each other, and he
They
just
did it in the
belly slams the
Content
target like
Creator
that.
No,
Bam!
he gets a belly jiggle thing on him, and he just like
Yeah,
body,
he pulls
it's like a
himself
body
in,
slam.
and the other guy. Yeah, he's basically a body slam. You both meet halfway. You pull the target, you meet halfway, and you just body slam with your big belly because you're Roadhog, and that's the hook. That's the new hook. That's hook 10.0. You know, whatever version of hook we're up to.
Oh god. Oh god.
I will say that hooks in any game people just don't like. Like Deadlock has a character that hooks, people don't like it. Pudge, obviously, where Roadhog comes
Bebop
from,
is fun, but I
he
know
is
you
fun,
mean.
but
I know
people
what
are
you
like, no. Yeah, I also find him fun,
mean. He's
but
fun to play as, not against.
yes, but when you get
I
hooked
understand
from
what you mean.
downtown, it's like, oh well, fuck's sake. Like I've just been yoinked from
Difference
nowhere.
is everyone's got so much movement in Deadlock, maybe it
Yes.
doesn't matter. But back to Overwatch, like it gives Hog some risk because now you can't just hook from the whole map away and pull the other guy to your team. You are now at risk because you go in as well. But now you can be clever and use it as initiation to go in, like a tank should. No, so yeah, isn't this a good idea?
Well, it's certainly better than what
Unironically-
current. It's certainly better than what currently
Ironically, a
exists.
good idea.
But we'll move
Alec,
on.
get the phone to Alec. Where's Alec Dawson at?
I don't think he'll ever listen to this podcast with how much.
SVB, your watch time on this podcast is about to be record breaking. I'm here for it.
All right. Well, I mean, we've had like 4-hour podcasts before, so this is going there
know.
basically.
Yeah, we're getting there,
I'm
baby.
usually on the 4-hour ones. It's my fault.
I
It's
think
good. No, it's good. It's good.
I think I mentioned it to like when it was the PvE debacle discussion, and we had like it was us plus some Seagull, like the Avengers plus Seagull, and I think I mentioned in the group chat where I was like, guys, this has like 100,000 hours of watch time. Like we have destroyed humanity. Like imagine the amount of like good that humanity could have done with like 100,000 hours of watch time that we've just spent on talking about the PvE of Overwatch. Like this is just actually sad.
Hey, Borderlands
right
4
now.
next year though, so
I'm
ready.
I'll tell you right now. There's worse things that people spend 100,000 hours watching. so,
true.
don't worry about it.
True.
Don't
Like
worry about it at
K-pop.
all.
Oh god, no, Sam,
That was a
no,
joke. I was
No,
joking.
don't summon
I
the
was joking, I
fucking-
swear.
bro. You two,
Me and my
two-
girlies are coming for you, mate.
Two
Me and my
stands you
girls are
don't.
coming.
Two sets of stands you don't fuck with. You don't fuck with K-pop stands. You don't fuck with Taylor Swift fans, right? Like it's
Oh, I
just
can take them.
universal rules. You do
know
not
what?
fuck with these
the,
guys.
The Venn diagram overlaps pretty significantly there.
It
SVB.
does,
Yeah,
which
nice.
tells you that you don't fuck
They
with them,
overlap.
man. It tells you you don't fuck with them, man. They got shooters. They got shooters out here. Okay, speaking
kidding,
of
I
Sigma, Hypersphere's impact damage reduced from 25 to 15, but the explosion damage is increased from 30 to 40 and no longer deals damage to self. Developer comment: this shift is in damage for the Hypersphere's direct impact into the explosion component is to improve the effectiveness of the airburst explosion when playing at max range and makes it more threatening against tightly grouped enemies. Is that the case, Spilo?
Yes. That's all.
Are you happy?
He doesn't need it.
No,
No.
he doesn't need
He
it.
doesn't need it.
Okay.
It does not need
Not a good change.
We talk about the
It's more-
self-damage.
Yeah, it's a pretty big buff. It's a pretty big buff, and I think not in a really super interesting way. So just, I think
Didn't
we
they-
need to revert this.
Didn't they ruin some of the tech?
Right.
Of, like,
I was
some
going
of
to
the
say,
jump tech
like the
with
jump up,
with
but
the self damage. Yeah, I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah,
Am I wrong about that?
Yeah,
ever
but
uses
the only,
those.
ro-
Yeah.
the, o-
It
the
was a
only
Creation.
rollout, well, that was actually, yeah, I think that's more of the Creation than anything else. But honestly, yeah, it's
no,
kind
you
of a-
needed it. But I
kind of-
remember there was one in Hanamura which doesn't exist anymore. Like you had a
yeah,
tech
first
that you
point
could jump
Hanamura
into the
defense.
window,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that
Can
was
they-
like what you
can
needed to
they-
do the thing.
Can they at least allow you to do the tech even without the self damage? Was self damage required? Either way, I prefer tech to remain. I don't like it when you delete tech in the game. I'm not a fan of that.
I think they did that with Zarya, but they added that you could still right-click jump, but it doesn't do damage anymore. So
Yeah, can we
Potentially.
restore the tech at least? I don't
It
care
does
about the
damage,
self damage,
though.
but restore the tech.
anyways,
Hashtag restore the
Oh, with
tech.
bubbles.
for
right.
the one map where we don't play it anymore, where it's useful, yeah.
Get
All right, let's
quit,
do it.
John.
Yeah. Bash, we're moving on to the damage category, then, since you guys are kind of like, well, unnecessary buff and not needed, but I guess it does what it says on the tin. Bastion, configuration assault spread reduced from 2.2 to 2 degrees, And the artillery, his ultimate cost reduced by 12%. Developer comments, the spread reduction is intended to improve the assault mode's weapons' effective range against smaller targets, while not changing much in regard to how good it is against tank heroes and their large sizes. I heard a chuckle from Spilo, so I'll go to him first.
I'm gonna take the words out of Samito's mouth. Where like I'm a big Bastion hater, but like it's really funny how like as soon as we move out of the tank category, the changes get interesting.
Yeah.
Like
AVRL,
that's interesting. It does. They're very deliberately not anti-tank, but yeah.
Yeah,
I think this is good. Go ahead.
Okay.
Adam.
what like oh okay, it says to improve assault mode's weapon effective range against small targets. Why? Like I think it's important that Bastion having powerful abilities like the tank mode with the turret to have clear weaknesses. Like why are we removing weaknesses or lowering the weaknesses by allowing him to duel people at long range? Like dude, that just doesn't sound good to me. It's like he's already strong as fuck when he uses the turret. And one of the ways you deal with that is like you can just outrange him. For him to better duel you at range doesn't make sense to me. It's like that just makes that ability even stronger. If anything, it's like if you want him to better duel characters at a specific range that's longer, give him better accuracy during his recon form or something. Why this change? It just seems weird to me. And also, I don't know. I've never been a big fan of the artillery ultimate in the first place. I still think it's probably bottom 2 worst ultimates in the game, maybe bottom 1. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's cheaper, I guess. Sure, it's still not a very good ultimate.
What I'll say, and the reason why I like this is that like they acknowledge artillery's bad. Configuration tank, it would have been a better ultimate for this game. I think that was that was a prime example of a rework just for the sake of a rework to something that just didn't need to happen. I think hot take they should bring back tank form as an ultimate. I think it had better skill expression. It was more fun. It's more fun to watch.
It doesn't even need to be a one shot to be useful too. It could still be like 180 damage and still be
and
like.
it had tech. You could do tech.
Rocket jumps. It was fun. It was fun.
I love
and
tech.
This one is stationary. You're vulnerable. It's a worse version of Riptire. Well, ironically, this ult would have been better in Overwatch 1, and the tank form would have been better in this game. So, I mean, again, there's no way to really know till you get there. But I think that configuration tank was just a better ultimate to play against, to play with. Well, not to play against, I guess, because this one's really fucking bad. But yeah,
it was more dynamic. It was more fun.
Yeah,
there's more you could do with it than just.
It's fun to deflect. A big
tank shot. Yes.
Okay, let's move on then to the roly boy, Cassidy. Flashbang. Oh god. Every time I read the words hinder and flashbang, I think part of me dies. But hinder duration reduced from 1.2 to 0.9. Explosion damage increased from 45 to 75. And his Deadeye ultimate cost reduced by 10%. Developer comments. Reducing how impactful the hinder effect is by lowering its duration, as this crowd control can be a significant source of frustration for players. Since now there's less time to follow up with the shots on the weapon while the opponent is hindered, we're increasing the explosion damage of flashbang. Sam, how do you feel about this one?
I'm pretty neutral on it, to be honest. I think, like, I like that they're willing to change the direction on it. It didn't change too many breakpoints. That damage is going to be pretty lethal, especially with those Deadeye buffs as well. I think the reason why Cass is not getting played right now is not because he's bad. It's because D.Va and Ram just, like, gatekeep really, really hard. If, he might find his way back into some playtime in some of these brawl comps. But I just... to be honest with you, like, I think DPS as a role is so, I don't want to say unimpactful, but it kind of is unimpactful right now. I don't think it's going to change a whole lot of what is going on in the big picture, because supports and tanks are very, very powerful. But it's an interesting change. I think the Deadeye change they did a while ago was really, really good. And like as Spilo and I talked about, you see more fundamental changes come to like a lot of these DPS heroes that, are actually like pretty good. So I think they're handling the DPS role pretty well right now.
How would you concur?
Yeah, I like when they try stuff. I think it's definitely a pretty big buff in the 1v1 matchups, which is you're gonna have to balance around that. But it does make it so that like it's not just autopilot spam on tank for the super nasty debuff. It's like it's kind of useful in duels now, and so like I know it is going to bring Cassidy back in, and Hinder as a whole is like I feel like probably the worst CC in the game in terms of like how easy it is to spam and how annoying it is to play versus. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. I like I said, even if it's a miss, at least they're trying stuff.
Do you think Hinder is less healthy than the stun was in Overwatch 1? Like, what's worse, Hinder or the original?
The
Flashbang
problem
stun?
with Hinder, which is partially alleviated by giving it actual damage now, is that stun had dynamics because you could use it proactively to set up plays.
Like on right.
Hinder as the slow is not something you can use aggressively almost at all. It's almost strictly used defensively. You don't go push forward. I'm going to go push forward and hinder the Ryan. It doesn't work like that
Well,
because it's more about
rush forward and
reducing their
hinder a squishy. You hinder a squish and kill them.
Right. So it's exclusively used in squishy 1v1s essentially and it's mostly for its damage. So I think like as a whole, the type of CC just makes it less interesting.
Because the problem is they can't clearly like the problem is they just don't know where to land with the flashbang. They don't want to use the stun because they're trying to reduce the amount of CC in the game, or at least what CC is available. They don't want it to be as like unfun to play again. So they don't want to be hard CC, right? That's been the general design direction. And so they don't know what to do with this flashbang ability. They try to make it magnetic grenade. They don't want it, but then people had problems with it being super easy to use and also just being like a raw damage thing. And I feel like the other problem is, if flashbang, if his utility is just raw damage, that doesn't feel funny. That this guy just does burst damage now. Whatever, that's not interesting. So it can't be that, but it can't be CC. So what is it supposed to be? What are you supposed to do with this ability? It just seems like a weird place to even though it's interesting enough, it's weird because you could argue some other DPS just has on an ability just raw damage, raw burst. Like Soldier is raw burst, Sojin is raw burst. You can go down the list. Echo is raw burst. Hanzo's
a lot of
entire
damage
kit is
shows are just pressure. Just pressure is like general and different types of pressure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to do with this. I think it would be a boring. Like, imagine if this didn't do hinder at all and it was a pure damage grenade. It'd be kind of boring a design, right? So I guess maybe that's why they don't want to go in that direction.
I think it's fine right now.
Okay. Moving on to Hanzo then. Storm Bow.
Oh, this is a big one for Sam.
One. It is.
Ooh.
Normal arrows are no longer affected by the global projectile size increases. Maximum damage increase from 120 to 125, and time to fully charge increase from 0.72 to 0.87 seconds. Developer comment. This change restores Hanzo's one-hit headshot kill against 250 HP targets, though require more accuracy with smaller projectile size. It is now slower to charge shots to reduce the frequency of projectiles being thrown out. After trying the recent iterations of Hanzo post-Season 9, we feel the one-shot capability is too essential to the core gameplay feel of those sniper heroes similar to Widowmaker, without a much larger rework. Being limited to a smaller range of heroes that could be one-shot, 2 to 5 HP and below, added some texture to the hero matchups, but wasn't a satisfying compromise for either side. Sam, we'll go to you first, of course, for Hanzo. How do you feel? He's shaking his head.
Like this half-C stuff. Just admit we were wrong. Okay, let me challenge this a little bit, SPV. Okay, every OG Hanzo player, a lot of them, explain to me how we're gonna say we're worried about like volume of arrows coming out, but Storm Arrow is not getting the nerfs. That's the spam. That's the spammiest part of his kit is when they can just pop out Storm Arrow and just go, and it's the best ability against tanks as well. So I don't see how Storm Arrow is not the part of his kit that gets nerfed there. I just don't. Nerfing the draw speed. It's years of muscle memory where, like, to be honest, it's just a complete unnecessary compensation when you also reduce his projectile size. It's not necessary, and God forbid you get on a West server where you have more ping. The amount of times where you hit a headshot that you should hit and you just don't get the kill is a lot. Not to mention, you also already removed his ability to pre-charge an arrow when you're wall climbing and quickly pop up and shoot somebody. You've nerfed this dude enough. He's also at 225 HP, and he doesn't even have an ultimate because when you sped up Dragon Strike, you made it worse. Especially post-Season 9. Dragon Strike doesn't kill a Bob. It doesn't kill a Bob. So you can't even zone the space. You can't kill the tank. It doesn't break deployables. Moira Coalescence is getting damage buffs to compensate for Season 9, and Dragon Strike isn't. They have no idea what to do with this character. No idea what to do with this character. None. And so he's gotten nerf after nerf after nerf after nerf, and his identity is still gone. Like, the Shimadas are a fall off. Like, there is some sort of internal hate to the Shimadas in the Blizzard team. I don't know what it is. But
Blizzard or Hashimoto confirmed.
Yeah, they're Hashimoto. They're Hashimoto confirmed. Like, it baffles me that they have not taken a look at things like Dragon Blade. Like, I hate to take this back to Genji, but like, it needs to be studied. So like they just don't know what to do with this character. Like sure this helps him, but it feels terrible to play. And as a net, he's still way worse. Like he was like even preseason 8, way back. Maybe Hanzo just had his time in the game, and he had a good like from his first rework to like, I guess Overwatch 2 when he first started getting nerfed. Like he definitely was like a pretty good pick. Maybe he's just, it's his time to be on the farm. But man, like they have not captured what his old identity was like. Granted, I'm not the Hanzo player I was. I'm not claiming to be, but like the fact that things like Dragon Strike get changed the way they do and they won't address it, and there's plenty of ways that aren't oppressive to players to like at least make him a little bit better. Like Dragon Strike destroying deployables is something that I've said. Like speeding it up is not the answer. Just give it the damage it deserves again, and just stop
Make it
nerfing
longer.
his charge time. Make it longer.
It
You
can be
could do that.
fast. Make it longer so that it
Longer.
lasts
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah, like there has to be some compensations here. And this is why, I kind of wanted to make a video talking about season 9. I don't like how they're just picking and choosing the favorites that get the benefit like Moira, but then Dragon Strike gets left, but Blade just gets faster swing speed, but not the damage that it needs through breakpoints. Like with healing being much easier to access in this game than in the old game, with support abilities generally being a little bit stronger. I just feel like it's missed the mark. So like as a Hanzo player, like I tried playing it. It's just his problems are still there. You still just get absolutely bulldozed, and you don't have the 250 HP or the sustainability. It's like Widow can clean grapple out if she gets dove, right? Cass can roll, Surge can slide. Like all of these heroes can do these things, and Hanzo is just sitting there like, well, I'll wall climb, but even if I wall climb, I now lost my ability to do damage because I can't precharge my arrow anymore. So it's just you've nerfed him too much. The fact that you guys think you have to give him the draw time on top of all of this just shows like I don't know what internally like they think about this character. They've just got it wrong. I don't care if Gold sit there and claim that every headshot that they get hit with is somehow RNG. That's just hard cope. I'm sorry, that's cope. Stop it. Okay, Widow doesn't take more skill because she requires more aim. Every hit scan has higher base accuracy, higher crit rate, higher all these things. It is easier to hit more shots on hit scan. It is more consistent than it is on projectile. That does not mean the hit scan doesn't take skill. That does not mean that sometimes projectiles are random RNG. That doesn't mean you need to make that does not mean you need to make the hero worse. So I think they keep trying to compensate him, which is just silly, and it's just I still think he's untouchable.
You have to decide, you being like Blizzard here or just whatever, like you have to decide, is this hero a sniper or not? I think that's the fundamental.
Yes, yes,
agreed.
yes.
Like,
I think
yeah.
the solution with Hanzo is just to give him fall off damage. Honestly, like I know it's weird to do that with projectiles, but like I think like most people's like the people that generally I respect who have problems with Hanzo is more due to the fact that he doesn't have a clear effective range, where you don't really know how do you, and a lot of it is due to Storm Arrow, to Sam's credit, which I think a lot of people agree with. But like, if you're playing Ashe or Zen or Cassidy, generally it's hard to know how to take the Cassidy generally pretty close range to be honest. But like with Storm Arrow and the long range threat of a one shot, where is Hanzo's effective range? I would prefer to actually have him be the proper medium range sniper. I'm okay with him having the one shot. Just give him fall off and do something around Storm Arrow. But it is a little bit awkward. And I agree with Sam, especially stuff like the induct, not being able to induct while you're wall climbing, Dragon Strike being exactly what it is really a travesty. So
it's just the problem with like having a bow weapon in the game. Every single game that has a bow weapon suffers from the same problem. The difference is if it's in a PvE game, it doesn't matter because like the bots will never complain about you destroying them. But in a PvP game, it's a problem because a bow requires functionally that you draw the bowstring back, which takes time. So therefore, your attack speed is going to be low. Your time between shots is not going to be high. But if your time between shots is low, that means you need to be doing a lot of damage with each shot. So you just end up in the situation where you become some sort of projectile sniper, and it doesn't feel fun dying to that because it feels kind of RNG. Every time I die to Hanzo, it's infuriating because I'm like, dude, I walked into the shot. He got lucky. He wasn't even aiming. I died to Widowmaker. I'm like, oh, it's a pretty good shot. I can see the skill there. I died to Hanzo. I was like, that was just bullshit. So, yeah, I don't know. But maybe Spilo's got it. Maybe you make him a medium range sniper, so at least you understand where the lethal range is.
It's more consistent that way too, because it's much easier to be predictable about where the shot's going to go when the person has a tenth of a second less time to react to it, if that makes sense. Like it's more closer to a hit scan if it's in more medium range. It is just throwing an arrow across the map kind of a thing, where you're basically kind of Kiriko like spamming at head height.
The one danger of that though is like it still will feel RNG at closer range. Like because with Widowmaker, it's like you get close to Widowmaker, and there's a tangible benefit you're getting. You're like, okay, I've closed the distance on the sniper. I can now duel her, and she's gonna have to rely on her SMG. With Hanzo, it's like you're Tracer, and you go at him. Well, he just goes, woo, and then you're like, oh shit, I was on his screen, and I died to it.
Hanzo's punishment is the induction slows his movement speed significantly, which means that he's at a massive disadvantage in a close range 1v1 because his movement is much worse. That's where Storm Arrow has problems.
So is Widowmaker's, but Widowmaker's doesn't one-shot you.
What do you mean?
Widowmaker also gets slowed when you're scoping, but also when you're like SMGing, you're like just quite obvious a target to hit.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I don't fully understand.
But you don't one-shot. But you don't like the point is that I'm not saying that this is or isn't a thing that should be the thing, but I'm saying the argument would be you still get one shot at that close range. So like he's not really a sniper.
Right,
even at a medium range.
But it's still but it's a good shot. Like you can, like I guess it's like that would be like basically a hit scan shot, and that's like wow, that's incredible. Like I don't know, I
don't know. I feel like there should be. I don't know if this is feasible in the game. But I feel like it should be that he's effective at a certain range. Maybe that's too much, but like I'm imagining like a box, right? It's like here's Hanzo. Yeah. There's the max range which he's effective, and then there's like a minimum range where he's not effective either. Because I just don't like the like. Maybe I'm just bad, but on the occasions that I play Tracer and you get close to Hanzo, I don't like that feeling of like, boom, like you're just on his screen and like you're just dead, right? Like it's like, oh well, I'm not really sure I'm not convinced that was at my head, or it was just I was in his screen. But again,
right,
there could be a skill issue. So I also think the other part of this is that I think Season 9 made this more problematic. Like the whole, I felt like that was bullshit. I'm just not a fan of the Season 9 changes of like the hitboxes, just being bigger, because there's that frequency of like I'm not sure that should. Was that?
It's gone. Spectre normal.
In Hanzo's case, at least they're gone.
Yeah, in Hanzo's, but I'm saying they're making this change for that reason. But the general bullshitification of like, oh, I got hit by a thing, and I'm not sure I should have got hit by that thing, has increased post Season 9, which adds to this feeling of like, wow, I got RNG'd by a Hanzo or a Junkrat or whatever insert character that you feel you got, or even on a sleep dart isn't one that people. Like, wow, I got hit around the corner by that sleep dart.
Right.
So I feel like that's another factor in this. Any other thoughts on Hanzo before we move on?
Please adjust Dragon Strike or look to do it. Please. That's all.
Okay. Venture. Explorer's Resolve, which is their passive. Shield health gained per ability reduced from 40 to 30. As a highly mobile damage hero, Venture doesn't need quite as much shield health from their passive as they currently get to be successful. Even though they are a close range hero, their abilities enable them to close the gap quickly and effectively without taking much damage. So yeah, nerf to Venture, good or bad? AVRL.
Sure.
Probably a good nerf, because I think free value like that is just, it doesn't seem like a good thing. Like why, heroes like Doom have to actually land the abilities to get the shield, but Venture just gets it for free. I don't know. It's never sat well with me. So to be fair, I think Venture has some good weaknesses baked in, and I'll make the DPS argument, but then I remember Doom was also DPS, and Doom still had to work for the shields. So I'm like, actually. So you know what? Maybe not. Maybe I'll just stick to where I was before, and I won't give Venture the DPS argument, because Doom never had that, and Doom was DPS.
Case in point, AVRL arguing with himself for a minute. There you go.
Yeah. I argued with myself, disagreed with myself, exactly. And then landed on the final point of my conclusion.
Spilo, you had something you wanted to add.
It's whatever.
It's whatever, yeah. It does feel quite meh. Sam, meh?
I probably, with a lot of the characters going down to 225, it made sense for something to head Venture's way. I think they're really, I think they were very underrated on ladder, but mostly because it's a very niche character. So, probably with things being less tanky in general.
That's true, actually. I didn't think about 225.
Yeah. Oh, the breakpoints have definitely noticeably better. So I think taking away some tankiness is definitely needed. They got a head on that one.
Okay. Well, here we go. Sam, you kind of referenced this one already. Moving to support category. Coalescence. Moira damage per second increase from 70 to 85. Developer comments, Moira's ultimate didn't feel threatening enough after the health adjustments across the cast and her own lower health value. So here's the buff. How do you feel about that one? Sam, I'll go to you first.
I mean, it's really strong. I'm not really sure how to feel about it. I don't know if it's good enough to help her in the neutral to the point where she overtakes a hero like Brigitte and Rally. Like Rally, listen, SVB, I'm just gonna give Flats and myself our flowers for what we said. Do you remember how hard people cooked us, saying that we were just being doomers and overreacting to how good that Rally rework was? And lo and behold, as time went on, like she was just like, at least from a stat standpoint, she's had one of the better win rates across every rank from like every hero. And she's definitely like insane right now. So I don't know if this pushes her past Brig, but it's definitely going to be super noticeable. I just wish we would not play favorites and just like be picking and choosing which heroes get the better break points post season 9. I just don't think that's like a particularly healthy way to go about it. But it'll be noticeable, like especially on squishies, that will be a big difference for sure for time to kill.
This changes the break point from I think 4 seconds to 3 seconds to kill now.
That's
for
big.
a 250 HP target. Yeah, 3 seconds instead of 4. Pretty big change.
Imagine a 225, right? Imagine like like that's a pretty good time to kill right there. So yeah, it's definitely like if people don't think that's that big of a buff, listen, I get the copium off, okay? Like that's a damn big buff. So that's
I don't think it does. I don't think it does anything to 225
it'd be
HP
the same.
heroes,
It'd be the
but
same.
yeah.
If there was no other damage, but let's say there was a little bit other damage,
Yeah.
then you're kind of increased how fast it's killing a person, right? So
Yeah.
it does
actually. The one change is that at 70 damage per second, it used to take 4 seconds to kill 225. Now it's 3 seconds to kill both 225 and 250.
right. Heal both, and also again it gets you lower faster. So like if some other thing
Yeah.
pellet tickles you, then you just die,
True.
right? So like
Yeah.
if you get like 170 damage and then like something does like 50 plus, then you're just like, oh, I'm dead
I mean, and nothing is in a like
in a vacuum.
fractions
Yeah.
of breakpoints matter a lot too. You know,
Right.
like having a half of a second faster is a big freaking deal, even if it's not technically all the way to 3 seconds. You know, like so.
I think this can just be summarized as like the consequence of making these big scale adjustments at like en masse to heroes, where it's like we cranked everybody's HP up. Well, okay, now we need to crank this up and this up and this up and this up. Oh, and this down, and like eventually it's like, well, you're just gonna balance the game then, right? Like you're just gonna over time balance the game different. So it's like it's
I
like
will say one thing.
yeah.
One thing. I'm sorry.
No, you go.
Devil's advocate. We ask for big, sweeping, exciting
Right.
changes, and they deliver as long as they're willing to revert, which is exactly what Sam is talking about. It's like, okay, we tried it. What was good? What was bad? I was talking with Sam yesterday. I actually like the season 9 changes for one big reason, because it gives them 250 to 275 to 225 is a much easier knob to turn than 200 to 225 to 1 in terms of health. Like they gave them a slightly more precise health meter to tweak, but I don't necessarily was that worth the tax of like tweaking with a lot of breakpoints and everything has to scale up? Like, is that going to mess with a lot of other things? Like that's a big thing, but I do like that aspect of it. So they tried some stuff, some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. I think the key thing now is that it would be nice to have some communication on our initial stance on season 9 for burst damage and having more knobs to tweak. The more knobs to tweak has obviously been very useful, because look at all the 225 HP characters that we have now. That would not have been possible prior to season 9. The breakpoints, however, has been a much more mixed bag, and like Sam has said, it seems like they've played some favorites here and there, and or stuff just hasn't been scaled up appropriately. So we need to kind of, it would be nice to have some developer commentary on like, what's our long-term plan with this? Are we just going to scale everything to where it's like the old breakpoints, but now we have better health knobs to tweak, or what?
Yeah, and I want to caveat that and say that there is a difference between big changes that are each hero got changed, or like many of the heroes got changed, versus big changes that are the blanket change to all the heroes came in this way. Like we changed this big, everything gets, and I don't think those are equal. Like I think a big change where you're like, we made a patch and like 15 heroes, we changed them up. That's great in my book. Even if for me, I'm like, that's awesome. Maybe 10 of those are shit, but hey, awesome. Hey, that's going to be fun to play for a while. And I will say to their credit that the HP changes, I'm not a fan of the hitbox changes in retrospect, having given it some time. But the HP changes were remarkably successful given how big they were as a change. Like I was like, oh shit, we changed everyone's HP in Overwatch. And it actually went down pretty well. But we're seeing the problem with the fundamental nature of that approach to balance is that, well, at the end of the day, you had to tweak everything anyways. Like you had to tweak 80% of the heroes anyways. So like this,
and they're still catching up.
Exactly. And it kind of exposes the flaw as Sam and I, as long as we've been hosting this podcast during Overwatch 2, we were like, we don't like the role passes, right? Like I think I was first to be like, I don't like the role passes. It just feels like we're just blanket changing it. I know Sam's
Yeah.
on board as well,
Yep.
and it's the same thing.
Agreed.
It's just like you're just gonna have to balance the game anyways, guys. So just balance it the first time round and make things different for each hero. But anyways,
The
I
question
think
would be like, do we want to address burst damage with a holistic approach or with a case hero by hero approach? I think.
which they ended up doing anyways, because like now they're changing Hanzo
Yeah.
again. It's like, well, we just
Yeah.
your problem was the Hanzo one shot, and now you changed him 3 ways to fix the Hanzo one shot on top of the big change you made to
Yep.
remove burst and one shots and the tank burst and one shot that you wanted to change. You keep going back and forth on that too. So again, it all comes back. It's fucking Thanos meme. You tried the mass HP changes, and where did that bring you? Back to me. Back to actually changing each of the heroes, right? So just
Yeah.
change the heroes, guys. Like these like big, everybody got changed with one knob. Demonstrably, eventually you land in the same spot. So, okay. Life Weaver. Maximum ammo increase from 80 to 100. In the increased firing duration for Thorn Valley will give Life Weaver more damage presence, and it lines up better with its auto-charging heal timing to help that flow nicely. Any strong thoughts on the Thorny boy?
Maybe devil's advocate here. I think it's a fine change. Like, but I think part of Life Weaver is that his spammy damage, just kind of like ramming it down a choke or breaking shield, was already fairly decent. I'd be curious to hear from some of the top tier Life Weaver mains if something like having like more consistent spread, or like again the weapon swap is the one that we're always talking about, would be like a more interesting application of the offensive pressure. Because if I remember correctly, I do feel like if you just put Life Weaver in a corridor and just throw damage out, I don't think the clip size was a huge problem, or the raw DPS was the problem. It was like the accessibility of that damage was a bit of a problem, which the auto charge heal has been a huge, really awesome, sick change in that regard. But just something I guess to think about.
AVRL, I saw you kind of grinning. Was that because of this change or something else?
I don't know what this changes. I mean, I guess it helps. This is another hero where I don't know if this is just Roadhog all over again. Obviously, this hero is not hated like Roadhog, but you know what I mean. It's like, yeah, I guess, yeah, maybe more ammo. What are you meant to do with this hero? Where is this hero in the game right now? I don't know. I don't actually know where this hero is in the game anymore.
I mean,
Like,
it's
what?
improved though. I think to give. I mean, I agree with you. It was a disastrous launch, but unlike Roadhog, I think he's actually improved.
To the point where like there's an actual role to be filled, to the point where Life Weaver has an identity in the game. Like, I don't know.
I think they still need to do something with life grip. I've mentioned this a while ago where I was like, did I ever tell you about this SVP? Wait, I did tell you this about like he gets half cooldown when he grips people above 75% HP, so you can use it to like reposition.
Ooh,
and everyone's
that's
like,
it. No, you didn't tell me about
don't
that.
do that. Everyone don't do that. Life grip's toxic. But I'm like, dude, it's in the game. You got to make it happen. So just like actually like having it on like a 9 or 10 second cooldown if you use it on targets that are like full HP. Well, then there you go. You can like reposition. Like that would be cool. Like but I think all that being said, like I think like it's gotten better. He's not heal body. I talked about this with Sam as much. So I don't know. Like it's not the job's not done, right? But I'm like we got to give credit where credit is due. I agree with AVRL. I just don't know if this ammo clip does all.
I think it's a better direction than encouraging the lane heal botting style.
Yeah.
Anything but that, and I'm okay with it in my opinion. But
Yeah,
you know,
I'll give it
just
that.
one of those heroes.
I'll give it that.
Yeah, I do think he has a place in the game. It's just not really been realized. Like I think there is a demand for another Mercy-esque healer who's just like,
Well, Mercy's really bad.
right. Well, that is true as well. But I think there's a demand for that style of gameplay that doesn't necessarily have to be obnoxious while still being rewarding. So there's a chance, but unlike Roadhog, where there's like no chance, there's like no successful realization of current Roadhog that's like everyone's happy with.
Yeah. SVB, care to guess how many Mercy mains I counted in GM that were eligible for the top 100 leaderboard?
I'm gonna go with 7. 3?
Oof.
Oh, I almost went with 3.
There are
Oof.
3 Mercy players in GM.
The last
Damn.
patch tanked her, bro. That was
I will say this. Listen to all the Mercy players out there. Like, guys, taking Mercy to 225 post season 9, like season 9 gutted her because she has less time to actually like blue beam people. So what I will say is like, I coming out and say, didn't they say like Mercy's actually performing well or something in like the median rank or something? It's like, guys, people are gonna pick Mercy no matter what. Like she's genuinely like
Same argument
impossible
with
to win
Genji.
with. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, just want to throw
Yeah,
that
I
out
mean,
there.
no, I mean, I
was
will say,
counting.
no, I will say it's worth bringing up
I counted 3 Hanzos too, by the way.
because I do feel like we're quick to criticize Mercy as the community. Like we're quick to hate on Mercy and kind of shit on her, but she's been bad for a while. Like the Mercy
Yeah.
mains have been suffering for a while, and I think that
Yeah.
like obviously we don't expect a lot of people to be like, "Whoa, guys, do something about Mercy," the way people do like, "Hey, man, fix Genji," even though Genji
She's
is
harder
kind of
than
a
Brig.
meme.
I think she's harder than Brig, and Brig's been
that's
really good for a while.
no way. The way you
Dude,
play
come on.
Brig. No
Brig
way.
is so
No,
easy.
We don't need to get
no,
in
no,
that
don't-
discussion. We don't need to get into
So
that discussion.
easy.
I think it's like it's justifiable to say that like that data, like the 3 GM Mercies, is like considering how many
Yeah.
people just uniquely one trick Mercy, then that's still the number. There's probably like 3 Junkrats in top 500 like DPS. So like that's that's alarming.
There's a lot of Junkrats. There's a lot of Junkrats. There's a lot of them.
Right
He's
now.
actually good. Right now,
Right,
there's a
well
lot.
that's
That
the thing.
one
Like
change was really good.
even at like worst like there's probably 3 Symmetras. Right? Like pick the worst hero you could think of. There's probably 3 Symmetras in top 500, right?
Yeah.
I will say, let's not rose-colored glasses. This Mercy metas are really bad.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying
Really
Well,
metas,
that's
but, like,
not
I
extreme.
feel like-
Yeah, those are extremes. There's like doesn't have to be a
I feel
meta,
like
but
I feel like there are a lot, because at least with Mercy, like you do need to be like positionally aware. Granted, they made it a lot easier in Overwatch 2, like
Sort
with the
of.
super jump being,
Sort of.
super jump being on control now, like
Yeah,
just tapping it,
yeah.
because like you used to be able to have to do that, whatever. But like I will say, like I do think she needs a little something, because there are like a good amount of Mercy players, like I actually think are like pretty good, but. Like,
Yeah.
maybe this is the ranked reset too, because like right now, like I just want to say that before we get to the last one, SVB, like I have an account in like M1 right now, and I'm also like ranked 40 at the same time, and I'm just like sitting there like, my bad, like my Juno doesn't know how to I lose this game, like oh well, but it's a weird dynamic. Anyway, go back to the pack. Sorry.
Yeah, the last thing with Mercy is just it's not. I'm not like I actually think Mercy has like a pretty high skill set. And, like even in Overwatch League, like I remember like was it like season 2 or season 3? Like the difference between like a really good Mercy and a really bad Mercy was like pretty evident, and that definitely shifted to, like what teams could play those Mercy comps and what couldn't. But the problem is that like whenever Mercy's meta, it's in a way that doesn't actually encourage people to use her movement. So the problem is that the value, you don't need to play the skillful aspects of her as much as you should to get the value out of the character. And in the recent patch changes made that even worse. So 225 and then buffing the damage boost, like it's the opposite direction. So you see some of these high level Mercy mains, Mercy metas are really bad, but high level Mercy players are really skillful. They're just not rewarded with being able to use the skill set that they have. And I think that's always been the fundamental problem with how that hero has been balanced.
and that's obviously where you need to target as well, right? Like, it's no point giving her like a flat number buff. Like that would be the worst thing to possibly do. Is like, oh, she just heals more now, because then you're just gonna ruin her in plat. And the GM Mercies, maybe they'll do a little bit better, but it's like they're not gonna feel better for it, right? It's like another like player feel thing. It's like, well, do I feel any better as no? I don't feel different at all. I'm just doing the same thing, just better now. Like, so you want to give them the chance to show off their skill, because there are some really talented Mercy players out there.
Yeah, but they're not. We're not showing off skills. We're showing off the skins, guys. Come on, those Mercy skins have been coming out, and they've been pretty good
That's
recently.
true.
I got
One thing that doesn't stop
Samito
is
gets
the
the girly
skins.
card and he just goes off, man.
I
this
did.
season?
I have
Is there
the
a
girly
Mercy in this
pass.
season?
I think it's the formal, right? Formal.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
like the Karen Mercy, or not the Karen, but
Yeah,
like
the Karen.
Oh,
I
you're
just kinda-
so toast for that. You're toast. Don't tell me that I'm
Which
toast. When you
Karen?
call it Karen.
What do you mean? I mean, I treated it with my chest. When I saw the skin, I'm not even playing much. When I saw the skin, I said she looks like she'd pronounce it white. Like that's what she looks like.
Oh my goodness.
That's what she
Oh
looks like,
my
man. She's
goodness
got that
gracious.
kind of look about her. She's just got that kind of vibe.
Oh man.
Okay, final patch note is Zenyatta. So, Destruction Orb damage increased from 48 to 50. Orb of Discord cooldown per target reduced from 7 to 6. Developer comment: with the current addition of more speed boosts in the game, Zenyatta, and generally more poke-oriented team compositions by extension, has fallen off a bit due to how immobile and vulnerable he can be. We've tried increasing his health in the past, but it's proven problematic. So instead, we're leaning into his glass cannon nature. We're improving his damage this time, which should enable new breakpoints and how many shots are required to eliminate the enemy. Are we happy with that?
5
Yeah.
body shots, I believe.
I think it's
So,
like one of those season 9 breakpoints that was good to have back.
So a full charge right click now just kill somebody. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'd
Alright.
rather play against Zen than Alari.
Yep.
So
I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
doesn't the right? Am I correct me if I'm wrong? Doesn't the right click do less damage per shot? Is that a hallucination that I'm having again?
No.
No, I don't
You're,
think
you're
so.
thinking less DPS total. It slows down your fire rate by a significant amount,
Right.
but the R orbs themselves still do the same amount of
Okay.
damage.
Okay. Right. So
But
yeah,
like
you guys are
breakpoints wise,
happy
he
with
deserves
this.
it. He deserves it. Like he's a high risk, high reward character. There are some aspects, like if anything, when Zen metas are toxic, it's usually the support that pairs with Zen that removes his weakness entirely. Like I think Zen's a huge benefactor to the Brig burst healing and armor pack. That's kind of going down the rabbit hole a little bit. But I think like maintaining some sort of like offensive reward, and I think that the way that they explained it was also good because they're right. Like the HP thing with Zen is like never his problem. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good change. I think it's a good change.
Sam, you happy with this?
Yeah, he probably needed it. Like he yeah. I'm okay with it. Cause whenever the poke comps are getting played, like after playing against Alari for so long, like I would much rather play against the Zenyatta. Sorry, tank players, enjoy the Discord, but you know, sorry, I can hear flats like seething right now in my mind, but you know, oh well.
But it's never
well.
just Zen, right? Like it's always Zen plus
Yeah.
fill in the blank. And I also think there's like a good argument for like snap kick and like whether that's like actually a good, because that's a pretty skillless boop.
I
Like
think
it's
it
not
shouldn't
hard
be
to
in the game,
land.
but
Yeah. So you know.
I also
bigger
think
fish
that
to fry.
not to open another Pandora's box at the end of a long road of Pandora's boxes, but this is another problem that I find with Zen that would just be solved by hero bans, in my opinion, which is that he's always dog shit weak when poke is not strong, and when poke is strong, he's just like the worst hero in the game to go up against. It's just like there's very rarely an in between. It's very rarely like we're playing dive and like some guy's getting away with playing Zenyatta. It's like we're in dive meta and every guy who's playing Zen is feeding, and we're in Sigma meta and like we will not stop talking about how obnoxious Zenyatta is.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where like a hero ban system is just better because it's like, okay, it's poke meta, but at least I can ban the Zenyatta. Okay, it's dive meta, but I can ban one of the dive heroes, and now Zenyatta is more viable to play. It's like, it just softens the edges rather than this back and forth of, you know, nerfing, buffing, nerfing when it's poke, buffing when it's dive, nerfing when it's poke, buffing when it's dive.
I did like a
I
little
don't think
hero
I'm-
miseries. No, go ahead, Avril.
I don't think I'm ever going to be really satisfied with where Discord is in the game. I still dislike these like non-ultimate based damage amplifiers. And it's especially like insufferable to play as a tank going up against this thing, even though there's a cooldown on it. And to be fair, they just buffed that, but you know, whatever. It's still annoying when it gets, because you're always primarily the target. Discord is always like, typically it's going to go on the tank first. And it's always going to go back to the tank when available. But at least Zenyatta has a defined role in the game. This is a hero that has a defined, you know, identity in the game. Okay, what is he good at? What is he not good at? Where are you supposed to play him? Where are you not supposed to play him, etc. So I actually like that they're leaning into the glass cannon identity of this hero because, you know, I think they just, that fits into what he's supposed to do, what he's supposed to be. I worry that he could become super annoying to play against, but I don't think I hate playing against Zenyatta unless I'm a tank being constantly discorded.
Yeah, that's entirely fair, I think. Any other thoughts?
We hate
on
tank
Zenyatta?
players anyway, so you know what? It's whatever.
Sure,
Yeah.
fuck 'em. Any other thoughts on Zen?
No.
Oh, okay, awesome. In that case, we've actually gone through the patch notes, guys. I think the rest is like bug fixes and some updates to Clash and Flashpoint, which we have, you know, talked plenty on. So, we did it.
Just a round of applause for today's episode, man. Round of applause.
Oh.
That was all bases covered, guys. I mean, seriously, that was cinema. Like, oh my god.
By the way, I fact checked Avril. I think Avril is will be on 3 out of the 4 longest podcasts.
There you go. There's a
I'm always
correlation
there. I'm always because there's always that one topic that I'm like, all right, this is the one. This is the one I'm gonna
Yeah.
go a long
Well,
time.
that's why
on,
we're
so-
here. That's why we're here. You know.
Well, I'll tell you what
so-
it is. It's that like there's like these fundamental philosophy points that I think any interested Overwatch observer was happy to ramble on for like an hour, which is like the fundamental nature of tanks, like balancing map modes,
Right.
stuff like
Yeah.
bans. Like you bring that up, and everyone's gonna be like, no, it needs to be like this. It needs to be
Also-
like that.
You also can't talk about it quickly. It's like it's these kind of
Right.
things where, like, you know, I think this has been the problem. Like, especially in the past, before I just decided to go on like huge Twitter threads, but even sometimes if you go on Twitter thread, no one's going to read the whole thing. And so you just can't get these kind of deeper complex ideas out in a single tweet. So you tweet out one thing and everyone thinks you're like absolutely insane. It's like, oh, I can't believe this is AVRL's like take. And it's like, no, it can make it actually takes like half an hour to actually explain what the take is. And there's no other way to do it except just to say the whole thing.
Right.
So thanks for allowing me to do that.
Yeah, thanks for coming through and making an interesting discussion. I think hopefully podcast listeners who've made it this far must be hyper dedicated anyways, but they're probably like, oh man, SAB not putting out that many podcasts anymore. I know people keep coming into my stream because I'm out here playing Elden Ring at the moment. I'm playing the DLC and people come into my stream and they're like, no, where's the
Guys.
podcast, SAB? No podcast for a while. There you go.
One thing we didn't
we'll
talk
give you
about,
4-hour episodes to tide you over. Yeah, Amber, go ahead.
The one thing we didn't talk about Concord, guys. Come on, what the hell?
Oh yeah. Well, whatever.
There's not much to say.
Yeah,
Not much to say.
Rip in
Sadly.
peace.
Rest in peace. Unfortunate.
Sam, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, the one thing. This is really important. SVB. You've got to watch
I don't have a
that
Netflix
show, dude.
subscription. I don't have a Netflix
Dude.
subscription, dude. I don't have a Netflix subscription.
You
anymore.
would love it, man.
I
Like,
may-
can't-
Watch what? Watch what?
Dragon's Blood.
So
Dota's Dragon's
there-
Blood. I may.
there-
I'll tell you
yeah.
what. I
Yeah.
may compromise my pissed offness with Netflix when Arcane's new season drops, and I'll watch both at once.
Yeah,
I'll
watch Arcane.
I'll watch both
watch
the MOBA. I'll watch both the MOBA.
It's really
anime,
good.
and then
It's
I'll
really
unsubscribe after a month.
Like they have this their
Not a bad
intro
strat.
screen with like the pedals is just so it's just beautifully like choreographed is what I would say. So
They
definitely
actually
worth
added
it.
a character from that show into the game, like Marcy is like
Oh,
was
did
added.
they really?
Yeah, was added into the game after. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong because I haven't seen Dragon's Blood. So, but I'm pretty sure that they added her after the show came out. So
I'm just saying that's a good video on the soak, So that's all I'm
Maybe.
saying. That's all I'm
Maybe.
saying.
maybe. I mean, they're also releasing a new Cyberpunk. There's actually a lot of like games
Is
are
there?
releasing stuff. They're gonna release
they?
a new Cyberpunk. Yeah,
Oh, not fucking Overwatch.
they said they're making a new Cyberpunk like animated thing. There's a Devil May Cry anime coming out, which is I'm pretty psyched about.
Again? Oh man. That
Again?
show
Was there one before?
crazy. Yeah, there's one on there's one on Netflix. Am I wrong,
Is there?
guys, or no?
I don't know. I saw they're releasing one now. Tekken has one as well. Tekken has a animated and it's actually good. It's actually good. Like most of these are actually pretty watchable, which is kind of sad because it's like their games tend to not have such good story, but their anime are pretty watchable. So, what would Overwatch be able to do? Maybe Overwatch would do the reverse, where Overwatch is like we have a really good in-game story, but our anime is dog shit. Like it's just like incoherently bad.
Who
knows?
knows? Dude?
I don't think we have either. We don't have an anime or an in-game story, really, do we? So
No, not
we have like
strictly.
a
but
pseudo in-game.
Not
we have cool
recently,
characters.
anyway.
Yes, not recently.
We
We have
do.
cool characters, and we used to tell story with in-game stuff. Like like when we were when we were learning more about the lore, we would get like, the missions that were gonna tell a bit about what happened with Overwatch and like the dynamics between the characters and stuff. We used to get that. Anyways, before we turn into this rant, let me head to concluding thoughts, fellas. It's been a long one, so we'll just go with the classic. What are you hoping to see in the short/medium term from Overwatch? It could be small shit. It could be like, hey, give Genji 2 more damage, or it could be like, hey, make tanks smaller and more damage. So directed at no one in particular. So we'll go with Spilo first. Spilo, what is your feeling on what you would like for Overwatch?
I guess just thematically for what we talked about today, just would like to see more experimentation with some of the tank designs. A little bit more aggressive redesign work and trying some different stuff, because even going into 6v6, I think there's a lot of things that would benefit from that.
Reasonable. AVRL, how about you?
Yeah, let's slow down on the game modes, fellas. Let's release more maps for the existing game modes, and we got to get those, especially class changes, out sooner rather than later. I know Gavin said they were experimenting on stuff, so happy to hear those comments. Don't know what they will or can do about push at the moment. For what it's worth, I think push is mostly saved by the fact that in non-organized games, the chaos and randomness of the game kind of covers the blemishes of push a lot. That's why, I could randomly jump to a quick player push and it typically won't feel that bad. But the more organized the setting is, the more like the problems come through. So Push has at least got that going for it. So maybe they're not that concerned about Push, but Clash is concerning because everyone's like it's probably pretty glaring. But I'm just not a fan of like constantly having new game modes. I think it's time we just slow down on that for a decent while. And I think as far as the skin discussion goes, we need skins for the new heroes. Like I don't know what happened to like new heroes releasing with legendaries. We just don't have that anymore for some reason. So someone's got to be done about that.
Venture in particular, who just seems to not get any cool skins. But yeah, Sam.
Ice cream was good. I liked the ice cream skin. I did like, but you're right. Yeah, like generally speaking, you are right. Honestly, like my opinions are kind of in limbo until they try 6v6 again. I'm nervous. I don't want them to try too many tank reworks, like or like big things until like they've at least tried it. I think that's gonna pull the wool off a lot of people's eyes in terms of like how much power creep has gone on over time. And go ahead.
I was gonna say, here's a question, because if you say you're kind of in limbo, here's a slightly interesting question, I hope.
Sure.
Do you think they would drop 6v6 test around Marvel Rivals, or would that be actually like shooting themselves in the foot? Because Marvel Rivals is coming out December, right? So not far.
It's December 6th. So here's what I would say for them. Like, because I don't want to sit here and say like obviously people can prefer what they want. My issue is never with what people preferred. It was with like claims that they made about why they preferred it, if they were actually accurate or not. And that's kind of what I wanted to help like steer the discussion towards. And I felt like at first like there was a lot of misinformation going around about what format does what a format actually is. Because the format's just a foundation. That's all it is. Like ultimately, and I think we've learned this, there are good and bad decisions that can go into designing a game regardless of your format, right? Like a lot of the balance decisions, for example, like that can go both ways. It's not like a one-way street. And I think a lot of people misconstrued that or just did not get the right idea on that. If I were them, I would do it before, because like you don't I think it's a better format, but like I think they need to make a decision as to how do they want to build Overwatch out in the future? Like, what's its unique identity, and how do you capture that in a market that's going to get more competitive? Like, is Marvel Rivals going to be better than Overwatch? I don't think anybody can say that accurately at this point. There's no way to know. I think it'll maintain an audience. How much? Who knows? No one does. There's no way to know until you get there. I will say the gameplay loop did feel good, and that's the main difference between that game and like any other game that I've really played, that like Gundam or something like that. It's like even a Valorant, when Valorant was coming out, people were like the Overwatch killer. No, it's not. Like they play so different, and like anybody with half a brain could tell that just from watching the gameplay immediately. Like they're two complete. Like they're the analogy that I like to use is like, look, yeah, they're both restaurants, but Overwatch was Mexican food and they were Indian food. Valorant was Indian food, for example. Like your cravings are going to be different, but like, you know, Marvel Rivals is like another Mexican restaurant opening up on the same street. So you got to figure out like what your dishes are, what your product offering is. It's going to make people want to choose you over someone else. The main thing that I would ask from them is to just like, hey, just make sure after 2 years, like we've been trying a lot of reworks, we've been trying a lot of things. Have they actually captured the gameplay experience that you set out to capture in this game? And can you actually do it? I just want them to give it a fair chance to just come back and say, look, like, is this the path we want to choose? I would say by this December, I hope that they would have made their decision about the path that they would want to go down. Because as for me, like I've really thought about this. I think I've already hammered out the main issues. And I think that a lot of the issues that Hawk especially brought up kind of aged to be correct with what he said about, and they kind of acknowledged like, it's really hard to make tanks work in this game. It's really hard. It's way harder. We all thought it'd be easier. We were all wrong, myself included. I was on the train of let's try this. So yeah, I would say do it before SVB and then try to figure it out since then. I think that you would sit down and see how they do and make your decision. Because from a consumer standpoint, I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I think anybody who claims to know exactly what's going to happen just couldn't be more wrong. So I think that you have the benefactor or the benefit here of 2 science experiments happening right before your eyes. And there's a lot that everybody can learn from it. And I think as long as they're willing to learn from it and adapt, that's going to be good. But yeah, as for me right now, I don't see any big, unless they're willing to like globally nerf tanks. But like right now, they can't really do that because of queue times, right? Like nobody was like, you had the tank players on this podcast for many times, SVB, they weren't happy. So this just might be how things kind of have to be in this format. So I don't know if I want to sit there and be like, yeah, balance the game, nerf the tanks. Like if this is how it has to be, then like we kind of just have to accept that. But I don't think it has to be this way, and I'd like to see that change. So I would try to do 6v6 before Marvel Rivals, get a feel for like what the hype is, because I wouldn't go head to head to them against them if I were Blizzard as they launch. I will wait and see how they are January or February, and then you go for it, right? Because that's when things are going to get. You're not going to outcompete them in their first month and a half. You're just not going to do it. Like that's the nature of gaming. It's just not going to happen. January, February are kind of the dead zones of the gaming year anyway, right? It doesn't start to pick back up again until March, April, May, where you start to head into the summer. So they've got really, I would say, 6 months to kind of make a big decision. And you don't have to hard commit to one format either. You can change it back and forth seasonally, like whatever you want to do. Like I don't like the idea, even as a 6v6er, of sitting here saying, yeah, they've got to be in this format forever. I think one might be healthier than the other, but like you're not limited to that. You can do whatever you want with your game. Like that's a big reason why I was really frustrated at like, how the debate started out, and it ended up getting a lot more heated because of it, where people were just like, oh, it's never going to happen. I'm like, come on, guys, like this could happen. I don't think that's going to help anybody for that part of the discussion. And it did change, to give everybody credit. People did change their minds, and I'm glad of that happened. So yeah, I just rambled. Sorry. We all had to get our rambles in at least at one point.
Sure,
so
sure.
I'm kind of in wait and see mode. I want to see how this experiment plays out. And the gamer in me, is very excited to see how it happens, because we really like don't take it for granted either, guys. Because like we're not going to get to see an experiment like this. It could have been Concord, right? Like we didn't even get to see shit from that. Like that kind of sucked. But like with this one, I do think we're gonna get to see the whole distance, and so I'm very excited to see how it pans out, and I think that everybody can take a lot of good lessons. I don't think Overwatch is going anywhere either. It's not gonna die out. I'm curious. I don't know. I'm curious what'll happen. We'll have to wait and see. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I mean, glad you shared your thoughts on it. And it kind of gave me a bit of food for thought, the metaphor you used as well about the restaurants and, they opened a Mexican food on the same street. It actually reminds me like an interesting phenomenon, actually. And I don't know if this metaphor actually will translate into the real world, or whether it's just going to die at the metaphor stage. But, like people do actually open shops. Like, have you ever wondered why sometimes there are shops of like the same type in the same area? And it basically comes from like this principle that like of catchment area, right? So like if there's like a town, let's say someone opens a Mexican restaurant in the center of town, they're kind of capturing either end, right? So there in the middle, someone is 5 miles this way, 5 miles that way. They're going to be incentivized to come to that Mexican restaurant. So if you were to go, let's say 3 miles left in that direction, you'd capture less of the market, right? Because now 7 miles in that direction, everyone is really far away. And okay, you have some people here, but maybe not so far away that they're not willing to just go to the Mexican restaurant in the center. Yeah. And I wonder if that metaphor somewhat translates, and I wonder, to bring it to gaming, I wonder if a game that is successfully a 6v6, like hero, shooter, arena, whatever you want to call it, will actually just make more people interested in Mexican food in this case.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We don't know. Like
maybe more people will just be, because like, right, because you look at like MOBAs and League and Dota, they kind of, as much as they're at odds with each other, they also create the MOBA market. People, people are more aware of the genre. They're more willing to try the genre. So as much as, Marvel Rivals is seen as like a direct competitor Overwatch, it may be, and it may be that it cannibalizes Overwatch, but I also am curious to see if it'll generate more interest in that type of game that may allow Overwatch to sort of create a more healthy competition with it, where it's like, okay, they had a bad patch, we have a patch, come play our game instead. Okay, we have a bad patch, like they get a good release, like a hero or something. Like maybe that might be more of the relationship they have, rather than like Marvel Rivals wins and Overwatch dies, or like Overwatch wins and Marvel Rivals dies.
It won't be like that.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that's what happens. That would be really cool if it did, because this is a cool genre. It's my favorite genre in all of gaming. Like that could happen, and in which case, hey, we win. The consumer wins in that regard, so I'll take it.
8 years deep, I don't know how many people haven't played Overwatch yet. I mean, everyone's had the chance to play Overwatch by now, I would say.
Well, you say that, but also the dominant market, it feels like, for gaming now is just younger people. So there's like every year people who are getting older who have never played Overwatch.
I guess younger people coming up that haven't played games. There's always new gamers, so that argument is true. Maybe.
I think
Yeah,
until we
Um,
get into the rocking chairs, which we're pretty close, guys. Like we're getting there. Like look at this.
This guy
I'm
hits
not-
28, and he just can't shut up about it now.
And also,
Right here,
The dementia's already set in. Grandpa Sam.
also the relationship people have with a lot of these long-standing games like League, like World of Warcraft, is that they tend to come back at some point. Like they do kind of bounce in and out. So there is a chance for like people to be like, oh man, I am kind of interested again. Like it's been a while since I played Overwatch and I heard they did something cool. So like there is a chance, you know, I'm not saying that there's going to be a huge comeback and we're going to have like 200 billion players playing, but you know, people do, knowing all the League addicts that I know, they're like, fuck, I hate it, but they added a cute character and I got to go play, or like they added a
Yeah.
game mode and I got to go play, you know, whatever it is, like people be coming back. So let's see.
Yeah.
All right, fellas, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, sir.
Oh shit, we forgot to talk about Deadlock. I mean, we talked about it a couple times. No, like actual.
Yeah, we haven't done like
That
a
was a good one,
dedicated
boys.
deadlock. I was actually, the reason for that is I was actually considering whether I want to like personally double down on Deadlock Hunter. I was like, do I want to like really, because I grinded Deadlock for like a couple weeks straight, like just only playing Deadlock, and I was like, do I even want to make like a group up for Deadlock? Like, do I want to make like group up Deadlock? But I've kind of come to the conclusion I'm going to focus on the soak on a personal level. Like, I'm just going to do more soak shit first, and then we'll see what happens like 6 months down the line if I'm
Yeah.
interested in gaming content creation or not. So that's why I was thinking, like, do I want to host a dedicated Deadlock thing? So that's why we haven't done a Deadlock debate, but maybe at some point, AVRL, because I know you're keen on having a Deadlock debate, but maybe at some point we will. So until then,
Get Hawk back.
Yeah.
He's been
is
grinding.
Hawk
you
playing?
just-
Is Hawk playing Deadlock?
He was, yeah.
He's
was,
playing
yeah.
a shitload, isn't he?
I think so. He was, yeah. Last I talked to him.
Oh,
You
cool.
test it here anyway. You just test it here as part. I mean, like this could be this show could be talking about whatever. Like, I mean, I guess it is mostly like an Overwatch show, but still, you can do whatever you want with this show.
Expand the
Honestly,
horizons, baby. There's a big
Maybe
sea
we
out
need a
there.
deadlock.
A lot of
Maybe we
fish
need a
in the sea.
deadlock debate. We'll see. And we'll definitely have a Marvel Rivals debate when it does release in December. So we'll see how it goes. But until then, thank you very much to Spilo, AVRL, and Samito, as
Cheers, man.
always, for giving me their time and company. Please go show these guys some love. That is it from us from here on the Group Up Podcast. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out.
See y'all.
See ya.